Welcome to my channel, guys. If you're looking for an amazing novel, visit my Patreon page. Your support will help turn this story into an exciting audiobook. Join me on this journey. The Daily Life of the Demon King. Chapter 1, Meeting with the Old Man, revised version. Where am I now and why am I talking to myself? It's quite simple, I'm dead. That's right, what a surprise. I find myself in emptiness, like in typical stories where heroes die and end up somewhere, then meet a god. The most surprising thing is that I ended up here when I expected to go to hell, the place they scare children with. Why was I supposed to go to hell? It's quite simple, I knew how I lived and what awaited me. I probably thought I could find a job there. It's always better than suffering eternal torment. Back to the point, here I am, pondering what to do next. Wait for the big G or Roba, as they call them, or try to escape to where I'm supposed to go. How did I die? It's quite simple, no truck con or heroic saving of women or children from disaster. I died like a typical old man from a heart attack at the age of over 25. How did it happen? It's quite simple, late night gaming sessions, energy drinks, and coffee, all led to a heart attack in a young body. And that's how I ended up here. You're quite an interesting young man, may I say? Alexander, well, I think it's quite logical that someone like me should end up in hell rather than getting a chance at reincarnation and such. And why exactly did you decide your place is in hell, not, for example, in heaven? Alexander, I believed in hell and heaven and thought that for one's actions, one should bear punishment. Plus, I thought I could find work in hell. Haha, first time I see someone who wants to find a job in hell. You're truly an interesting kid. Alexander, I guess, thank you. Who are you, old man, god or robe? Neither one, kid. Alexander, so you're the one above all, right? Oh, that's right, and you win a prize. Clap clap clap, bring the prize to the studio, well, actually, to the void. Alexander, you're quite a jovial old man. Oh, I'm not old. Why does everyone I meet think I'm old? Even my two sons think I'm already old. Alexander, blank stare, you do realize you're older than the multiverse that's been around for eons, right? Oh, these are all trivialities, young Alexander. Alexander, and now you're speaking like the Almighty, sweating profusely. Oh, alright, let's leave all these trivialities and discussions. Now that you've figured out why I'm here, will you choose to be reborn or will you go where your karma dictates for your actions and the life you've lived? Alexander, well, I think only a fool would refuse. So, what can I wish for and what can't I? Oh, you can wish within reason, don't be greedy, young friend. Alexander, then, what's the upper limit of power I can wish for? Can I choose the world I'll go to and change my appearance? Oh, as for power, I think you understand it's not about omnipotence and such. As for the other questions, yes and yes. Alexander, a rather vague answer about power, but okay, let me think for a couple of minutes and I'll tell you my answer, if that's okay with you. Oh, everything's fine, take your time. Sometime later. Alexander, I think I've decided on the abilities I need. I want all the abilities of Anos Voldegode. Oh, well, those abilities don't contradict what I mentioned earlier. But can you explain why these powers specifically? Alexander, I'm not satisfied with typical main characters who overcome everything with willpower and friendship. I want to be strong and unconditionally dominant, breaking any barriers effortlessly, without getting into blood and dirt. I need power to live on the edge, where I am respected and feared, and where every step I take becomes a challenge for those around me. Oh, so you just don't want to bother? Alexander, exactly. And one last question before you send me to the world I choose. Can I absorb their powers and knowledge here before going on adventures? Oh, laughs, you really surprise me, kid. No one has asked to stay to absorb powers before leaving. Well, sure, you can absorb knowledge and powers here. Just let me know when you're ready. Alexander, thank you. And one more thing. Can I get starting weapons, or can I only ask for powers? Oh, what starting weapon do you want, my young friend? But remember, it shouldn't disrupt the balance of the world you're going to. Alexander, the swords Yamato and Beowulf. Oh, well, I think such weapons can be allowed. Why this choice specifically, and not something more exotic like the gates of Babylon or Solomon's rings? Alexander, these are my favorite weapon. I like their style. Oh, laughs, good choice. Are you ready to begin receiving powers? Alexander, yes, I'm ready. And regarding appearance, before I head to another world with my face and dead fish eyes, I want to look like Anos, but with eyes the color of mystical death perception, not like Satora's. Oh, noted. Let me know when you're ready to begin. Good, when you absorb the powers and experience, you'll be ready for adventures. And please, name the world you wish to journey to. Alexander, alright, no need to get upset. I'm ready to receive your blessing, oh great elder. Oh, don't make it all so bad. Absorbing such a volume of knowledge will be a bit unpleasant, so bear with it for a while. Sometime later. Alexander, I must say, it's been quite an interesting experience. Feeling these powers and seeing how I look now, I can say I'm pleased with myself. Well then, are you ready for your adventures, young Alexander? Alexander, yes, I'm ready to journey to another world. I want to go to the world of Danmachi, a year before the main events start. And if possible, I'd like to enter an alternate universe where Belle is a girl. And please, I prefer it to be near Orario. I just don't want to travel too far. Can I also receive a small starting capital so I can afford housing and food until I find a family to join? Of course, that's possible. And don't worry about using weapons and gaining experience, you'll learn all that as soon as you arrive in the other world. So, are you ready? Alexander, yes, I'm ready. And thank you very much for everything you've given me and the opportunity to fully enjoy life. Then I wish you a safe journey, young Alexander, and may luck always be with you. This isn't the Hunger Games, I managed to shout before the portal sucked me in, and all I heard afterward was the laughter of that old man before everything went dark. Some time later, after waking up, I found myself already in the forest. Nearby lay the weapon I had asked for from the old man, and a small pouch of money from this world. If I remember correctly, they are called vallis. As for the clothes I was wearing, at first, I thought it would be the standard attire of the power I had chosen. However, it turned out to be clothing similar to Virgil's from DMC, which pleasantly surprised me because I've always liked his style. Now, on to the silliest question I hadn't thought about before asking for the weapon. Where do I put it? Maybe I can store it and summon it, like in those games. And it seems to have worked. I practiced a bit with summoning and dismissing the weapon to better understand how it works. Now, the most important moment: how much money did the old man give me? Peeking into the vallis pouch, I found a note from the old man with a short message: don't thank me, sometimes we all forget something. Alexander, ha ha ha, I admit, the old man has a sense of humor. After reading the note and laughing at my own foolishness, I decided to check how much money I received as a starting capital. There were about 1,000,000 vallis in the pouch, enough for me to rent a nice room or buy a decent house until I join a god and their family. Well then, I can start my adventures. To be continued. Chapter 2, Chapter 2: Arrival in Orario and Visiting the Guild, Revised Version. First-person view. After deciding to head towards the city, I needed to make initial preparations so that the gods wouldn't sense my demonic blood and demon energy. For this, I required one spell from Anos' arsenal, the Narts spell. Narts is a fundamental magic spell that masks the origin of magical power. It makes the magical power appear human rather than demonic to everyone around. This spell will help me conceal my aura so that the gods won't attack me as soon as I arrive in the city. Additionally, I need to use another spell, Najira. Najira is a spell that hides the target's magical power. It will help conceal my enormous reserve of magical energy. What annoys me the most right now are the purple eyes of destruction. Now I understand why Satoru always wore a blindfold. The feeling that you can destroy everything with just a glance is simply shocking. I need a small seal for my eyes from Anos' arsenal and the problem is solved. Now, I can set off for the city. I think I'll take Yamato with me, just in case I encounter something on the way. Sometime later, as I approached the city, I realized I had ended up in a fantasy world, because what I was seeing was beyond words. I can only say that it was amazing. Getting closer to the city, I noticed a line for entry consisting of various races, merchants, and adventurers. Why does no author mention in their fantasy books that the queues to these cities are enormous? Thank goodness the old man threw me into this world in the morning and not closer to evening. After waiting in line for a while, it was finally my turn to pass through. A guard stopped me at the gate to ask a few questions. Guard, young man, where have you come from and what is your purpose in visiting Orario? Me, I came from the Far East to become an adventurer, find a family, and enjoy the adventures. Guard, from the Far East, you say? I don't see any features in you typical of people from the East. Me, ha ha ha, I understand I don't look the part. My family has lived there for generations, though I don't really know where my ancestors originally came from. Unfortunately, I can't find out because I'm the last of my family, so I decided to travel. One day, while traveling with a caravan, people were talking about adventurers and the city of Orario, so I decided to come here to find a place where I can call home. Guard, I sympathize with you, young friend. You must have gone through a lot to get here. Me, thank you. What do I need to do to enter the city and become an adventurer? Guard, to enter the city, you need a document proving your identity, which you can get at the guild. If you don't have one, we can issue a temporary one. You will also have to pay an entry fee of 200 vallis. Me, no problem. Do I need to pay extra for the temporary ID? Guard, haha, you're quite the cheerful one. No, it's temporary and will allow you to enter the city and register at the guild. Me, thank you. Could you also tell me how to get to the guild so I can get the ID and possibly find out information about the so-called dungeon? Guard, of course. See that tall tower in the distance? That's the dungeon, and the guild is nearby. They will provide you with the information you need. Me, thanks for your help, and have a good day. First-person perspective. As I walked through the streets of Orario on my way to the guild, I couldn't stop marveling at the fact that I was truly in a fantasy world. Along the way, I saw many different merchants with their stalls, selling all kinds of trinkets and food. Note to self, try the food at these stalls after registering at the guild because some of it looks very appetizing. Alright, enough distractions and growling stomach. First, I need to take care of business, and then I can enjoy the perks of the fantasy world, namely, delicious food. After all, I haven't eaten since my death, ha ha ha. Silly words and puns. Looking around, I noticed people were starting to give me strange looks. I realized I had made a joke and laughed at it myself, apparently out loud. There it was, my first social blunder in the fantasy world. The most important thing now was to maintain a composed face and keep moving toward my goal. And my goal was the guild. First-person perspective. Reaching the guild building and stepping inside, I was greeted by a spacious area. On one side, adventurers were lined up to sell what they had collected in the dungeon. On the other side, it seemed like people were waiting to get information or hand something over to the staff. Regarding this, I wasn't sure if the guild bought information or not. I'd have to clarify that with whoever became my advisor. For now, though, another queue. After waiting in line for a while, I encountered one of the characters from Danmachi, Ina Tool, a half-elf girl who looked after Balcranal. Ina was a kind and gentle half-elf girl, yet quite strict when the situation demanded it. She had a beautiful, slender figure typical of elves, cute long ears, short brown hair, and lovely emerald eyes. Apparently, I stared at her for too long, making her feel uncomfortable. Ina, good day, my name is Ina Tool. How can I help you? Me, I just recently arrived in the city, and the guard at the entrance said I need to get an ID to be able to stay in the city. Ina, I see, you are a newcomer. What brings you to the city? Me, I came to the city to become an adventurer and find a family to enjoy adventures with. Ina, I understand. In that case, you need to fill out a form for the ID, and after you join a family, you will need to fill out a form for adventurers. Me, so, without joining a family, I can't enter the dungeon? Ina, that's correct. Those are the rules after many people who weren't blessed by the gods entered the dungeon and died. Me, I understand, Miss Ina. Then, can you give me the form for the ID? Ina, certainly. While filling out the form, I needed to provide my first and last name, age, and occupation. It was all quite straightforward, though I took some time deciding on what name and age to use. After all, I wasn't going to write that I was just a few hours old. I decided to choose the most optimal age 18 years, just a couple of years older than Belle. Being a lazy person, I decided to use my old name and surname, Anos, and ended up with a name that even sounded similar, Alexander Voldigod. After completing the form, I handed it to Ina. Me, Miss Ina, I've filled out the form. Can you check if everything is correct so I don't waste the paper? Ina, you filled it out correctly, Voldigod-san. You indicated your age as 18, though I thought you were older. Me, I think. Thank you, strange look. Under my strange look, Ina blushed for some reason, although my eyes shouldn't evoke such cute emotions in the opposite sex. Ina, ahem, excuse me, here is your ID, Voldigod-san. If you need any more information, feel free to ask me. Me, thank you, Miss Ina. If possible, could you tell me where I can find information about the families I can join? Ina, of course. You can look through the families of the gods in this book, or are you looking for a specific god you would like to join? Me, I don't have a specific family in mind. I just arrived in the city and want to look around before deciding who to join. Browsing through the so-called family register, I tried to find a certain lowly goddess because I couldn't remember when she arrives. After spending some time, I found who I was looking for, namely Hestia, the goddess of fire and hearth. When people say Hestia gives useless buffs with her blessing, it's not true. There's nothing better than coming home after a hard day to a place where you are awaited. After finding what I was looking for, I decided to return the book to Ina and at the same time find out where I could grab a bite to eat. If it turned out to be the hostess of fertility, even better. Where else could one meet cute maid girls if not at the most significant place in Orario? Me, thank you, Miss Ina. I found what I was looking for. If it's not too much trouble, could you tell me where I can get a good meal? Ina, certainly, Voldigod-san. You can go to the hostess of fertility. They cook very well there, and the portions are quite large, just right for a growing body. Me, then could you point the way for this hungry traveler so he can satisfy his hunger, Miss Advisor? Slightly bowed. Ina, of course, I'll show you. It's my job to help adventurers, after all, said a slightly blushing Ina as she pointed the way to the restaurant. To be continued. Chapter 3, Hostess of the Horn of Abundance and the Lovely Waitresses. After Ina showed me the way to the Mistress of Abundance, we chatted a bit more. I told her that when I become an adventurer, I'll ask her to be my personal consultant. After all, Ina is a meticulous consultant, as the old saying goes, forewarned is forearmed. After bidding farewell to the lovely half-elf Ina, I set out to find a place where I could enjoy a delicious meal and admire the girls dressed as maids. It didn't take long to reach the renowned restaurant Mistress of Abundance, where I admired the exterior before deciding to enter. My stomach was already protesting, making sounds that clearly indicated its desire for an independent lunch. Without wasting time, I entered the restaurant and was greeted at the entrance by two cat girls. One had chestnut hair, while the other had black hair. If I recall correctly, the one with chestnut hair was Anya Frommel, sister to Ellen Frommel of the Freya familia. The one with black hair was named Chloe Rollo. If I think about it, how could I approach Chloe? I could use the Krazo spell to reduce my age to 12 and let her kidnap me. After all, I don't mind being kidnapped by a beautiful cat girl. Lost in my internal monologue, mesmerized by the cat girl's ears that I endlessly wanted to stroke, I decided it was time to talk to them and ask to be escorted to a place where I could sit down and finally eat. Chloe/Anya, welcome, visitor Naya. At that moment, I couldn't resist one more foolish act, adding another awkward moment to my adventures in this fantasy world. Me, hello, maids Nayas. A palpable awkward silence fell over the entire restaurant, as if no one else had anything better to do than turn and look at us. It was then that I realized, here was another social death. But I regret nothing, I've always wanted to do this with cat girls. Noticing the awkward situation, Chloe took the initiative. Chloe, visitor, did you come here to joke around or to eat? Me, clearing my throat, I apologize, I'm just meeting cat girls for the first time and was a bit nervous. I'm sorry if that came off as rude. Chloe, everything's fine, visitor, you didn't do anything wrong. Will you need a table for one or are you expecting someone? Me, if it's not too much trouble, I'll take a table for one. I've just arrived in Orario, and after getting my identification, I asked the consultant where I could eat well. She recommended this place, so I came straight here after the guild. Although, maybe someone will join me to eat. Although, there is someone who will eat with me, and that's my stomach. Ha ha ha, and again, my silly puns. I hope I won't get beaten up for them one day, although that's unlikely. Chloe, I see, you're quite a cheerful visitor. Please follow me, I'll show you where you can place your order. Chloe led me to a table where I could sit and place my order. After handing me the menu, she mentioned that once I was ready, a waitress would come by to take my order. As I perused the menu, I felt a couple of curious glances from the other end of the hall. Turning to look, I noticed it was Searflover, a beautiful girl with grey eyes and hair of the same shade. Her fair skin and the maid's attire only enhanced her charm. In those fanfics I read, every author described her differently. Some saw her as Freya's avatar, seeking people with beautiful souls for her family. Others told stories of her being a child raised in an orphanage and trained by Freya. But these are all just guesses until I talk to her personally and find out the truth. Lost in admiration of her beauty, I decided to verify which version might be true. I confirmed she definitely wasn't Freya, she lacked that aura inherent to a deity. My gaze clouded with her charm, and I forgot to place my order. My stomach reminded me that I wasn't here to enjoy the beauty of fantasy girls, but to eat. Deciding to place my order, I called over Ryu Lion, one of the waitresses. Ryu, ready to order? Me, I'd like to order, but I'm not sure what to choose. Could you recommend something? Ryu, I can recommend our signature dish. And what would you like to drink? Me, I'd like something cool and sweet, please. Ryu, alright, your order is taken. It'll be ready shortly. Me, thank you. While I waited for my order, I continued observing the waitresses delivering orders and adventurers coming and going. I still felt that strange gaze upon me, and apparently Seer had nothing else to do if she kept looking at me. Smiling and nodding at her, she apparently gathered the courage to approach me. Sil was an intelligent girl, and she seemed to notice a new face and became curious about who I was. Coming up to me, she took a seat at a nearby stool and decided to introduce herself. Sil, hello, peculiar visitor. I see you've recently arrived in this city. Me, it's not very polite to call someone peculiar, but I admit my behavior was unusual. It's my first time meeting a cat girl. And yes, I've recently arrived in Orario. Before this, I was traveling until people in one of the caravans I was on started talking about adventurers and dungeons. So, I decided to come to this city to learn how to live among gods. Oh, and I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Alexander Voldegod, and I come from the Far East. Sil, Voldegod? Quite a strange surname for an Eastern country, although one could say your sword is from the East. Me, smiling, I won't lie, my name confuses many, especially when I say I'm from the East, and this sword has been passed down in my family for generations. Sil, my name is Sil Flavis, I'm a waitress here. What are your impressions after arriving in Orario? Have you decided which familia you want to join? Do you already have a familia in mind that you want to join? Me, my impressions after arriving? I can only say one thing, I'm impressed. As for familia, I'm not sure yet. I think I'll join a small familia and try to make it the strongest in Orario. After all, you always need a goal to strive for. Sil, I see you have ambitions, Voldegod-san. But in Orario, there's the Freya familia with a rank 7 adventurer, and there's also the Loki familia, which is also strong. To make your familia the strongest, you have a long way to go. While I was chatting with Sil, Mia Grande, or as they call her, Mama Mia, noticed this. She was ready to explode, and from the corner of my eye, I noticed her reaching for the cleaver, and I felt she would start throwing soon. Instead of working, Sil was chatting with a client, but at that moment, my savior, Ryu, brought my order and distracted her. Sil noticed this and quietly decided to leave, winking at me at the end. As Sil tried to leave, she accidentally bumped into Ryu, and I couldn't help but notice that despite her grace, Sil moved as if an elephant in a china shop, or it was the so-called author's plot armor. Seeing Ryu fall together with my food, I decided to recreate the famous scene from Spider-Man where Peter catches Mary Jane. I caught both the food and the beautiful elf girl, realizing life was good, my food was unharmed, and in my arms was my beloved Ryu. Holding her in my arms, I noticed she blushed deeply, while Sil smiled guiltily. If my hands weren't busy, I would have given her a thumbs up for such an opportunity. If Ryu was one of my favorite characters in Danmachi in my past life. Putting the food on the table and holding Ryu's hand, I decided to make sure everything was okay with her. She was probably ashamed of her actions, but I can say I'm not complaining, I'm very happy. Me, are you okay, miss? Ryu, I'm fine, thank you for your help. Ryu, there's no need to call me miss, it sounds strange, and it looks like I'm older. Me, laughing, I'm sorry, Ryu. You can call me Alexander. Having met Ryu, I started eating and finally understood why everyone praises the food in this restaurant. I can say one thing, the food here is really delicious. While I was enjoying the food and occasionally catching Ryu's fleeting glances, which made her blush and look away, I found it very charming. Another group of newcomers arrived, apparently from the Loki familia. To be continued. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 The Loki familia and the rowdy dog. While I was enjoying my meal, Loki's family arrived. Another pair of curious eyes began watching me, those of one of the newcomers. When I turned to see who was observing me, I met a pair of beautiful golden eyes belonging to Ace Wallenstein. Ace was a stunning and slender girl with long golden hair. She wore a white dress with blue lines and floral patterns, along with a blue skirt. Honestly, anime doesn't capture how beautiful she truly is. As I observed the newcomers, they noticed me too and couldn't figure out who this new person sitting alone in the restaurant was. Do you know this guy? Riveria asked Ace doubtfully. No, I don't. But he seems strong, although I can't tell what his strength is, Ace replied, shaking her head. Met someone familiar, Ace, Riveria, an Amazon from their group asked. It was Tiona. No, Tiona, we don't know him. But maybe Ace is interested in this newcomer, Riveria replied, continuing to sit at Loki's family table. That can't be. Eyes only loves me, right, Ace? Loki protested upon overhearing their conversation. After Loki caused a scene in the restaurant, I decided to take a break from my food and look their way again. Meeting Ace's gaze once more, I nodded slightly at her and resumed enjoying my meal. Loki's family was shocked by my actions. Loki started making a fuss again, but was quickly calmed down by Riveria's swift intervention. What else could you expect from the famous mother, Riveria? This elf girl who could calm down the noisy god was truly worthy of her title. While Loki continued to claim that no one would take Ace away from her, I finished my meal and realized I needed something sweet. There was still room in my stomach for dessert. I beckoned the cute elf girl, Ryu, and when she approached, our eyes met and she blushed. How adorable, I thought to myself as I asked if there was anything sweet I could order. She recommended apple pie and green tea, and I placed my order. After taking my order, she bid farewell and went to deliver it, still blushing. After Ryu left, the cat girl Chloe approached me, starting a conversation. How's the food in our restaurant, visitor Naya? Chloe playfully asked. Maybe let's not dwell on that awkward moment, I replied with an empty stare. Chuckling at my expense, Chloe introduced herself. Being a true gentleman, I decided to give my name as well. As we chatted and exchanged banter, Chloe continued to tease me, adding Naya to the end of each sentence, which embarrassed me. This was social death in a fantasy world. I began to think I might have dodged a bullet with my actions, but Chloe clearly didn't think so as she kept teasing me. She had beautiful emerald eyes, short black hair and ears and tail of the same color. Overcoming my embarrassment, I kept thinking about how to touch those cat ears and tail. Following my gaze, Chloe realized I was looking at her ears. Do you want to touch them? Chloe asked, a slight blush on her face. Shaking my head, I replied, I think it would be rude of me, even if you allowed it. And why is that? She asked, surprised. I think members of your race only allow their life partners to touch their ears and tail, I calmly replied. From what I remember in most books mentioning beast folk races, touching ears and tails is akin to proposing marriage. So, I thought it would be rude, even if you offered. After all, we've only just met. I know you only as a fictional character. But now it's different, you're a living person with your own thoughts and goals. Oh, I see, she responded, surprised by my answer and considering me a pleasant person. After that, our conversation flowed more smoothly. We started getting to know each other. She asked where I was from and why I came to Orario. I told her I came from the east, but after traveling for a long time, I heard about the dungeons and adventurers, so I decided to visit this city. After chatting a bit more, Ryu approached with my order, giving Chloe a stern look. Playfully sticking out her tongue, Chloe bid me farewell and went back to work. After saying goodbye to Chloe and thanking Ryu, I started eating my apple pie. Meanwhile, as I enjoyed my pie, Ace continued to watch me. She felt that I was a skilled swordsman but didn't know how to approach and inquire about my strength. As Ace pondered how to approach and learn about the strength of the person who had forgotten everything around and was enjoying pie, Loki's family noticed that she couldn't take her eyes off the new restaurant visitor. Riveria decided to inquire again if we were acquainted. Shaking her head, Ace replied that we weren't acquainted, but she thought the guy at that table was a strong swordsman. Riveria decided to check my magic to sense my strength and was slightly surprised by what her family members had noticed. They asked what she had noticed. Riveria replied that this person's magical signature was strange, as if veiled, and she couldn't make it out. She added that to conceal one's magical level, one must have amazing control over it. After her words, Loki became interested in me but was still unhappy that I had caught Ace's attention. One of the Amazon members of Loki's family also became interested because, from Ace's and Riveria's words, it was clear that I was a skilled swordsman and magic user. While Loki's family members reacted differently to my presence, one of them was displeased. He believed that a newcomer who hadn't even joined any family yet couldn't be taken seriously. Deciding to teach me a lesson and show that veteran adventurers were not to be trifled with, he stood up. When Bet stood up, he drew his family's attention. They understood that he was about to cause trouble again. Some family members shook their heads, some thought Bet was being foolish, while others watched with interest to see what I was capable of. Loki, with a slightly curious look, seemed interested. If I possessed the strength described by Ace and Riveria, she would consider how to invite me into her family. Bet, who had come to teach me a lesson and put me in my place to show that one shouldn't mess with veteran adventurers, approached the table. He forcefully slammed the table, knocking over the teacup and the pie, which fell to the floor. Before he could say anything, he heard, "You're quite a stupid mutt, aren't you?" After that, he received a blow that sent him flying through the hall, smashing tables. Bet flew out onto the street and lost consciousness. In first-person view, while I enjoyed my delicious pie and cup of tea like a true aristocrat, ignoring my surroundings, I sensed a bit of resentment from Loki's family, but I didn't pay attention, as sweet pie was more important than any strangers. As I savored the pie and contemplated ordering another, someone approached me and overturned my tea and knocked over my pie. Feeling a surge of anger, all I could say at that moment was, "You're quite a stupid mutt, aren't you?" After that, I used the simplest technique from Anos's arsenal, a snap of my fingers to create a shockwave, sending this dog on his first fantasy space program. After the snap, Bet went flying. I didn't want to kill him, it wasn't worth it. But I did feel sorry for the pie. Looking around, I noticed the astonished looks from Loki's family, exaggerated surprise from the restaurant waitresses, and a very angry glare from Mia's mother. I realized that, even though I was the Demon King from another world, I still didn't want to anger this woman. I decided to cast the Revid spell to restore the restaurant to its original state. Revid, a source magic spell that allows local time manipulation. After restoring the restaurant, there was a commotion from witnessing such magic. Loki's family members were most surprised. Their comrade was thrown with just a snap of fingers, but even more astonishing was that I was able to repair all the damage. Ignoring those around me, I was still upset about my pie. Members of Loki's family approached me and decided to start a conversation, presumably to apologize for their comrade's actions. "I offer my apologies on behalf of my family member for causing you such trouble," Finn said apologetically. "No worries. He's already received his due for his actions," I replied, still not taking my eyes off the fallen pie. "If you don't mind, you can join our table, and our family will treat you," thus making up for the inconvenience caused, Finn said, noticing I was still visibly upset about my pie. "Of course, I don't mind, as long as I'm not intruding and your family members don't object," I responded, waving to Ryu to settle the bill for the food I had eaten. After paying 400 valis for the food I consumed and apologizing to Ryu for the inconvenience caused, I heard her reply that it was no big deal, since I had fixed everything. After bidding farewell to Ryu, I asked her to put in a good word with Mia so I wouldn't be barred from enjoying delicious food. Approaching Loki's family table and sitting down, I took a seat next to the elf Riveria, who was staring at me intently. "My name is Finn Diem, and these are members of my family." Finn cleared his throat and began introducing his family members. He introduced a redhead woman who was his goddess, saying her name was Loki. Looking at her, I could understand why she and Hestia were constantly fighting. All I could say was, "You can stroke clothes on her chest." Seeing my gaze and apparently understanding what I was thinking, she slightly opened her eyes and gave me a wicked smile. Clearing my throat, I decided to listen further. Finn continued to introduce his family members, starting with a gnome named Gareth Landrock. Then he introduced the elf sitting next to me, saying her name was Riveria Elias Elf. After that, he introduced the girl with the blank face, Ace Wallenstein. Next, he introduced the Amazon sisters. One who glared at me was named Shinhiriat, and the other who smiled at me cheerfully was Tiona Hiriat. He also didn't forget to introduce the young elf who was looking at me cautiously, named Lefi Yavirides. Finally, he mentioned the name of the one I launched out of the restaurant, named Bet. After Finn introduced them all, it was my turn to introduce myself. Giving my name, I shared my story of coming from the Far East, traveling extensively, and upon hearing about adventurers and dungeons while traveling with a caravan, I decided to come to this city and become one of them. At that moment, the waitress brought me another apple pie, and without hesitation, I began to eat it. While I was busy enjoying the pie, other family members dragged unconscious Bet and seated him at the table. Riviera could no longer hold back and asked me about the magic I used. At that moment, Shin intervened, wanting to know how I snapped my fingers to launch Bet through the entire hall. Finding the most advantageous answer from my arsenal, I acted as appropriate in this situation. Spreading my arms, forming a rainbow in them, I said that it was magic. Other family members, waiting for my answer, at that moment spat out all the alcohol they were drinking. Loki, with her eyes slightly opened, watched me and asked the quite expected question in this situation. "Would you like to join my family?" Loki asked, with a slight smile on her face. All the family members awaited my answer. Even Ace, with her expressionless face, was quite interested. "I'm sorry, but I can't. I already have a god whose family I want to join," I replied, with a slightly apologetic tone. "Then can you tell me which god or goddess you want to join?" she asked, with an intrigued expression. Remembering Loki and Hestia's feud like cats and dogs, I decided not to be direct and wriggle out another way. "That's a secret. Every man should have one or two secrets to seem more mysterious," I answered, avoiding a situation where Loki could stir up a fuss. After spending some more time with Loki's family, chatting with them and listening to their stories, I realized it was time to leave to find Hestia. Saying goodbye to everyone, I mentioned that I would be glad to meet again. They responded in kind. Exiting Hostess of Fertility, I used a spell for local search and located Hestia, then set off on my way. To be continued. Chapter 5, Hestia, the Goddess of the Hearth, or How to Meet a Lowly Goddess. Leaving the Hostess of Fertility and using search magic to find the lowly goddess, I discovered that she was in a small, abandoned church on the outskirts of the city. Setting my goal, I headed towards the small church. I didn't even notice how the day flew by. It was already evening, and the streets of the city were filled with adventurers who had apparently just returned from the dungeon and decided to celebrate a successful raid. Some were having fun, others were sad. Walking through the evening streets of Orario, I observed many people and realized that this was not an anime world, but a real one. Here, people live their lives, they rejoice, they grieve, they go on adventures, they start families. They are all living people with their own lives. As I moved further away from the bustling streets, humming a melody that just popped into my head, I approached the church. Anticipating the meeting with the best goddess, Hestia, or as she's affectionately called, Bestia, I wondered if she would be afraid of me when she saw my race and my status. After all, the magic I possess doesn't even exist in this world. For example, magic that can influence time or resurrection magic. I hope it doesn't show up in my status. Lost in my own thoughts, I didn't notice that I had already reached my destination. Hesitating for just a moment, I decided to enter. Is anyone here? I called out as I entered the church and immediately heard a noise, as if someone was rushing. In an instant, I saw a black-haired rocket shoot out and stand before me so quickly that I was surprised. There, in front of me, stood the goddess Hestia, looking at me with curious eyes, trying to understand why I had come. In her beautiful blue eyes, there was confusion and a small glimmer of hope. She thought I had come to join her family. Did you come to join my family, stranger-kun? She asked hopefully, her eyes beginning to sparkle with anticipation. Well, I recently arrived in the city, and after visiting the guild, I was told that I need to be part of a god's family to be able to visit the dungeon. When I learned this, I asked the secretary for a registry of gods to understand which family would be worth joining. I replied to the goddess, who grew more excited with every word I said. She probably began to guess that I had come here to become part of her family. But why my family? Unlike other gods, I can't give a worthy blessing that would help enhance an adventurer's combat power, she said in a sad tone. It seems she had recently left Hephaestus and had already tried to invite someone to her family but was rejected. This sad look made me feel that I had to protect her and make her family powerful so she would never be sad again. There it was, my first goal in this world, to make Hestia's family powerful so she could be proud and boast to her fellow gods. When I was looking through the registry, I saw many gods and what blessings they give, but yours is the best for me. After all, there's nothing better than a place you can return to where you are always awaited. In this world, I don't have a place I could call home, and no people who would wait for me, I replied with a smile on my face. I let her know that her blessing was no less valuable than those of other gods, and only fools wouldn't understand that. Hearing the first part, Hestia was so excited that her pigtails started spinning, and I began to think she might take off and reach the realm of the gods on her own. But when she heard the second part, she became sad, and it was clear from her eyes that she was trying to find the right words to cheer me up. Don't be sad, stranger-kun. I'll be your family and help you become the best adventurer. I'll give you a home you can return to, she began to say, her pigtails still bouncing with her, trying to make me feel better. Thank you for trying to cheer me up, Hestia, but I'm not sad. Sooner or later, I'll find a place to call home. But thank you anyway, I said to her with a smile. And you don't need to call me stranger, it makes me feel uncomfortable when someone with your appearance calls me that. My name is Alexander Voldigode, or you can call me Alex, whatever suits you. After all, we're about to become family, I continued, not forgetting to introduce myself. When a girl who looks like Hestia calls you stranger, it sounds very strange. Then welcome to my family, Alex-kun. Now come on, I'll give you my blessing, Hestia said, pulling me into the church basement where her living quarters were. When we descended into the basement, she started trying to pull off my cloak and the shirt underneath. Hestia, stop! I shouted, and her hands immediately stopped trying to strip me of my upper clothes. Can you explain what this blessing you want to give me is, instead of trying to undress me right after bringing me to the basement? I asked, adjusting the clothes she had almost torn off. All right, and don't say such silly things, as if I'm some bad woman, Hestia pouted, her cheeks turning a bit red and puffing up like a hamster. The blessing that gods give their children is called falna. It's what allows adventurers to accumulate experience and become stronger. Once a family member receives falna, a family insignia appears on their back, and the god who bestowed it can display the status, allowing you to see how much stronger you've become. When an adventurer reaches a certain threshold in their status, they can level up. If you have more questions, ask them quickly and stop wasting time. I need to give you falna, and we need to celebrate because I finally have my first family member, Hestia said happily, her pigtails still spinning. I began to think that these pigtails had a life of their own, like an animal's tail. Then one last question, how does the falna of gods affect the status of a family member? I asked, because I wasn't sure about my theory. If I understand correctly, depending on the domain of the god, the family member receives a boost to the corresponding skills, and certain parts of the status increase faster. Hestia thought for a moment and replied, it all depends on the god who grants the falna. Take my friend Hephaestus, for example. If she grants Falna to a mortal, the skills needed for smithing will develop faster. Now do you understand? If you do, then take off your top, and I'll grant you Falna, Hestia said. It seemed she could no longer wait to have her first family member. As Hestia requested, I took off my top and lay down on the couch. If you could call it a couch, it was essentially a frame of boards with a mattress on top. As I lay there, I thought it might collapse under my weight, and that was before Hestia climbed on. While our main character lay on the couch with his back to Hestia, she climbed on it to perform the Falna granting ritual. The ritual is quite simple. The god granting the Falna needs to just drop their blood on the adventurer's back and recite the incantation to activate the ritual. And voila, you become a member of the god's family. While Alex fought off sleepiness, Hestia completed the ritual and decided to check the status of her new family member. When Hestia saw the status, she couldn't understand what she was seeing. At first, she thought the ritual had failed, but then she checked the other parts and realized it had worked. So why was there such an anomaly in her new family member's status? She couldn't figure it out, having never encountered anything like this before. Setting aside the part with the stats that weren't displayed, she decided to look at the other elements, and what she saw surprised and even scared her. She had never seen skills like these, even among the gods. And when she saw Alex's title, she was completely stunned, then jumped up and started shaking Alex, demanding explanations about his status, what these skills were, and what the title Demon King from another world meant. I woke up to Hestia shaking me, demanding answers and thrusting a piece of paper in my face. Seeing my blank look, she started explaining why she was acting this way, as the status displayed on the sheet was not what she expected to see. Taking the sheet from her, I decided to look at my status and understand why she was so worried. What I saw surprised me a bit. In the part where the numerical value of the stat points should be, there were no numbers, only letters, and in all the categories, it was marked as SSS. It seemed that this was the maximum the status could display. If I understood correctly, even if I advanced to level 2, my stats would remain at SSS rank. However, the status board could display my skills and even the proficiency levels of Yamato and Beowulf. In the title section, it was recorded as Demon King from another world, and so much for my secrecy. Deciding to tell Hestia a half-truth, I explained that I had once woken up in the forest without memories, and all I had with me was a sword and battle gauntlets. Summoning Beowulf, I continued the explanation, adding the element of awakening in the forest, further traveling, and arriving in Orario. After spending a few hours telling my story, I asked Hestia if the entire status needed to be provided or just the level and proof that I had become a member of her family. I didn't want the gods interfering with my enjoyment of adventures for now. Hestia assured me that my status was strictly confidential and that I didn't need to worry. With a laugh, I said that we now had a little secret. After laughing for a while longer, we calmed down and started sharing stories of our lives until we fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up on the broken couch with the feeling that someone was lying on top of me. To be continued. Chapter 6, officially an adventurer and information about the dungeon. Waking up the next day, quite early in the morning, I was slightly surprised that I hadn't slept longer. Feeling a weight on me, I was astonished to see Hestia drooling on me. Using simple magic to wipe off her drool, I gently stroked her silky hair and reflected on the previous day. Yesterday was full of events. So much happened in one day that it was astonishing. I died, met the one above all, who decided to give me a second chance in another world. Then I arrived in the city, walked around, met various people, including characters who, until yesterday, were considered fictional. I even got into a fight in a fantasy bar, well, more like threw an idiot out of the restaurant and enjoyed some delicious food in the company of beautiful girls. I met Loki. Now I understand why most authors like her. She's quite fun if she's not trying to deceive you or bother her family members. After lying for a while longer, I decided it was time to wake Hestia because we needed to go to the guild so I could register as an adventurer. Hestia, wake up, I said softly, gently nudging her to wake up. Just a few more minutes, she mumbled incoherently, trying to fall back asleep. Continuing to wake her, I mentioned that we needed to go to the guild, and at those words, her sleepiness vanished instantly. She got up immediately, no longer wanting to sleep. After washing up and getting dressed, we headed to the guild. When people say that women take a long time to get ready, it's not true. They get ready quickly if they really need to, so that claim can be considered a half-truth. The goddess and I stepped out onto the main street, where the first stalls were already set up, selling food and other items. I suggested to the lowly goddess that we grab a bite to eat before heading to the guild. From Hestia's face, it was clear she was torn between wanting to get to the guild quickly to boast about finding a family member and wanting to fill her stomach. While she was trying to decide, her stomach made the choice for her, letting out a loud growl that made her face turn red. Pretending not to hear those sounds, judging by her look, if I mentioned it, she would have bitten me instead of the street food. I headed to the nearest stall. It sold Jag American, and if I remember correctly from the canon, Hestia worked at this stall to earn extra money for their home, in addition to what Belle brought back from dungeon raids. Paying for 2 Jag Americans and a couple of drinks, the total came to 120 valis, which was quite cheap for such a tasty morning snack. We decided to eat near the stall and discuss a topic I had forgotten about yesterday due to having a fun and laughter-filled time with Hestia. Hestia, after I register at the guild, I need you to find out how much it would cost to buy the land near the church and restore it, I said, chewing my food and washing it down with lemonade. I need to know specifically how much it will cost because, according to information from Loki's family, the price of an ordinary house is about 800,000 valis. Hestia needs a big house to accommodate new family members in the future. Why do you need this? And why buy the land next to the church? Hestia asked, intrigued. The purchase of the land is to build a mansion, and the restoration of the church is to prepare for the construction of the house. Plus, it's for future family members so they have a place to stay when they join us. You don't think it will be just the two of us, do you? Although I wouldn't mind, we will need to recruit people for raids and guild missions. I'm just one person, I can't handle everything alone, I replied to her question. As Hestia listened to my answer and nodded, confirming that my point of view was correct, her face gradually turned red, and she mumbled something indistinctly. After listening to the end, she understood my point of view and said that after visiting the guild, she would go find out the details. I reminded her to take someone with her so she wouldn't be deceived. Hestia replied that she would take her friend Hephaestus, as Hephaestus is better at this, and since her family is one of the most in demand in Orario, no one would want to cheat her. After finishing breakfast, we headed to the guild. Hestia skipped along joyfully, eager to brag to her friend Hephaestus that she had found a strong child for her family. At the entrance to the guild. Upon reaching the guild, Hestia and I decided to go inside. Despite the early morning, the guild hall was already filling up with adventurers who had come to take a mission or get information. At one of the counters, I noticed the cute half-elf Inna, who was sorting through documents. Sensing someone looking at her, she looked up and noticed me. Seeing Inna looking at me, I waved to her, and she waved back. Before Hestia could start asking questions, I took her hand and led her to the counter. Good morning, Inna. I've come to register as an adventurer. I greeted her and explained why I had come so early in the morning. Good morning to you too, Alexander-san. I see you've also brought goddess Hestia. I'm glad you found a god who accepted you into their family, Inna replied with a polite smile. While we chatted a bit, Hestia began to lose patience, and her ponytails started to levitate. I was beginning to think she was about to go Super Saiyan. Noticing her impatience, I asked Inna for the adventurer registration form. After my words, Inna handed the form to Hestia, and she started filling it out with her help. While Hestia was filling out the form, I asked Inna if she would like to be my personal advisor. After a moment of thought, Inna agreed but warned me that she was a strict teacher and wouldn't let me slack off. I responded with a light laugh and said that I was a good student, as in my past life, I had already written 3 thesis papers by the age of 22. After filling out the form, Hestia handed it to Inna, who congratulated me on becoming an official adventurer. She then asked if I wanted to receive a starter kit for beginners. I declined and showed her my sword. Inna asked another question about the consultation whether I wanted to start now or the next day. She seemed to think that Hestia and I would go celebrate this event. I replied that I could start now since Hestia had things to do. Before entering a private room, I handed Hestia a pouch of money and a note with the items she needed to buy for the house. She didn't know how much money I had given her and looked at me with a hint of guilt, thinking that I was giving away my last money and that she, as the goddess of the hearth, couldn't take care of her only child. Noticing her look, I told her how much I had given her, and her blue eyes sparkled. She was likely already fantasizing about a luxurious bed and soft linens. Before she ran off shopping, I told her that if the cost of restoration was within the budget, she should immediately hire a crew to start repairing the church. Nodding like a chicken pecking at grain, she saluted and ran off with thoughts of a soft bed. Meanwhile, at Hephaestus's workshop. While our protagonist was seriously listening to a lecture about the dungeon, Hestia ran into Hephaestus's workshop, bursting in with a cry of joy. Hephaestus, listen, I finally found a child for my family. Hestia shouted joyfully as she entered the workshop. Hestia, how many times have I told you not to barge in while I'm working? Congratulations on finally finding your first child for your family. Hephaestus congratulated her best friend. But you didn't come here just to brag about your child. And let me tell you right away, I won't be making free weapons for your child, and I won't give a discount either, even if you're my best friend, she added, continuing to hammer at the metal. My child doesn't need your weapon, he has his own. Besides bragging about finding a strong child, I came to you with a request, Hestia replied, proudly puffing out her chest. Hephaestus put down her hammer and looked at Hestia with doubt. What kind of weapon did Hestia's child have that she would refuse a weapon crafted by Hephaestus, the god of blacksmithing? Putting this question aside, she decided to find out what Hestia's request was. With a wave of her hand, Hephaestus indicated that Hestia could continue. My child asked me to check the items on this list and to take someone with me so I wouldn't be cheated, Hestia said, handing over the paper and pouting, thinking that Alexkun considered her irresponsible. Hephaestus took the list, looked it over, and, raising her eyes to Hestia, understood why Hestia's child asked her to bring someone responsible. Hestia could indeed be cheated if she wasn't careful, and knowing her friend, she would definitely be deceived. Placing a hand on her forehead, Hephaestus began to think about whether to agree or not. Noticing that her best friend was about to refuse, Hestia did the only thing she could. She ran up to Hephaestus and started tugging on her arm, behaving like a child, pleading with her to go along so she wouldn't be cheated. Hephaestus, accustomed to Hestia's behavior, looked at her and sighed, deciding to help her friend after all. She said she would assist in this situation but wouldn't lend any money. Hestia pouted and mentioned that her child had already given her money for some items. With a raised eyebrow of doubt, Hephaestus asked how much money was given. Proudly puffing her chest, Hestia stated the amount and explained that her child had been saving up to buy a house in the future, but since becoming an adventurer, he decided to repair the place where they lived. Hephaestus, upon hearing this, noted that the child Hestia had found could be considered responsible, and she hoped that this child wouldn't spoil her. After changing into casual clothes, Hephaestus and Hestia headed to their first destination. After Hestia ran off to her friend, I followed Ina into the private consultation room. Once seated, Ina poured me some tea and asked what I wanted to know about the dungeon. I explained that I needed information on monsters from floors 1 to 18. Upon hearing this, Ina became annoyed and said that as a novice, it was too early for me to know all that information, I should at least reach level 2 first. Calmly, I clarified that I just needed the information and wasn't planning to go to those floors right away, though who could stop me? After some argument, Ina relented and asked me to swear that I wouldn't go to higher floors until I was stronger. Seeing her concerned and caring eyes, I could only agree, crossing my fingers behind my back. Once I returned from those floors, she would see that I was capable, and hopefully wouldn't worry so much. Ina then spent several hours explaining the dungeon's structure to me in detail. She covered everything thoroughly, which was almost putting me to sleep. Seeing my distraction, she asked me a question. I see you're bored, and you seem to have remembered everything. Can you tell me which monsters are on floors 1 to 5? She asked in the tone of a strict teacher. The monsters on floors 1 to 5 are kobolds, goblins, and underground lizards. Items that drop from them are kobold claws and goblin fangs, I replied to her question. Ina relaxed and continued to describe the dungeon's structure and what the floors looked like. Spending nearly the entire day gathering information, I was satisfied. Now I had a rough idea of which monsters to target to earn money faster for building the house. Realizing it was late, I told Ina I had to leave, or Hestia would worry. Checking the time, Ina realized it was time to go. She reminded me not to forget the information she provided, as it could save my life. I showed her my recording spell, which surprised her, and assured her that I would always have the information with me. Leaving the office, I noticed Hestia had just arrived. She entered the guild hall and immediately rushed over to share what she had learned today. Before she could start talking, I suggested discussing everything over dinner, and she agreed. We began to make our way out. After saying goodbye to Ina, we left the guild and headed to a place where we could eat well, of course, Mistress of Abundance. To be continued. Chapter 7 Future Plans and the First Visit to the Dungeon. After we left the guild, I noticed that Hestia was very excited. Her joy was so contagious that I couldn't help but smile. Seeing my gaze, Hestia blushed slightly, but her eyes shone with satisfaction from a successful day. After all, she had finally found a family member and was able to boast about it to her friend. As we walked through the lit-up evening streets of Orario, I decided to ask how her day had gone and why she was in such a good mood. Her answer surprised me a bit but brought a smile to my face. Hestia, what put you in such a good mood? I asked with a smile. After leaving Hephaestus, I was living in that rundown church and sleeping on that horrible couch, which caused back pain. I am a goddess and should sleep on a soft bed to preserve my beauty, Hestia replied with a wide smile, clearly excited about her new soft couch. Oh, my goddess traded me for a soft couch. Hestia, you're breaking my heart, I replied, clutching my heart and putting on a pitiful look with tears in my eyes. After my words, Hestia began to panic and tried to explain that the couch was not as important as the well-being of her family. She was talking so fast that I couldn't understand anything. Noticing her panicked state, I couldn't help but laugh. Seeing me laugh, Hestia got angry and clung to me like a monkey to a tree, shaking me. While Hestia was shaking me, I tried to figure out where such strength came from in such a small body, considering that almost 99% of her power is sealed. Calming the lowly goddess, I shifted Hestia onto my back, and we headed to the restaurant. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that Hestia was still pouting. I could only muster a crooked smile. After all, it's impossible to stay mad at such a kind goddess. As I carried the goddess on my back, we enjoyed an evening stroll through Orario. This walk could be considered a mini-date with my goddess. To savor the atmosphere of the evening fantasy world, I slowed my pace to fully immerse myself in it. Noticing that I had slowed down, Hestia said nothing and also enjoyed the walk with her new family member. But our beautiful atmosphere was interrupted by a sound coming from Hestia's stomach. It was so loud, like a whale calling for food. I couldn't help but notice it and looked at Hestia, who was hanging on my back. Her face turned as red as a ripe tomato. First, Hestia was embarrassed, then she became angry and started shaking me like a tree again out of embarrassment. After calming her down again, she climbed onto my shoulders and told me to hurry up. Onward, my noble steed, she chanted. Sighing, I decided to speed up because if she continued shaking me, I might actually get sick despite my sturdy build. Sometime later, having arrived at the Hostess of Fertility with a very hungry Hestia, I couldn't help but wonder if she had eaten anything at all since we went our separate ways. As we approached the entrance, Hestia skillfully slid off my shoulders, and we walked inside. We were greeted by one of the waitresses, Anya Frummel. Oh, it's you, the strange customer Naya. Anya pointed at me with her finger. Why do the waitresses here call me strange? I asked, raising an eyebrow. I was curious to hear her answer. If it's because I greeted them with Naya the first time I visited, it would be even more awkward than I thought. Well, I've never seen someone who's not even an adventurer throw one of Loki's kids across the restaurant and then fix everything like nothing happened, Anya replied, crossing her arms and nodding. Ahem. My name is Anya Naya, and I'll be serving your table tonight Naya. I see you need a table for two Naya, Anya continued after clearing her throat. From my memories of the anime, if I remember correctly, Anya was carefree, but it seems she behaves like a responsible worker on the job. Hello, Anya Naya. You probably already know my name, as others must have told you, I replied with a smile. My name is Anya, not Anya Naya. Anya began to protest. Well, that's what I'm saying, Anya Naya, I replied with a wide smile. We started arguing about her name, going back and forth for a while. While we were arguing, I noticed Hestia's confused look. After spending some time arguing, Anya Naya gave up, and I could say that the victory was mine. Admitting defeat, Anya stopped arguing and led us to our table with puffed cheeks. After we sat down at our table, Anya Naya handed us the menu and walked away with such heavy steps that I began to think she might break the floor. As Hestia and I placed our order, I noticed that Mamma Mia was watching me. Seeing my glance, she made a "I'm watching you" gesture with her hand. Noticing her stern look, I could only gulp and nod nervously at her gesture. Seeing my nod, she smiled and made a "order more" gesture. Shaking my head with a smile, I couldn't help but think what a strange woman she was. Noticing Hestia's frowning expression, I asked her what was wrong. How do you know the waitress is here? And why are they so friendly with you? And what was that fight with a member of that flat-chested Loki's familia about? She asked, narrowing her eyes at me. All I could do in this situation was to tell her what happened after I came here. After my explanation, Hestia started laughing, holding her stomach. When she stopped, she asked me to explain what happened with the member of Loki's familia. I told her how I launched him across the restaurant through the tables and then fixed everything I broke. Then I explained that they invited me to their table to apologize, and we ended up chatting, and Loki wanted to invite me to her familia. After hearing this, Hestia started raising a fuss, yelling that she wouldn't give me to that flat-chested goddess. With a smile, I reassured her that I wasn't going anywhere. Relaxing at my response, Hestia calmed down for a while. As we continued talking about our day, our food was ready, and it was brought to us by my favorite elf, Ryu. Placing the food on the table, I decided to greet her and start a conversation. I asked her how she was doing and if she was tired after a long day of work. Appreciating my concern, Ryu smiled and replied that her day was fine and she wasn't tired. She asked how I was doing. Well, I officially joined a familia and am now an adventurer, I replied with a smile. Well, congratulations. I hope you remember that there are many dangers in the dungeon, and you'll be careful not to get hurt, she said with eyes full of concern. Don't worry, Ryu. I'll make all the necessary preparations before going into the dungeon, and I won't go to the lower floors for now, I assured her so she wouldn't worry. You made the right decision to prepare before going into the dungeon because danger lurks around every corner, and you never know what awaits you. Even though there are records of monsters, the guild receives daily reports about what adventurers encounter, Ryu said seriously. After talking for a while longer, Ryu wished us a pleasant meal and went back to her work. Thanking her and starting to eat, Hestia and I dug into our meal. After a hearty dinner, after the meal, we ordered dessert and drinks, and I decided to start a conversation about what Hestia had learned about prices and other things on the list. Hestia, did you find out what I asked for this morning? I asked, sipping my tea. Yes, Hephaestus helped me a lot. I'll give you the note, and you can see for yourself, Hestia replied and started searching for the note while still eating her dessert. Receiving the note, I began to look at the prices of everything listed and couldn't help but frown at what I saw. The prices were a bit different from what I had imagined. If Apollo's mansion cost around 30 million valis, the restoration of the church would be about 300 to 350,000 valis. Buying the land next to the church and building a mansion would cost around 20 million valis. It's good that our church is on the outskirts of the city, and the land there is cheap and unclaimed, so the price for that land is quite low. And that's not counting the other little things needed for the house. After roughly calculating how much I would need to farm alone, I realized I would have to single-handedly defeat more than 20 raid bosses that appear once a week, and there's already a queue for them. Alternatively, I could search for unique materials and monsters. Sighing heavily, I decided to put this off for the future. Noticing my frown, Hestia began to worry and told me that I didn't need to overexert myself to earn such money and that she could still live in the rundown church. Laughing at her panic, I reassured her that she didn't need to worry, and I wouldn't overwork myself. Hestia, don't worry. I'm not frowning because of the prices, but because I was calculating how many monsters I need to defeat to earn that amount. I already have an idea of which monsters I'll be hunting, so don't worry. I'll be able to save up for our home in the near future, I said to calm her down. Hestia relaxed after my response. We finished our dessert and decided to head home. Paying for the meal and saying goodbye to everyone, we left the Hostess of Fertility and headed home. Once we got home, Hestia immediately collapsed into bed, instantly forgetting all her worries. Laughing at this goddess, I covered her with a blanket and decided to lie down on my shabby couch. As I was falling asleep, thoughts of quick ways to make money swirled in my head. I kept thinking until I drifted off. The next morning, waking up again next to a drooling Hestia, I gently laid her on the couch and went to get ready for the dungeon. Washing up, getting dressed, and leaving a note for Hestia, I grabbed my sword and headed to the tower. On my way to the tower, I noticed that many adventurers were heading to Babel Tower early in the morning. As I got closer to the tower, around which adventurers were already gathering, I looked up and thought that the tower was indeed enormous. That's what she said. Remembering an old joke, I decided to follow the other adventurers into the tower. Inside the tower, I was greeted by stone walls and a huge 10-meter wide hole in the center of the room, leading straight into the dungeon. The circular room was filled with numerous columns at equal intervals, and above was a beautiful azure sky painting, resembling a real sky. Gentle stairs spiraled around, leading into the dungeon. When I saw the entrance to the first floor of the dungeon, my first thought was, what a hole. Laughing at my joke, I approached the entrance and looked down to see how deep the stairs went. Seeing how far they extended, I pondered whether to descend the steps like a plebeian or choose an easier way, just jump. After thinking a bit more, I made my choice and to be continued. Chapter 8. Chapter 8, raiding the dungeon properly or speedrunning to the 10th floor. Having made his decision, Alex decided to jump down, as going down the steps was for plebeians. Only kings choose the short path, making a leap of faith into the abyss known as the dungeon. Gaining enough momentum, Alex ran towards the entrance to the first floor and made the leap of faith. While he was falling, he thought it was a pretty good experience of free falling. Seeing that the ground was approaching, he decided to do a skillful flip and make a perfect superhero landing. After landing, Alex even felt that in one of the Marvel universes, Deadpool shed a tear, started clapping, wiped a single tear from his mask, and said, "I'm so proud of this bastard, that was the best jump I've ever seen." Shaking off these silly thoughts, Alex stood up and looked around. He noticed the surrounding adventurers staring at him with wide eyes, not believing what they had just seen. "Did you see that too? That guy just fell down and landed in a weird pose," said one of the adventurers, rubbing his eyes and asking his friend. "Yeah, I saw that guy fall from above too," his friend replied with astonished eyes. Ignoring the adventurers who were whispering to each other, Alex decided to delve deeper into the first floor to test his abilities. Moving forward, he encountered solitary monsters, which he easily dispatched. Reaching a fork in the path, Alex thought he needed a secluded place where he could test his skills without any disturbances. After a brief consideration, he chose the left direction. Walking down the corridor, he noticed that the walls of the first floor were light blue with gray speckles if you looked closely. After some time, Alex stumbled upon a room where he found a group of 20 goblins. Just what I need for practice, Alex thought, entering the room and casting a spell that paralyzed all the goblins. "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you just yet. I'm just going to try some moves," Alex said, approaching the group of goblins that had fallen to the floor after the spell. In response, he heard only coarse growls. "It's rude to growl at someone who can kill you," Alex remarked, striking one of the goblins on the head. "Damn, I thought they'd turn to ash immediately, not splatter their blood everywhere. Now my boot is all bloody," Alex said, wiping his shoe and looking at the terrified goblins. "Now I can test some of my abilities, and you will be the first test subject," Alex said, pointing to one of the goblins. Grabbing one of them, Alex dragged it to the other end of the room so that his abilities wouldn't affect the other test subjects. While Alex was busy testing his abilities, let's return to the lowly goddess. Waking up from a deep sleep, Hestia rubbed her sleepy eyes and noticed that Alex was nowhere to be found. Her drowsy state immediately vanished, and she panicked, running through the rooms in search of Alex. Finally, she stumbled upon a note on the table. Deciding to read it, Hestia picked up the note and realized that Alex had left it. The note read as follows. "Dear Hestia, I went to the dungeon to check some things. I don't know when I'll be back, it could be after lunch or in the evening. I've left money for food on the table. Take it to buy something to eat and don't wait for me. I'll eat in the dungeon. Please don't spend all the money on snacks, eat normal food. After I return, we'll discuss the restoration of our home. P.S. Once again, don't spend the money only on snacks. I'm not a child to live on snacks," Hestia said, pouting at the note. After that, she decided to go buy herself breakfast and return home to wait for the delivery of her bed and sofa. Leaving, Hestia let out a cheerful laugh and couldn't wait for her new soft bed to arrive. Returning to Alex. While Alex dragged his green test subject to the other end of the room, he hummed a melody from his old world, pondering which ability to try first. Placing the paralyzed goblin near the wall, Alex stepped back and decided to start with the simple Greg spell, Greg, Flame. Weakest fire spell. It's a small fireball. After choosing and launching the small fireball at the goblin, it immediately turned to ash, leaving behind a fang and a small mana-filled crystal. "So this is what those crystals adventurers hunt for look like," Alex said, examining the crystal from different angles. Given its size, one could conclude that the lower the floor, the larger the crystal and the more mana it contains. He nodded, stroking his chin. "Now, let's test other abilities," Alex said, turning his head towards the other green test subjects. Approaching the goblins, Alex grabbed one of them and dragged it while humming the melody. Placing the goblin near the wall, Alex returned to his starting position and pondered which ability to try next. "What if?" Alex thought, devising another way to use the Greg spell. "What if I try to use Greg like Sukuna uses Divine Flame, change its shape, and make a bow? Then the range should increase, and the accuracy of the shot as well." After spending some time, he managed to change the shape of the fireball, making it resemble a bow with an arrow. Now, let's see how deadly this skill has become, Alex said, aiming at the goblin and releasing the arrow. The fiery arrow instantly reached the goblin, striking it. The goblin immediately turned to ashes, leaving loot and a hole in the wall. Noticing the hole after the spell hit, Alex decided to check how much damage the arrow had caused. Well, that's unexpected. Changing the shape of the fireball reduced the area of effect, but increased its penetrating power, range, and projectile speed, Alex said, peering into the hole and seeing how the arrow passed through several rooms, leaving through holes in them. Sometime later, testing magical skills from Anos's arsenal, Alex decided to test his weapons. Grabbing another green volunteer, he dragged him to a test wall. Returning to his position, Alex assumed a standard stance with his sword, unsheathed the blade, and made a light swipe towards the goblin. The strike instantly hit the goblin, turning it to ashes. Alex noticed that even a simple Yamato swipe had cut through the dungeon wall. Approaching where the strike left a gash in the wall, Alex touched it and concluded, such a clean cut. And judging by the mana flowing through the dungeon walls, it will take some time before the damage heals, Alex said, looking at the hole in the wall left by the sword. Now, let's test Beowulf and see how much damage a weak strike can do, Alex said, summoning Beowulf and dragging another goblin to the wall. Dragging the goblin to the wall, Alex took a combat stance for hand-to-hand combat. Now let's try one of Saitama's punches. Ordinary series, ordinary punch, Alex said, striking towards the goblin. After the strike, the goblin was thrown with such force that the wall behind it also collapsed. Well, that was stronger than I expected, Alex said, clenching and unclenching his fist, looking at the destroyed wall and the room behind it. Now I need to find a way to lift fallen crystals and materials from defeated monsters without collecting them one by one, Alex thought, recalling some characters and their abilities that he could mimic. What if I try to mimic Ruler's authority from solo leveling? After all, this skill allows using mana as an extension of the hand, which could be used to gather crystals and materials from monsters, Alex decided. Spending a couple of hours on trial and error mastering this skill, Alex finally managed to master it and was able to retrieve all remaining goblins with this ability. Now it's time to finish testing the skills and do what I loved back in my old world. Namely, let's speedrun through the dungeon aiming to reach the 10th floor as quickly as possible, Alex thought, getting up from the floor and eliminating the remaining goblins, collecting the crystals that fell from them. Sometime later, returning to the entrance of the first floor, Alex began to warm up lightly. Adventurers passing by looked at him strangely. Hey, look at what this guy is doing. What's this strange ritual at the entrance to the first floor, said a random adventurer to his friend. Who knows? Maybe it's his ritual before hunting. Everyone has their quirks, his friend shrugged. What about me? The first one asked. You like to have a drink before descending into the dungeon and say it makes hunting easier for you, his friend replied. The first one just grumbled and headed deeper into the first floor. After finishing his warm-up, Alex took a running stance. All right, let's go. Speedrunning through the dungeon, he said to himself and sprinted towards the first floor. Breaking through the floors, defeating monsters, and collecting crystals from them, Alex reached the 10th floor. He looked around to understand what this level was like. The walls were covered with brown moss, the ground was scattered with short grass. The light from the phosphorescent ceiling resembled sunlight, and occasional fog worsened visibility for ordinary adventurers. After a quick survey of the 10th floor, Alex decided to check the loot he had gathered during the run. Well, I can say for a first dungeon run, I gathered a decent harvest of crystals, he said, peering into his bag. Now I can go back and sell what I've collected to find out how much I earned from the first raid and which floor is best to start from, Alex thought, slinging the bag over his shoulder. Now I can use the spell Gatum to teleport back to the entrance of the first floor, Alex said, casting the spell. Gatum, a teleportation spell that connects 2 points in space. It can only teleport to places previously visited. The farther the magical power, the greater the distance that can be traveled. After teleporting to the first floor, Alex noticed there were no adventurers around, which was unusual since there were usually many at the entrance. Dismissing this detail from his mind, he headed to the guild to sell the crystals. At the guild entrance, approaching the guild, Alex headed straight to the counter to sell the gathered crystals. Not noticing his consultant, a half-elf, he sighed with relief, thinking he was lucky. Standing in line, Alex pondered how much he could earn from this raid. According to Loki's family members, an ordinary group of adventurers earns around 25,000 valis per run. Lost in thought, he didn't notice when it was his turn. Good day. Are you looking to sell what you've gathered in the dungeon? The girl behind the counter asked. Good day. Yes, I'd like to sell the crystals and materials I've collected, Alex replied, handing over the bag of crystals. I see, your hunt was successful today, the girl remarked, taking the bag and feeling its weight. While waiting for the girl to count the crystals and materials received, Alex estimated he had earned about 100,000 valis. Thank you for waiting. Here's the money you earned from the raid, the girl said, handing over the bag now filled with valis. Could you tell me how much I earned from this raid? Alex asked, not wanting to count the earnings himself. Of course. Taking into account the crystals and materials you collected from the monsters, you earned a total of 120,000 valis, the girl replied calmly. Thanking the girl at the counter, Alex decided to leave the guild, avoiding Anna who might start lecturing him on how newcomers should approach the dungeon. Exiting the guild, Alex headed towards an empty alley to use Gatum and instantly appear inside the church. Descending into the church basement, which served as the temporary residence of the Hestia family, Alex looked forward to boasting to Hestia about his first earnings from the raid. "Hestia, I'm home," Alex shouted, opening the door. Immediately, he was tackled by the dark-haired Rocket. Hestia began inspecting him for injuries. Assured there were none, she sighed deeply and spoke so quickly that even Eminem would be surprised. "Hestia, I can't understand what you're saying." "Slow down," Alex requested, trying to calm her. "I was saying, why didn't you wake me up when you were going into the dungeon?" Hestia replied, pouting. "You were sleeping so soundly that not even an explosion next to you would wake you up," Alex replied, hanging his cloak in the closet. "But you should still have woken me up." Hestia began to complain and shook Alex again. All right, stop shaking me. I promise next time I'll wake you up before I leave," Alex said, trying to appease the sulking goddess. "Now let's go eat. I'm a bit hungry and wouldn't mind a hearty dinner," Alex said, slinging Hestia over his shoulder and heading towards the exit. "No need to go anywhere, I've already brought dinner. We can eat at home," Hestia replied, hanging on his shoulder. "Great, no need to go anywhere," Alex replied, slightly disappointed that he wouldn't see any beautiful waitresses. "All right, let's go eat. All the food is already on the table," Hestia said and started dragging Alex towards the table. "Okay, let's go eat, and I'll also tell you how my dungeon run went," Alex said to the hyperactive goddess. To be continued. Chapter 9 Purchase of the church and meeting with Hephaestus. Sitting down at the table where Hestia had set up dinner, Alex helped her sit down and they began to eat. They ate slowly, savoring the food. Alex noticed that Hestia was in a very good mood and decided to ask his little goddess what she was so happy about. "My new bed has arrived, and I've already tried it out. Also, my future family captain successfully completed his first raid in the dungeon." Hestia proudly puffed out her chest, boasting about her child's achievements and successes. "So, while I was busy in the dungeon, all you did was eat and sleep?" Alex raised an eyebrow. "I'm the goddess of the hearth, and I must take care of the home." "From your words, I sound like a lazy goddess," Hestia retorted, pouting. Okay, you're not a lazy goddess, but a caretaker of the home," Alex agreed, sighing. After finishing their dinner, they moved from the table to the new couch, where Alex could tell Hestia about his first day in the dungeon. "Well, come on, don't hold back, tell me how your day went in the dungeon," Hestia asked, bouncing in place. "I can say that the day turned out to be more productive than I expected. The amount I earned proves that I'll be able to gather enough money quickly to build a house," Alex replied, pouring tea. "And how much Valis did you earn? Tell me quickly," Hestia said, grabbing Alex and shaking him again. "Please, stop shaking me, you'll spill my tea," Alex said, trying to stop the goddess. Okay, I'll tell you. No need to get upset. I earned 120,000 Valis in one go," Alex replied. "Wow, you earned that much on your first dungeon dive? I knew my captain is capable of a lot," Hestia said with shining eyes, giggling foolishly. Noticing that his goddess was behaving strangely, Alex decided to ask why she was giggling so foolishly. "I'm not acting silly, I'm just eagerly waiting for the opportunity to brag to the other gods that I have such a strong captain," Hestia said with such pride as if she had achieved it herself. Okay, then you can brag as much as you want, I'll support you in that," Alex replied. "Hestia, don't forget that we need to go to the administration tomorrow to buy this church. We're living here illegally. How can a family become better if they don't even have their own home?" Alex reminded her. "I know, there's no need to remind me that my family has no home," Hestia replied, her cheeks puffed up like a hamster's. "No need to pout. Tomorrow we'll buy this church, and we'll have our own home. So let's wash up and get some sleep. We have a lot to do tomorrow," Alex said, poking her puffed cheeks, which made a pfff sound. "Stop treating me like a child. I'm already an adult goddess and can decide when to go to sleep," Hestia began to object. Yes, as you say, my little goddess. Now let's go wash up," Alex replied, putting Hestia on his shoulder and carrying her to the bathroom. After Alex helped his goddess wash up, he put her to bed and settled himself on the new couch. Lying down on it, he thought, "I could sleep on this forever." Those were his last thoughts before he fell asleep. In the morning, waking up early, Alex opened his eyes and saw Hestia sleeping with a silly smile, drooling on his body. He wondered how Hestia managed to sneak into his bed without waking him. Shaking his head to clear unnecessary thoughts, he decided to start waking the sleepy goddess. "Hestia, wake up, we have things to do today. I hope you haven't forgotten," Alex said, gently shaking the sleeping goddess. All right, I'm getting up. You know, girls need a long sleep to stay beautiful," Hestia sleepily murmured, getting up. "You're beautiful already, even in the morning. Now get off me and go wash up," Alex said, carefully removing Hestia from himself and placing her on the floor. "How can you say such things to an innocent lady so early in the morning?" blushed Hestia, and she hurried off to the bathroom. "She's so cute," thought Alex. "Now I need to get up myself and prepare for today's busy day." He got off the couch and headed to the bathroom, preparing for the day ahead. Sometime later, exiting the church, Alex and Hestia headed towards the administration office. On the way, they made sure to buy breakfast so they wouldn't have to deal with business on an empty stomach. As they walked, Alex reminded Hestia of their plans for the day so she would be prepared for an active day. Hestia, you understand that we'll be walking a lot today, so there's no need to start acting up right away. Our plan for today is to buy the land where the church stands, then go to the workshop to hire people to repair it, so it doesn't collapse on us one day. After that, we'll need to visit the shopping street to buy everyday items. Alex explained his plans to the sleepy goddess. I won't act up. If I get tired, you can just carry me, Hestia confidently replied. I don't mind carrying you. Just letting you know it's going to be a busy day, Alex said, preemptively warning Hestia about what to expect. Sometime later, arriving at the administration office, Alex and Hestia noticed a small queue. Alex sighed, realizing they would have to wait in line again. With no other choice, he gently pulled Hestia to take their place in line. While Alex was lost in thoughts about how much this rundown church might cost, their turn came up. Good day. How may I help you? The secretary asked, looking curiously at the duo consisting of a man and a goddess. Good day. We're here to purchase the dilapidated church on the outskirts of the city and find out its price. If the price suits us, we'll buy it immediately, Alex calmly replied, making their purpose clear. The church on the outskirts, you say, the secretary clarified. That's correct, the half-ruined church, Alex confirmed. May I ask what you intend to do with this dilapidated church? The secretary inquired again. My goddess wishes to buy this church to repair it and turn it into a home for her family, Alex answered, stroking Hestia's head, causing her to squint happily like a satisfied cat. Then please wait a couple of minutes while I retrieve the records and can give you the price for this property, the secretary succinctly replied, getting up and heading to fetch the documents. While the secretary searched for the documents, Alex played with Hestia's hair, and she looked around like a curious child, which Alex couldn't help but notice. Is something catching your interest, Hestia? Alex asked his little goddess. And nothing catches my interest. It's just my first time in a place like this, and I'm just curious, Hestia replied slightly excitedly. Just as Alex was about to ask Hestia a few more questions, the secretary returned with the documents. I've found the documents for this church, and its price is 200,000 valis, the secretary said, placing the documents on the desk. Of course, we're prepared to buy it for that price. What documents do we need to fill out to ensure the land and the church on it become our family's property? Alex asked, unfazed by the price. You'll need to fill out these documents to transfer ownership of the land and the church, the secretary said, handing over the paperwork. Passing the form to Hestia to fill out, Alex retrieved the money to pay for the purchase up front. Thank you for your purchase. Here are your property documents, the secretary said, handing the documents to Alex. Tucking the documents into his coat, Alex and Hestia left the administration office and headed towards the construction workshop. At the construction workshop, entering the workshop, Alex and Hestia began searching for someone who could help repair the church and make it suitable for living. After a while, they found the foreman who invited them into his office to discuss the details. How can I assist a man and a god who've come to my workshop? The foreman asked. We're here to hire a team of workers to repair a dilapidated church and make it livable, Alex explained. We have plenty of capable guys, but first, I'd like to see the church myself to assess the scope of work and cost, the foreman calmly replied. Using projection magic, Alex showed how the church looked from the outside and inside. The foreman pondered for a moment and began jotting something down in his notepad. After a couple of minutes, he handed a sheet to Alex. This is the initial estimate for the repairs and making the building habitable. If you want any changes, the price will adjust based on the materials you choose to use, the foreman said, passing over the price sheet. Taking the sheet, Alex saw that the price amounted to 300,000 valis, as Hestia had mentioned. The price suits us. If there are any changes needed, it's best to consult my goddess, she knows better what she wants, Alex replied, drawing the foreman's attention to Hestia. Hestia began explaining what she wanted to change and emphasizing the need for high-quality materials. As she spoke, the foreman noted down all her ideas to finalize the repair cost. After the final calculations, the foreman handed over another sheet, and the price had increased by 150,000 valis. After discussing final details, including the down payment and the start of the church renovation work, the foreman clarified. To begin with, we'll need to procure materials and assemble the work crew, so we'll start the work next week. If possible, please deposit half of the down payment now so my team can start purchasing materials. Handing over the down payment, Alex and Hestia bid farewell to the foreman and headed to the trading street to buy everyday items. Upon arriving at the trading street, Alex and Hestia wandered among shops and street stalls, browsing items needed for their home. Alex noticed that Hestia was already feeling tired. Hestia, we also need to thank your friend Hephaestus for her help in finding prices for all the necessary items, Alex said. I understand she needs to be thanked, but I'm not sure what gift she would accept, Hestia replied thoughtfully, stroking her chin like a true sage. I think I've figured out what we can buy that Hephaestus won't refuse, Hestia exclaimed suddenly, brightening up. And what would that be? Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. A cake? Let's buy a cake and visit her to express our gratitude, Hestia declared, as if she had just found a second wind. You just want to eat something sweet, and that's why you chose a cake, Alex chuckled, squinting at his goddess. These are minor details. Now, onward to the cake, my faithful steed, Hestia replied, climbing onto Alex's shoulders and directing him towards the pastry shop. As you command, my little goddess, Alex sighed, grabbing the bags and heading towards the pastry shop. After buying the cake chosen by Hestia, they made their way towards the workshop of the goddess Hephaestus. Upon arriving at Hephaestus's workshop, we entered inside. Before I could knock, Hestia burst in with a shout. Hephaestus, I've come to thank you for your help and brought a cake. Hestia cried out, rushing into the workshop. Hestia, how many times have I told you not to barge into my workshop? And I've also told you there's no need to thank me for such help, Hephaestus replied calmly, setting her hammer down on the anvil. Sighing at her goddess's actions, I entered the workshop and noticed a beautiful woman with crimson eyes and a bandage over one eye, which she kept hidden. Her crimson hair flowed down to her slender waist, and her sharp features highlighted her beauty. Noticing me, a newcomer, Hephaestus understood that I was a new member of her friend Hestia's family. Observing me carefully, she wanted to discern whether I was trying to take advantage of the carefree Hestia. In her long life, Hephaestus had seen many hypocritical men and women who approached her with specific intentions. The first group desired her body and skills, while the second wanted to use her to create jewelry. But anyone who caught sight of her cursed eye fled immediately upon seeing it. Only Hestia wasn't afraid of it and was always there to save her from loneliness. Therefore, she wanted to understand who this person was that Hestia had brought into their family. I apologize for the intrusion and for my goddess's actions, I said apologetically as I entered the workshop. It's all right, I'm used to her antics. She lived with me for some time, and we knew each other back in the realm of the gods, Hephaestus replied, assessing my behavior. Since you've come, let's go to my personal room, which is here in the workshop. I often stay late, so I sometimes remain here, Hephaestus said, gesturing for me to follow her. Following Hephaestus to her private room, we sat down at the table. Hephaestus went to get the tea set to brew tea. I placed the bags of purchases in the corner and sat at the table, while Hestia helped Hephaestus set out plates and cups. After slicing the cake and pouring the tea, Hephaestus and Hestia began reminiscing about the times they were in the divine realm. I listened to their conversation, sipping tea and occasionally glancing at the bandage over Hephaestus's eye. Noticing my gaze, she decided to ask, "Are you curious about the bandage over my eye?" Hephaestus asked, lightly covering the bandage with her hand. "I am indeed curious about what's under the bandage. But if you're uncomfortable talking about it, you don't have to." "I don't want to make things awkward for Hestia's friend," I replied, indicating that she didn't have to share if she didn't want to. "It's just a very complicated matter, and it's not easy for me to talk about it," Hephaestus said, remembering what she had been through because of her eye. "I understand it could be a sensitive topic, but perhaps I can help you resolve this issue," I said calmly, trying to reassure Hephaestus. "That's right, Hephi. Alex is super duper strong. He can help solve your problem," Hestia chimed in, remembering that I could help her friend. And trusting her friend's words, Hephaestus decided to remove the bandage from her eye to see my reaction and whether I would be scared. Seeing that Hephaestus had removed the bandage, I decided to take a closer look at her eye, as it wasn't explained in the anime. Starting to examine the eye, Alex noticed roughened skin around it that looked dead. The eye itself was dark and shimmered with strange colors. Deciding to approach closer, Alex wanted to understand whether this was a curse or something else. Seeing Alex trying to get closer, Hephaestus panicked and tried to prevent him from coming closer. Seeing her panic, Alex decided to calm her down. "Hephaestus, there's no need to worry. I want to come closer to understand what's exactly going on with your eye and ask a couple of questions," Alex said calmly to reassure the goddess. "All right, just be careful," Hephaestus replied nervously. "Then, Hephaestus, can you tell me if you were born with this eye or if it became like this over time?" Alex asked, examining the eye and realizing it was a powerful curse. "I was born with this eye, it just looked different before, but it changed over time," Hephaestus replied, keeping her gaze serious as Alex examined her eye. "As I looked at it, I found a few ways to rid you of this curse. I can list them, and you can decide which one to choose," Alex said, raising his hand. "Then you can list these solutions," Hephaestus replied, not entirely believing him. After all the healing gods couldn't solve her problem, let alone a mortal she had just met. But she decided to hear him out. "I have 3 options. First, transfer it to another. Second, disperse the curse one by one because the curse on your eye isn't singular but a whole combination intertwined like a snake's nest, strengthening each other. And the last option, I'll simply separate the curse from you and burn it." Alex began listing, raising fingers on his hand. "I'm against the first option because I don't want anyone to suffer as I have." "What about the second option, can you explain more? And as for the third, what does separate the curse mean?" Hephaestus responded to the options listed. "The curse on your eye isn't a single curse but a complex combination, intertwined like a nest of snakes, strengthening each other. As for the third option, it's the simplest. I'll use my sword to separate the curse from you and then burn it." Alex answered the goddess's question. "What sword is capable of such a thing? And I didn't see you come here with a sword," Hephaestus said suspiciously, looking around to see if Alex had brought a sword with him. "This sword, named Yamato, is part of me, so it's always with me," Alex said, summoning Yamato and showing it to Hephaestus. "Let me see this sword that can separate a curse from a god," Hephaestus said, snatching the sword from Alex's hands. Sure, take it, but only if you can draw this sword, Alex chuckled, handing Yamato to the goddess. Taking the sword in her hands, Hephaestus first examined it from all sides, then tried to draw the blade from its sheath, but she couldn't. After a couple more attempts, she decided to return it to Alex. What kind of sword is this? Even I, the goddess of blacksmithing, can't draw it from its sheath. Hephaestus asked, beginning to doubt her own divinity. Haha, that's a little secret I won't reveal to you just yet, Hephaestus. We need to get to know each other better before sharing such secrets, Alex replied with a laugh, taking the sword back. So, Hephaestus, have you decided which way we'll solve your little problem? Alex asked. What do you mean little problem? This problem has haunted me my entire life. And how can this sword possibly help solve it? Hephaestus began to shout, but calmed down towards the end and asked a question. This sword can easily solve your problem, specifically like this, Alex replied. He drew the sword from its sheath and made a gentle swing towards Hephaestus, separating the curse from her and immediately burning it, using the spell Ei Shield to heal the damaged eye and the surrounding skin. Ei Shield is the most powerful healing spell. It fully heals multiple targets, including lost limbs. Not having time to react, Hephaestus felt warmth on her eye and decided to touch it, no longer feeling the familiar roughened skin that had been there for so long. Hope flickered in her eyes that the problem that had plagued her since birth might finally be solved. Hestia never doubted that Alex could help her friend, quietly observing all this time and awaiting her choice. Noticing the changes in her friend's eye, Hestia began to joyfully jump on her chair. She immediately stood up and rushed for a small mirror so Hephaestus could see the changes. But Hephaestus hesitated to look into the mirror, and Hestia reassured her that her problem had already been solved. Finally gathering her strength, Hephaestus took the mirror and decided to look at her eye. She didn't see the ugly skin and curse that surrounded it, only a single ruby eye with flames burning inside. Hephaestus checked it several times, not believing her eyes, and couldn't hold back her tears. Alex decided to approach and calm down Hephaestus, who was crying but smiling. Spending some time comforting her, Hephaestus wiped away her tears and hugged Alex tightly, thanking him for his help. I'm really grateful to you, Alex. I don't even know how to thank you, Hephaestus said, still holding him in her embrace. No need to thank me. If Hestia considers you family, then you're family to me too, Alex replied with a smile, enjoying her embrace. I still feel like I owe you thanks. You have no idea how much you've done for me, Hephaestus said, burying her head in his shoulder. I've already said, there's no need. Just your embrace is enough for me, especially from such a beautiful goddess, Alex replied, still smiling. Seeing that this couple continued to hug and didn't seem willing to let go, Hestia decided to intervene and forcefully separate them. Hephaestus, you may be my best friend and I consider you family, but Alex is mine, Hestia said, starting to growl at Hephaestus, who blushed bright red. Hestia, I'm not going anywhere. Hephaestus was just very emotional, considering her problem has finally been resolved, Alex said, patting Hestia on the head. Humph, Hestia snorted, folding her arms across her chest and turning away. And Hephaestus, you don't need to thank me. A beautiful girl's hug is the best thanks, Alex said, raising a thumbs up towards Hephaestus. After his words, Hephaestus blushed to the point where her face matched her hair color. Spending some more time in Hephaestus's company, Alex and Hestia decided to head home. Before leaving, Hephaestus said they could visit more often, and she would definitely thank Alex in the future. After bidding farewell to Hephaestus, they headed home in good spirits. Hestia was pleased that her friend had been healed, and Alex was glad to have scored a few points with Hephaestus. To be continued. Chapter 10, Back into the dungeon, or how to one-shot a raid boss. That same evening, after Hestia and Alex left Hephaestus's workshop, they slowly made their way towards the church, which now officially belonged to them. As they walked, Alex noticed that Hestia kept glancing at him, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't bring herself to do so. He decided to take the initiative. Hestia, if you have something to say, just say it. No need to be shy. I'll answer to the best of my ability, Alex said, looking at his little goddess. I just wanted to say thank you again. You really don't understand how much you've done for Hephaestus. This curse haunted her all her life, and she suffered a lot because of it, Hestia said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. I've already told you, Hestia, there's no need to thank me. This curse was just a small problem for me, and solving it was quite simple. There are many ways to lift such a curse, but I came up with the easiest ones I could remember at the time, Alex said, handing Hestia a handkerchief so she could wipe her tears. If it was such a small problem, why couldn't all the healer gods deal with the curse? Hestia asked, wiping her tears. Look, Hestia, every living being has a core, and each one is unique. It's what makes you, you. The same goes for gods, they just have a divine core, Alex began to explain, handing Hestia the bags to demonstrate. Raising one hand, he made a fist and showed a circle. If this circle is Hephaestus's core, the curse latched onto it like a leech, feeding off it and growing stronger. Hephaestus said her eye used to be different, and over time the skin around the eye started to toughen. That's all because the curse was getting stronger, feeding off Hephaestus's powers, Alex continued, wrapping his other hand around the fist to show how the curse entwined around the core. But you didn't explain why the healer gods couldn't lift the curse, Hestia said, stomping her feet in frustration. Hestia, I haven't finished yet. Be patient, Alex said, tapping her forehead with his finger. Ahem. The healer gods couldn't lift this curse because it wasn't just one curse. There were many, and they depended on each other, strengthening and protecting each other. To dispel this whole knot, you had to find the weakest one and slowly remove the rest. Because if you didn't remove them all at once, the remaining ones would get stronger, absorbing the power of the ones that were removed. And by the time they realized what they had done, the curse would have already fused with Hephaestus's core, and no one would be able to remove it without destroying the core, Alex explained. I get that you're super duper strong and all, but how did you so easily remove the curse? I still can't understand how you used a sword to separate a curse that had been with Hephaestus for years, Hestia said, looking at Alex suspiciously. The Yamato sword can separate anything from space to the soul. And there's still a lot you don't know about me, my little goddess, Alex said, roughly patting Hestia's head and taking the shopping bags. Whatever, Hestia huffed, striding ahead. Laughing at this cute goddess, Alex followed her to their home. This is all the author's imagination. Don't pay it any mind. You might have your own theories about this curse, and you can propose them. The next morning, upon waking up, the first thing Alex did was gently remove the sleeping, drooling Hestia from his side and place her on the couch. Smiling, he got ready and decided to let Hestia know he was heading to the dungeon. Hestia, I'm going to the dungeon, Alex said softly, nudging the still sleeping Hestia. Was Hestia's only response before she turned over onto her other side. Shaking his head, Alex decided not to disturb the sleeping goddess any further and headed toward Babel. On his way, he thought he could get breakfast at the Hostess of Fertility and turned toward the restaurant. As he approached, Alex noticed Anya sweeping the entrance. He decided to greet her before going inside. Good morning, Anyanian. I see you're hard at work early, Alex said in a cheerful tone as he approached. Alex Nian? Stop calling me Anyanian, my name is Anyanian. Anya began to shout. Well, that's what I said, Anyanian, Alex replied, holding back his laughter. After spending a few more minutes bantering with Anya, Alex decided to go inside, where he found the other waitresses preparing the dining area for the day. Good morning, everyone, Alex greeted as he entered. You came so early in the morning to see me? How embarrassing, Seer said, rushing over and placing her hands on her cheeks as she began to blush. Before he could respond, Ryuo came over and grabbed Seer by the collar, pulling her back to work. Sorry for her behavior, Ryuo apologized on Seer's behalf. It's all right. I'm glad she's so cheerful this early, Alex replied with a broad smile. So, why did you come here so early? Was it just to see the girls? Ryuo asked, looking directly into Alex's eyes. Ahem. I came to see if I could buy breakfast to take with me to the dungeon. And, of course, to see all of you again, Alex said, coughing awkwardly and glancing away. Well, I understand. I'll go get Mamma Mia. Follow me, Ryuo said, blushing slightly as she asked Alex to follow her. Mamma Mia, we have a customer with a question. Can you come out? Ryuo said, approaching the kitchen. Who's here so early in the morning? Mia said as she walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands. Oh, it's you, rascal. What do you want so early, and don't say you came to ogle my staff. Ahem. I came to see if I could buy breakfast to take to the dungeon, Alex said awkwardly, clearing his throat. Breakfast, you say? Let's see what we can do, Mia said, stroking her chin as she headed back to the kitchen. While Alex waited for Mia, he watched the waitresses working hard from early in the morning. Before he could fully enjoy the view, Mia returned and placed a box of food in front of him. Now give me 200 valis and get to your dungeon, Mia said gruffly. Thank you for your service and have a productive day, Alex said, handing over the money. After saying goodbye to everyone, he headed towards Babel, near Babylon. Approaching Babylon, Alex was lost in his thoughts and paid no attention to the adventurers surrounding him, whispering among themselves. Hey, isn't that the newbie who jumped down and then tore through 10 floors on his first day? Asked a random adventurer, tugging on his friend's sleeve. Yeah, that's him. Valen was bragging up a storm at the bar about seeing this guy who jumped down and landed in some weird pose, replied his friend, recalling the rumors he heard at the bar. I somehow don't believe there's such a capable newbie, he added skeptically. Well, you could go check it out and risk looking like a fool, but count me out. Plenty of people saw him tearing through those floors at full speed, retorted his friend, reminding him it wasn't just hearsay but something witnessed by many. Hey, I may be old, but I'm not stupid. I'm not going to verify it just because I don't believe it, he replied, heading into the dungeon. Suit yourself. Now let's go kill a couple of monsters to earn some drinks, maybe hit up the red light district later, his friend replied, fantasizing about how he'd spend his evening. Alex continued walking, lost in his thoughts, oblivious to the people passing by. He didn't notice a small assistant sitting near the fountain, listening to the whispers and watching Alex with keen interest, pondering what he had just learned. And of course, to the author as well. Inside the tower, lost in his thoughts, Alex didn't even notice as he approached the hole leading to the first floor of the dungeon. He continued pondering whether to attempt a new speedrun or resume from the floor where he left off. Landing on the first floor with such force that the floor cracked beneath him, he ignored the adventurers who stared at him with frightened eyes. Alex clenched his fist and made a decision. He would continue from the 10th floor and, if lucky, face off against the monster racks. Hey, isn't that him? One adventurer asked another. Yeah, that's the one. "We better move ahead or he'll start breaking through to the 10th floor again, and we won't get any loot," replied the other, hurrying to avoid having their loot stolen. Alex entered an empty room on the first floor to use a teleportation spell and instantly reached the 10th floor. After teleporting, he took a deep breath and decided to progress towards the 17th floor, hoping to encounter the monster Rex. What if I try to turn mana into swords that I can launch at enemies? After all, magic is only limited by your imagination, Alex thought as he ventured deeper into the 10th floor. As he walked, he experimented with turning mana into a sword that he could launch at enemies. Moving forward, he managed to form a mana sword and launched it at the first enemy he encountered, an orc. The sword flew with such force that upon impact, it pinned the orc to the wall. Haha, it actually worked? Just need to dial back the force a bit so it doesn't blow enemies away, and adjust the penetration power, Alex mused, launching another sword at a different monster. Reaching the 15th floor, inhabited by minotaurs, he decided to try combining the Gatum spell with the mana sword. Virgil could thus be drawn to enemies. If successful, Alex would gain the Heroician skill in the magic world. After several attempts, he succeeded in imbuing the mana sword with the Gatum spell. Finding a lone minotaur, Alex launched the mana sword, hitting its mark. After a flash, Alex found himself next to the minotaur and immediately beheaded it. Alright, that worked. Now, what if I try a reverse Gatum to attract the monster instead of me? Alex pondered. Finding another test subject, he launched the mana sword. Upon impact, there was a flash, and only the minotaur's torso fell to Alex's feet, turning to ashes. So that's how it works. Attraction uses more mana, considering the distance, weight, and volume of the object you want to attract. Now I know, Alex reflected, stroking his chin. After several attempts and a couple of test subjects, he finally mastered this skill. Well, that was tougher than I thought. Besides distance, weight, and volume of the object you want to attract, the magic itself in this area matters too. After 10 attempts and summoning various parts of monster bodies, I finally got the hang of it. Now, onward to raid the boss, Alex thought proudly, and he headed to the 17th floor towards the raid boss room. On the 17th floor in the raid boss room. Arriving at the boss room, Alex noticed that the boss had not yet appeared. Surveying the wall where magic was concentrated, he realized that the monster Rex would soon emerge. Making the most reasonable decision in this situation, he decided to eat. Creating a stone throne with magic and sitting down, Alex took out his food and began eating, forgetting everything else. Meanwhile, a large group of adventurers approached the 17th floor. "Hey, Captain, let's hurry up. If we don't move fast, the monster Rex will appear and delay our raid progress," a cheerful voice spoke up. "No need to worry. We're just in time to avoid any delay in the raid," replied the captain calmly, indicating they still had time. "If the monster Rex shows up, I'll deal with it quickly," retorted a haughty voice. "Bet, you haven't learned from last time when your arrogance got you in trouble," said the cheerful voice, prompting laughter from everyone. "Shut up, Tiona. I just wasn't ready in that situation," Bet arrogantly replied. "Yeah, sure, great warrior Bet," Tiona said in a tone that sparked another wave of laughter. "Quiet down, everyone. We're approaching the boss room, stay alert," the captain warned the group. "Captain, look, someone's sitting in the boss room, and it looks like the boss will appear soon," whispered one of the group members. Everyone noticed the person sitting on a stone throne, enjoying their food, clearly unconcerned that the monster Rex was already beginning to regenerate and emerge from the wall. Returning to Alex, who was enjoying his meal in the dungeon. While eating, Alex noticed the mana concentration on the wall reaching its peak, and Goliath had already begun to emerge. Placing the food box in his backpack and destroying the throne he sat on, Alex summoned Beowulf and assumed a combat stance, watching the approaching Goliath. Goliath stood about 7 meters tall, with a muscular body and grayish skin. Spotting Alex, Goliath moved towards him. Alex's first thought was that he needed the soundtrack from Attack on Titan. Pushing away unnecessary thoughts, he prepared for an uppercut stance as Goliath approached. Alex was eager, preparing to perform one of Virgil's famous combo strikes. When Goliath entered striking range, Alex delivered a devastating uppercut, underestimating its force. The uppercut literally blew off the entire top part of Goliath, punching a huge hole in the ceiling, revealing the 16th floor. Alex snapped out of it only after the monster's enormous crystal fell in front of him. He stared at it blankly, doubting his own reality. This continued until he heard a voice shouting towards him. "That was so cool," yelled the voice approaching him. Turning towards the voice, Alex noticed a group of people. To be continued. Chapter 11, Loki family and the malevolent half-elf Inna. Snapping out of his thoughts, Alex noticed a voice from the side and saw the approaching figure of an Amazoness. It was Tiona. Ignoring Tiona, who was running towards him, Alex went back to his thoughts, with his first thought being, what the hell just happened? He kept looking at the huge crystal that had fallen in front of him, occasionally glancing at the hole in the ceiling leading to the 16th floor, and then back at the crystal. Completely ignoring Tiona, who was jumping around him and asking questions. "How did you do that? Can you teach me? Or better yet, show me again? Come on, show me again. How did you do that?" Boom bam and a hole in the ceiling. Tiona asked, jumping around Alex like a hyperactive child. Snapping out of his thoughts, Alex thought, alright, to hell with it. He decided to pay attention to Tiona, who was jumping around him and tugging at his arm like a spoiled child. Alright, Tiona, stop jumping around me, I'm getting dizzy, Alex responded, dismissing Beowulf and picking up Tiona like a cat. Thank goodness she didn't stretch out. While Alex and Tiona chatted, the rest of the Loki familia approached, shifting their gaze from the hole in the ceiling to Alex, who was holding Tiona at arm's length. Finishing his chat with Tiona, Alex turned his attention to the newly arrived members of the Loki familia and decided to greet them. Yo, Alex said, setting Tiona down and raising one hand in greeting. Hello, Voldigode-san, the elf Reveria elegantly introduced herself. I see you haven't been wasting any time, Voldigode-san, said Finn, extending his hand for a handshake. Show off, grumbled Bet, standing aside. After greeting everyone, Alex glanced at Ace, who simply nodded in greeting. As Alex continued greeting the other members of the Loki familia, Tiona climbed onto his shoulders. Now, tell me how you did that punch, and will you teach me? Tiona asked, sitting on Alex's shoulders and lowering her head so their eyes met. Hearing her question, all the members of the Loki familia perked up, eager to know how Alex executed such a punch. Even Ace, whose face usually showed no emotion, was interested. Tiona, get off him and stop pestering the man, he's not obliged to reveal his secrets, said her sister, making everyone feel a bit awkward. That punch isn't a secret, anyone can do it as long as they have mana in their body, Alex replied, ignoring Tiona, who was still sitting on his shoulders and swinging her legs like a small child. Easy for you to say. It's probably all about your weapon. Stop pretending to be mysterious, Bet retorted arrogantly, implying that it was all about the weapon Alex was using. It seems you didn't learn your lesson last time. Do you need a reminder of how it ended? Alex responded calmly to Bet's provocation. I was just careless. This time, it'll be different, and I'll show you your place, rookie, said Bet, preparing to attack. If you don't calm down, I'll have to use a super secret move to knock some sense into you, Alex said, carefully lifting Tiona off his shoulders. Let's see what you've got, rookie. This time, you won't get the drop on me, said Bet, taking a fighting stance. All the members of the Loki familia stepped back and watched the beginning of the confrontation, curious about the super secret technique Alex had mentioned. Taking his fighting stance, Bet was ready to launch his attack. Seeing Bet ready to strike, Alex took a step and instantly appeared before him, delivering a blow with his super secret technique. The blow struck Bet's head, driving his body into the ground so that only his legs were left sticking out. All the members of the Loki familia gaped in amazement at the sight. That's what happens when you underestimate the power of secret techniques, Alex said, looking at Bet, whose head was buried in the ground. What kind of technique is that? Can you teach me? I want to use the super secret strike to beat up monsters too, Tiona ran over excitedly, tugging on Alex's arm like a spoiled child. This strike is called the burial strike. There's also an equivalent called the burial kick. The essence of this move is to drive your opponent headfirst into the ground. Alex calmly responded to her question, causing another round of gasps from the members of the Loki familia. Can you teach me this technique? Tiona asked excitedly, already imagining herself slamming monsters into the ground with her strikes. I'll teach you the technique when I have time. But for now, if you don't mind, I can show you how I delivered the strike to Goliath, Alex replied, walking towards a vacant wall, piquing the interest of the Loki familia members. Everyone was curious about how to execute such a powerful strike. Everyone knows how to reinforce their body with mana during a fight, right? Alex asked, receiving nods from the members of the Loki familia, confirming they knew how to do it. Good. Since you already know how to reinforce your body with mana, I'll show and explain how to deliver such a strike. To start, instead of distributing mana throughout your entire body, you concentrate it in one place, specifically in your fist or foot. Now, I'll demonstrate how to do it, and then you can try it yourselves. Alex began his demonstration, making the mana visible as it accumulated in his hand. Turning towards the wall, Alex slowly delivered a punch. The strike was so powerful that a web of cracks spread across the wall, causing parts of it to collapse in some places, showing that even a seemingly weak punch could cause significant damage. The observers gaped in disbelief, unable to believe that such a seemingly weak punch could inflict such damage. Some even pinched themselves to ensure they weren't dreaming. Ace Wallenstein pondered, if she could master this strike, she would be one step closer to her goal of defeating the one-eyed dragon that had taken her parents. Everyone had their thoughts, but all were impressed by the power of the strike and thought about how they could master this skill. That was awesome. Can you teach me how to use this skill so I can smash everything? Tiona ran over excitedly, waiting for Alex's response. If I have some free time, I'll teach you, no problem, Alex replied. The Amazon began jumping up and down at his words, and even Ace showed interest in learning the strike. Alright, friends, I still need to return to sell all the loot and get back to my goddess so she doesn't worry, Alex said, lifting the huge crystal with the grip of the ruler. Before you leave, can you tell us which familia you joined? Finn inquired. I joined the Hestia familia, Alex replied, summoning a mana sword and aiming it at the hole in the ceiling leading to the 16th floor. Sorry, I haven't heard of goddess Hestia before, Finn apologized. No worries, she only recently descended to the mortal world, so not many people know about her yet. But in time, everyone will. Now, I must be off. Good luck with your raid, Alex said, launching his mana sword towards the hole in the ceiling. Before they could say goodbye, he vanished in a flash of light, leaving the members of the Loki familia bewildered. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Finn decided that after completing the mission, he would ask his goddess if she knew goddess Hestia. Little did he know how well Loki knew Hestia, which would later cause him quite a headache. Commanding his team to pull Bet out of the ground, who everyone had forgotten about, Finn ordered them to continue the raid. Meanwhile, Ace continued to stare at the destroyed wall with eyes full of interest, thinking about how to approach Alex to learn the skill. She didn't notice her group was ready to leave until Riveria called her, saying they needed to move on. Nodding, Ace gave the wall one last determined look before following the group. A little while later, after bidding farewell to the Loki familia members, Alex used his new skill to arrive on the 16th floor. Then, using the spell Gatum, he teleported to an empty room on the first floor. Checking all the loot he had gathered and estimating the earnings, Alex headed towards the guild. As Alex walked towards the exit of the first floor, adventurers he passed would step aside upon seeing him. "Hey, look, it's that newbie? And what's that huge thing floating behind him?" one adventurer said, pointing at the enormous crystal hovering behind Alex. "That's the Goliath's crystal. That crazy newbie must have defeated the Goliath alone today and is now heading back to sell the crystals," his companion replied enviously. "No need to be jealous, maybe one day you'll be just as strong," he tried to encourage his friend. "Yeah, right, dream on. Now, let's go, maybe we'll get lucky today," the other replied sarcastically. Ignoring the adventurers, Alex exited Babel and headed towards the guild. As soon as he entered the guild hall, everyone stopped what they were doing and turned their attention to the huge crystal floating behind him. Alex pretended not to notice their stares and went to queue up to sell the crystals. While waiting, he started praying to every god he knew, hoping not to encounter Inna. He didn't want to listen to a long lecture about proper dungeon behavior and how his arrogance could get him killed. When it was finally his turn to sell the crystals, he was relieved that his prayers seemed to be answered. But as he handed his crystals to the receptionist, he heard a voice that sent shivers down his spine. Slowly turning his head and cursing the gods he had prayed to, he saw her. Sure enough, it was the stern half-elf Inna, standing there with a look that could devour Alex alive. "Valdegode-san, I see you had a very successful raid," Inna said coldly. "Haha, something like that. Here, came to sell these crystals," Alex nervously replied. "I see. Now follow me, we need to talk," Inna said just as coldly, gesturing for him to follow her. "But my money," Alex sadly responded, realizing he hadn't received payment for the crystals yet. "You'll get your money later, it's not going anywhere. Now come with me to the consultation room," Inna said, already entering the room. Knowing he had no choice, Alex decided to accept all the criticism that would come from Inna. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to face his fate like a true man. Upon entering the consultation room, a scolding followed. Alex heard a lot directed at him, that he was irresponsible, arrogant, and very careless. Inna continued her lecture for a full 40 minutes, covering every possible topic. Exiting the room, Alex's face looked as if a dementor had sucked out his soul. Even the raid hadn't left him as exhausted as Inna's lecture on proper dungeon behavior. Wearily, Alex approached the counter to collect his raid earnings, totaling a whopping 2 million valis. Thinking he was one step closer to his goal, Alex tiredly made his way to an empty alley to teleport home. Descending into the basement, opening the door, and once again catching the dark-haired Rocket, Alex picked her up and headed for the couch. After sitting down, he exhaled and began recounting to Hestia how today's raid went and how much he earned. Hestia started rejoicing in her child's achievements and suggested celebrating. However, Alex made a proposal that made Hestia's eyes shine even brighter. "Hestia, how about leveling me up to 2? Alex said, excitedly, causing Hestia, who was already preparing to celebrate, to turn around. "Exactly, let's level you up so at the next gathering I can rub it in the faces of those gods and show them that my child is the most capable," Hestia said, immediately rushing over to Alex, pushing him onto the couch to upgrade his level. While Hestia upgraded Alex's status, the Loki familia group returned to the guild after completing their mission. They recounted their encounters and mentioned meeting an adventurer who single-handedly defeated Goliath with one blow, earning admiration from everyone present. Those who saw Alex selling the crystals thought he had defeated Goliath with his group, but the truth was even more shocking. After reporting on their raid, the Loki familia members headed to their estate. On the way, Finn pondered how to inquire Loki about goddess Hestia. Arriving home, the Loki familia members noticed Loki herself sitting at the table drinking alcohol. After greeting her, everyone dispersed to their rooms to shower and change, except for Finn, who decided to tell Loki about the events in the dungeon. "Goddess Loki, today in the dungeon we encountered Alex on the 17th floor, Finn said, sitting across from his goddess. "Oh, and what was he doing there?" Loki asked, pouring herself another glass of alcohol. "He decided to take on Goliath alone and defeated him with a single strike, creating a hole in the ceiling leading to the 16th floor, Finn began his report. "Pfft, he did what?" Loki spat out her drink after the captain of her family spoke. "I'm telling you, he defeated Goliath single-handedly with one blow," Finn repeated, wiping alcohol from his face. "If he's already delving into the dungeon, he must have joined some familia. But which one? Did he say which familia he joined?" Loki began questioning, pondering which god Alex might have aligned with. "He said he joined Hestia's familia," Finn replied. "He joined that little goddess's familia? What makes her better than me? She's poor, she doesn't even have her own home." Loki started speaking, scratching her hair and doubting her life choices. Doesn't matter. I can always lure him to our side, and we need to do it quickly before the other gods realize and start making offers to recruit him. Loki began devising a plan to lure Alex into her familia, outmaneuvering the other gods. While Alex was busy leveling up, news of his feat began spreading throughout Orario. No one wanted to believe there was a newcomer who could defeat Goliath with a single blow. More and more people started discussing the topic and believing in it. These rumors reached some gods who became interested in this new child. All they knew was that he belonged to Hestia's familia, a goddess whom practically no one knew. At the upper levels of the Babylon Tower, a silver-haired goddess sat holding a glass of wine, pondering where this wayward Hestia could have found such a child. She was very curious to meet and see this child, thinking perhaps he could offer her the freedom she desired. To be continued. Chapter 12, Chapter 12 Date with Hestia and Future Problems. That same evening. Come on, Alex, lie down on the couch and lift your shirt so I can update your status, Hestia said, pushing Alex toward the couch. Alright, no need to push, I'll do it now, Alex replied, lying down on the couch and baring his back. While Hestia was updating Alex's status, his thoughts were occupied with how soft the couch was, money well spent. Fighting off drowsiness, Alex was making plans for the next day. Okay, your status is updated. No changes, except there are some new titles, Hestia said, reviewing Alex's updated stats. Let me see what these new titles are, Alex said, getting up and taking the paper from Hestia. What's wrong with these titles? What do One Punch Man and Titan Slayer even mean? And this One Fist of Destruction is just ridiculous. Who comes up with these titles? Apologies. The only decent one here is David vs. Goliath. If anyone finds out about these titles, I'll be socially dead again, Alex said, reading his status with a twitching eye. Hestia, I hope you won't tell anyone about these titles, because they're embarrassing even to read, Alex said, looking at his goddess with a vacant stare. No one will know, I swear by my name, I won't let anyone embarrass a member of my family, Hestia replied, saluting like a soldier. Hestia, listen, we'll need to go to the guild tomorrow to update my status anyway. How about after that, we take a walk and go for a stroll? Alex proposed to Hestia. Are you asking me out on a date? Hestia asked, blushing and twirling her pigtails. If you want, it can be a date. If you're uncomfortable, we can call it a family outing, Alex said, seeing Hestia's embarrassment. Idiot, I'm not talking to you anymore, Hestia said angrily, wrapping herself in a blanket and turning into a cocoon. So, are we going out tomorrow? Alex asked the cocoon where Hestia was hiding. Yes, was all Hestia said before going silent. Seeing that Hestia didn't want to talk anymore, Alex shook his head and went to wash up, preparing for bed. As he lay down to sleep, Alex wished Hestia good night, and all he heard in return was a humph. Shaking his head at his goddess's antics, Alex began to drift off to sleep. The next morning, waking up, Alex saw Hestia still sleeping on him and shook his head. Lying there a bit longer, knowing there was no rush today, Alex continued to stroke Hestia's head, lost in his thoughts. After a while, he decided to start waking her up. All his attempts to wake the lazy goddess were met with her mumbling, just a few more minutes. She just wrapped her small arms around his neck and asked to be carried to the bathroom. Seeing no other choice, Alex picked up Hestia and carried her to the bathroom so she could wash up. After spending some time on morning routines, Alex and Hestia got ready and left the house. Heading towards the guild and grabbing breakfast on the way, they arrived at their destination. Yo, Ina, how are you? Alex greeted, raising his hand in a friendly wave. I see you're still in the mood for jokes. Maybe I should give you another lecture, Ina said with a stern look. No, thanks, I'll pass, Alex replied, crossing his arms to show he'd had enough last time. If you're not here for another lecture, then what brings you here? Ina asked, adjusting her glasses. All questions go to my goddess, Alex said, pointing to Hestia standing next to him. How can I help you, Hestia-sama? Ina asked, shifting her gaze to Hestia. We're here because Alex has leveled up, and we need to update his records, Hestia said calmly, though pride shone in her eyes. I see, you're here to update the records and level up what? Ina started speaking calmly but ended with a shout, unable to believe her ears. I'm saying, Alex has leveled up, and we're here to update his records, Hestia repeated louder. Oh my god, the guy who just became an adventurer has leveled up. Ina was so shocked that her glasses slid down her face. Meanwhile, as Alex and Hestia were busy with the paperwork, the adventurers in the guild overheard why they were there. Hey, did you hear? It seems that crazy newbie leveled up, one observer said. I'm not even surprised, considering what this guy has done in the past few days, another replied. What do you mean you're not surprised? His friend asked. Where else have you seen a newbie who breaks through 10 floors on his first day and then defeats a Goliath solo on the second day? He replied to his friend. You're right. So, he leveled up faster than the Sword Princess. It took her several months to level up, and this newbie did it in just 2 days, his friend began to say. If he doesn't die in the dungeon, his achievements will be significant, his friend concluded. After finishing the paperwork, Alex and Hestia said goodbye to Ina and headed to the shopping street. Shopping street. Arriving at the shopping street, Alex and Hestia decided to wander among the stalls and look for something interesting. Strolling between the booths, Alex suggested to Hestia to visit one of the clothing stores. Approaching the most decent-looking store, they decided to go in and see what they could buy here. While Hestia was busy searching for suitable clothing for herself, Alex also decided to pick out a couple of casual items for himself. Taking a couple of t-shirts, one black and the other red, he went to choose pants and shoes for himself. After quickly making his choices and handing the clothes to the clerk, Alex noticed that Hestia still hadn't picked anything. Remembering that girls usually take a long time to choose clothes, Alex, like a true gentleman, decided to approach and ask if anything caught her eye. Hestia, if you like something, just take it and try it on. If the clothes fit you, we'll buy them, Alex said, approaching the goddess. I don't know, there's so much choice here, and I can't decide, replied Hestia, examining the clothes. We have all day, you don't need to hurry, Alex said, encouraging Hestia. Really, I don't need to hurry, asked an excited Hestia. Yes, really. Now go ahead and choose the clothes you want to try on, Alex said calmly, stroking Hestia's head. Thank you, exclaimed Hestia, hugging Alex and rushing off to pick out clothes. Author's note, don't forget, dear readers, that Hestia is also a girl and she likes beautiful clothes too. And the most important advice from the author, if a girl takes you to a clothing store, don't cry like a little child, just follow her like a ghost and say that the clothes look good on her. After some time, trying on a lot of clothes, Hestia settled on a couple of dresses of different styles and several pairs of sandals in white and brown. Seeing there was still time left, Alex suggested going somewhere else to Hestia. After thinking for a while, Hestia suggested going to Babylon because Hephaestus mentioned that there was a trading floor there where adventurers could buy many things. Alex agreed, hoping to find several types of metal there to make himself a few trinkets. Babylon's trading floor. Riding the elevator up to Babylon's trading floor, Alex and Hestia found themselves amidst a multitude of shops filled with diverse goods, from simple potion pouches to weapons and armor. Walking between the displays, Alex noticed one shop that caught his attention. Deciding to check the prices, he stopped at the sword showcase. 30 million for some crap sword? Are you kidding me? It just looks fancy, nothing more, Alex complained to his goddess, puzzled by why this sword was so expensive. That crap sword was made by a child from my family, a voice came from inside the shop. Hephaestus, I didn't expect to see you here, exclaimed Hestia, noticing her friend. This shop belongs to my family, Hephaestus replied, standing at the shop's entrance. Yo, Hephaestus, how's it going? Sorry, but that doesn't change the fact that this sword is terrible, even if it's made by a member of your family, greeted Alex, not missing the opportunity to voice his opinion. The swords in this display are not for sale, they're for decoration, Hephaestus explained, inviting them inside. Hephaestus, why are you still wearing an eye patch if your issue is resolved? Hestia asked, noticing her friend's eye patch. I've gotten used to it and I don't want the gods to start flocking with marriage proposals. After what they did in the realm of gods, I won't tolerate their behavior, Hephaestus replied, showing her disdain for the hypocritical gods. Right, let them all go to hell, just like when they saw your eye, Hestia supported her friend. So why did you come here? Hephaestus asked, taking a seat behind the counter. Hestia suggested coming here since you mentioned that there's a lot here useful for adventurers. So here we are, Alex replied, with Hestia nodding in agreement. And since we're here, I thought of buying a couple of medals to make some trinkets for myself, Alex said, examining the shop. We have a couple of medals left in stock. I'll bring them now, and you can see if they suit you, Hephaestus said, heading to the storeroom. Here are the medals that were left over. If they suit you, you can take them, Hephaestus said, laying the medals on the counter. I think I can make something out of these. How much will they cost? Alex asked, holding the medals in his hands. They're worthless, good for nothing else, so you can take them, Hephaestus calmly replied. Then I won't be polite and I'll take them. I can show you later what I make, Alex said, hiding the medals in his backpack. Chatting for a while longer, they noticed that evening had come, time for dinner. Alex suggested having dinner together, but Hephaestus declined, saying she still had things to do in the shop. She reminded Hestia that the gods' assembly was approaching and she needed to prepare. Nervously nodding, Hestia took Alex's hand, and they left the shop. Alex suggested going to the Landlady of Plenty for dinner, which Hestia agreed to, mentioning that she was tired of walking. Seeing Hestia behaving whimsically again, Alex allowed her to climb onto his back, and he carried her towards the restaurant. Mistress of Fertility. Approaching Mistress of Fertility, Hestia climbed down from Alex's back, and they entered the restaurant. They were greeted by Chloe. I see you decided to drop by, Alex-kun. Did you miss us? Chloe playfully asked. Of course, I missed the charming waitresses. Looks like it's packed here. Is there a spot for me and my goddess? Alex replied, scanning the crowded room. Oh, you sweet talker. Right now, everything's taken, but there are seats at the counter. Would that be okay for you? Chloe blushed, waving her hand. We're not picky, as long as we can fill our stomachs. Right, Hestia? Alex turned to Hestia, who nodded in agreement. Then follow me, I'll show you to your seats, Chloe said. Here, please have a seat. When you're ready to order, just call for me, Chloe said, winking at Alex. Thank you. Hestia, choose what you'd like. I'll go with their signature dish as usual, Alex said, handing the menu to Hestia. I see you're back again, troublemaker, a familiar voice chimed in. Good evening, Mia. Looks like you're still in a good mood, Alex said, looking up at Mia, who had just approached. Are you here to ogle my waitresses again, or are you planning to wreck my restaurant again? Mia asked in a rough tone. I'm not ogling them, just appreciating their beauty. And as for wrecking your restaurant, that was a one-time accident. I fixed everything right away, Alex replied calmly. I don't care. If you break anything again, you're dead meat, you little brat, Mia said angrily. I promise not to break anything, and if I do, I'll fix it immediately. No need to worry. Worst case, I'll pay for anything that gets damaged, Alex said, trying to calm Mia down. You better keep your promise, Mia said before heading back to the kitchen. Having placed their orders, Alex and Hestia began chatting while they waited for their dinner to arrive. Unbeknownst to them, a group of people with ill intentions was heading towards the restaurant. Yet even if they had known, they wouldn't have paid any attention, for why bother with such riff-raff? The group entered the restaurant and started looking around until they spotted their target, for whom they had come. Approaching Alex and Hestia, they began speaking. Oh look, it's the crazy newbie who broke through 10 floors on his first day and defeated Goliath on his second, one of them said. Indeed, those achievements must have gotten to his head. Now he thinks he's special, right guys, added another. He's probably so full of himself that he thinks he's better than everyone else, said the third. Hey, idiots, if you came here to cause trouble, just say so instead of behaving like children whose only skill is insulting others, Alex said, turning his head towards them. Did you hear that, guys? He says we're causing trouble. Ha ha ha, the second one laughed, egging on his friends. Yeah, thinks he's better than everyone else. And what, he's gonna hit us now, the first one said. Go ahead, hit us, tough guy, taunted the third. Well, you asked for it yourselves. Who am I to refuse you? Alex said, standing up and cracking his knuckles. No need for this, ignore them. Let them say what they want, Hestia said, grabbing Alex's hand to stop him. Don't worry, Hestia. Any problem that arises from this will be easily resolved, Alex said, removing Hestia's hand and approaching the trio of idiots. Approaching them, Alex decided to use his secret move for dealing with idiots, the burial strike. Seeing that their provocation had worked, the trio began to rejoice, preparing to teach the newbie a lesson. But they had no idea they had provoked a being feared even by their own god. If they knew his identity, they would have run back to the heavens, praying to other gods not to let him come for them. But that's a story for another time. For now, let's return to the trio of idiots and Alex, who was preparing to teach them a lesson. Seeing Alex approach closer, the three took their positions, preparing to attack. Alex took a light step and found himself in front of them, delivering 3 consecutive strikes that buried them in the ground. Seeing only their legs sticking out of the ground, Alex nodded in satisfaction and returned to his place. I told you not to break anything? Are you selectively deaf? Mia started shouting as she rushed out from the kitchen upon hearing the commotion. I'll fix everything, no need to yell. Just figuring out who these idiots are, Alex calmly replied, looking at the legs sticking out from under the ground. Hey, what's going on here? A cheerful voice rang out at the entrance to the restaurant. Hey Alex, how's it going? Tiona asked, running up to him. Hey Tiona, good to see you. Just encountered 3 idiots and trying to figure out where they're from, Alex greeted the approaching Amazon. If you pull them out, I might be able to tell which family they belong to, Tiona said cheerfully. Looks like you used the burial strike again, Tiona remarked, surveying the state of the trio of idiots. Yeah, that move works great against idiots like them, Alex said, approaching one and grabbing him by the legs. Seems wherever you go, trouble always follows you, Valdegode-san, a male voice remarked. Yo, guys. Looks like you all decided to come eat, Alex said, greeting the others. Since you're all here, can you tell which family these idiots belong to? Alex asked, pulling one out of the ground. Looks like these idiots belong to the Apollo family. His children always do this, provoke promising newcomers, pretend to get injured, then Apollo challenges the newcomer's family and tries to recruit them into his own. Finn began explaining the actions of the Apollo family. Well, now things are getting more interesting, Alex said, tossing the trio of idiots out of the restaurant. Then he fixed the floor, as Mia was eyeing him like a hawk. The Apollo family has done this more than once, so you should be more careful in the future, Finn warned, reminding Alex of potential troubles. Don't worry, I'm actually looking forward to it, Alex said, anticipating the next assembly of the gods. To be continued. Chapter 13, Dinatus and the Declaration of War. That same evening, after Alex had thrown the 3 idiots out onto the street, he brushed off his hands and went back inside the restaurant. As he entered, he was met with silence. Surveying the room, Alex noticed that some patrons were looking at him with fear, others were giving him a thumbs up, and one person was glaring at him as if ready to grab something heavy and rush over to beat him up. Ignoring these people, Alex returned to his seat with an unruffled expression, hoping everything would settle down, but Mamma Mia had other thoughts. You brat? I told you not to break anything and not to fight in my restaurant. Mia began yelling, storming out from the kitchen. Mamma Mia, it's not my fault, trouble just follows me around, Alex replied, spreading his hands to show he was innocent. That's not my problem, I told you not to fight in my restaurant. Do you want to stop coming here? Mia said in a rough tone. Alright, Mia, don't get mad. How about I make you an offer you can't refuse, Alex said mysteriously. I'll make a batch of tables for your restaurant that will be hard to break. Judging by your hands, you don't look like a master carpenter, Mia said skeptically. True, I'm not a carpenter. It's all about magic, Alex replied, spreading his hands, from which a rainbow appeared. Yeah, whatever you say, magic and all that. How long will it take you to make these tables? Mia asked, now interested. First, I'll need to find the right materials. But they can be quickly found in the dungeon. After that, I'll come back and measure the diameter of the tables, Alex said, glancing around and counting the number of tables in the room. Then I'll make a few samples to show you, and if you like them, I'll make the rest. Or I could make each table unique. And what's with the generosity? Mia asked suspiciously. It's just that there's a good atmosphere here and tasty food. And, of course, beautiful waitresses, Alex began to say, adding the last part in a whisper. So you come here to ogle the girls? Hestia said, pinching Alex's side. All right, I agree. But don't you dare trick me, you know what'll happen if you do, Mia agreed, lifting a rolling pin. Meanwhile, as Alex and Hestia finished their dinner, the topic started buzzing around the restaurant. Hey, did you see how that crazy newcomer dealt with Apollo's kids? One patron asked. Yeah, I saw. But I'm afraid he'll have problems now. You forgot how Apollo acts in such situations, his friend replied. I don't think that crazy guy will have problems. In the past few days, he's proven he can do a lot, his friend said again. Well, his track record over the past few days shows he's really strong. But he's still just one person in his family, another said. If he's lucky with the choice of the war game, the newcomer might show us something interesting, his friend suggested. Right, it'll all depend on the game Apollo chooses. And if he picks something suitable, that crazy guy will be really lucky, another said. All right, let's keep eating, this isn't our problem, concluded a random patron. After Alex and Hestia finished their dinner, they decided to order dessert. Hestia didn't object, as she always had room for something sweet. Hestia, since we're still here, why don't we join my friends? Let's gather some information, Alex suggested to his voracious goddess, pointing towards Loki family's table. What friends? Hestia asked, following Alex's finger with her gaze. Are you wanting to move just because there are pretty girls sitting there? She clarified, pinching Alex's side again. No, we just need information to prepare for upcoming events, Alex calmly replied, removing Hestia's hand from his waist. Humph, you better tell the truth, or you'll hear from me later, Hestia smirked, getting up with her dessert. All right, don't be angry. We really do need information, Alex said, heading towards Loki family's table. Yo, guys, it's me again. Mind if we join you? I have a couple of questions, Alex said, approaching the table. No, of course not. Sit down quickly, I also want to ask you a couple of questions, excited Tiona said, pulling a chair for Alex. In that case, I won't be polite, Alex said, helping Hestia to sit down and then sitting himself. What do you want to ask, Valdigode-san? Finn asked. It's quite simple. What is the Assembly of Gods and what are these war games? Alex asked, expressing his curiosity. Firstly, the Assembly of Gods, or as it's called, Dinatus. Dinatus is a gathering of gods held every 3 months. They discuss various topics, including granting titles to adventurers who have leveled up. Any deity who has ever received an invitation thereafter has the right to participate in the assemblies, Finn explained. All right, I understand. So it's a gathering of gods where they discuss various topics, right? But what are these titles they discuss? Alex clarified. Titles are what gods give to adventurers who reach the 2nd level during Dinatus. Titles can change over time. My title, for example, is Hero, and our ice title is Sword Princess. Mostly, gods use this event to give funny nicknames to adventurers from weaker families, Finn explained. So, gods use this gathering just to laugh, huh? Alex asked, putting his hand on his forehead, finding it hard to believe. Well, if you put it that way, you're right, Finn replied with a wry smile. All right, if that's the case, I have a way to handle this situation. If I get a silly title, I'll just make sure the gods don't want to give me funny nicknames, Alex said with a crazy smile, frightening everyone. And what is this way? Tiona asked, ignoring his smile. For that, I'll need Hestia's help, Alex said, turning to her. Me? Hestia asked, pointing to herself with her fork. Yes, you. I need you to remember all the gods who will be offering funny titles or voting for them, and report their names to me, Alex explained. Hestia nodded, not fully understanding. And why do you need the names of these gods, may I ask nervously? Finn asked. It's quite simple. I'll catch the children of these gods and beat them with a stick, Alex began to say with a crazy intonation. I don't think you should do that. It will only cause more problems, Finn said with a twitching eye, pondering how to tell Loki not to give silly titles to Alex. That's a concern for future me. Now, can you tell me what war games are? Alex asked, brushing off Finn's words. War games are battles between families. A special Dinatus is convened for this purpose to discuss rules and stakes that families place on their victory. Gods must strictly adhere to the rules of the war games, or there will be serious consequences, Finn explained. So, in essence, the gods are like generals sending their children as troops to battle. Is that right? Alex asked. You've grasped the essence correctly. Yes, the children of gods fight to achieve victory. War games vary, and the topic is discussed during Dinatus, Finn replied, nodding. I see. I think we'll be going now. Thanks for the information, Alex said, getting up. You're welcome. But why didn't you ask your goddess? Finn decided to inquire. I've never been there because I didn't have family members, and I wasn't interested until I lived with Hephaestus, Hestia replied, noticing everyone's attention on her. As you can see, my goddess is a bit carefree. Well, I think we'll be on our way, Alex said, patting Hestia on the head. Wait, when can I come learn those skills you showed? Tiona shouted, attracting attention. First ask Loki. If she agrees, we can start training after Dinatus, Alex replied, walking away. Alright then, farewell, friends. Until next time, Alex said, leaving the restaurant and waving to the Loki family. Time skip and events before Dinatus. Returning home, Alex decided to talk to Hestia and prepare her for the Dinatus. He asked for some time to gather information about the Apollo family and formulate a plan to counter them. Alex also informed Hestia that he would create a few trinkets for her to defend herself in case of danger. In the following days, Alex visited the dungeon and the upper floor of Babylon to gather necessary materials. First and foremost, he fulfilled his promise to Mamma Mia. He gathered the required wood, showed her the options she approved of, and installed new tables at the fertility hostess. Afterward, he began gathering information about the Apollo family using illusion and hypnotism magic. What he learned did not please him. Alex understood that Apollo was quite the deviant. He decided to prepare a few items to help Hestia protect herself in danger or simply to teach Apollo and any other male gods who tried to approach her a lesson. Alex also didn't forget to visit Hephaestus to consult with her and show her the things he had created. Some of Alex's inventions pleased her, and she asked for a couple of them for herself. Time flew by unnoticed, and the day of the gods' assembly arrived. Alex checked once again everything he had given to Hestia for protection to make sure they worked properly. Author's note, guys, in the comments you say that with magic of creation, you can create Valis or build a mansion. But the catch is that for creation magic to work well, you need to know what and from what material it consists of. You can't just create something out of thin air, you need to know the elemental component of the element you want to create. This was explained in Fullmetal Alchemist. From a piece of iron, you can create an iron rod, but you can't turn a piece of metal into a piece of wood without knowing the atomic structure to change it. This is purely my theory, I'm not imposing my opinion. You can stick to your opinion, and I'll be happy for you, because if you have your own opinion, it means you're a living person, not a soulless machine. Thanks for your attention. Mwah, happy face. Preparation before Dinatus. Have you got everything, Hestia? Alex asked anxiously, checking Hestia from all sides. Yes, I've got everything. Stop fussing, nothing will happen to me. Hephaestus will be there, she'll protect me, Hestia replied irritably. Let's just check one last time everything you've taken with you, Alex insisted. Alright, goodness, you're such a worrywart, sighed Hestia, taking off her shoulder bag. Okay, let's see. Bag with separate compartments, one piece, Alex began listing. Got the bag, Hestia replied, showing the bag. One shocker against gods, Alex said. Got it, Hestia answered, pulling out a long magical shocker from the small bag. Pepper spray against gods, Alex said. Got it, Hestia replied, taking out a small canister with a red pepper symbol on it. Folding iron baton. You didn't forget about it, Alex asked. It's here too, Hestia said, pulling out a small folded iron rod. Good, and most importantly, don't forget the secret move I taught you, Alex said, checking for the last time if Hestia had everything. Okay, enough. You're acting like an overprotective parent letting their daughter out on the street, Hestia said irritably. Meeting place of the gods. Arriving at the meeting place, Hestia entered the large assembly hall. She looked around, trying to spot familiar faces so she wouldn't have to sit alone. Soon, she noticed her friend Hephaestus and decided to sit next to her. Approaching Hephaestus, Hestia greeted her warmly. Hephaestus, hi. Do you mind if I sit next to you? I feel uncomfortable sitting alone here, Hestia said, hugging Hephaestus. Of course, Hestia, sit down. How have you been these past few days? How's Alex and his inventions? Hephaestus asked. Haven't you met often this week? Hestia raised an eyebrow in surprise. He dropped by a couple of times, showed what he'd created, and then dashed off. He gave me a couple of things that might come in handy, Hephaestus replied, pointing to a leather pouch on her waist. Yeah, he made something similar for me too, but a bit different, Hestia replied, showing a small blue pouch with a butterfly on the front. He gave me a lot of things for protection, as if I'm a child. He's just worried about you, doesn't want anything to happen to you, Hephaestus reassured her. That doesn't mean he should treat me like a child, Hestia retorted, still pouting. Then stop acting like one, Hephaestus calmly replied, raising an eyebrow. I'm going to ignore you, Hestia said, turning her head away. Before Hephaestus could reply, the hall filled with all the gods who were supposed to attend. At the end, the chief god Uranus entered. Now that everyone's here, let's begin our discussion on mortal affairs and, as usual, conclude with choosing titles for adventurers who've reached the second level, Uranus said authoritatively. After his words, most of the gods relaxed, not interested in listening to these discussions. They had come here just for fun, leaving serious matters to the larger and medium-sized families. What did they care? Meanwhile at Hostess, Alex came to the restaurant to pass the time while Hestia was at the gods meeting. Stepping inside, he was surprised to find the hall practically empty. Alex decided to approach the counter and ask why there were so few people. Hey, Mamma Mia, why is it so empty here? Where did everyone go? Alex asked, approaching the bar counter. Everyone's busy unlike you, slack off, Mia replied, wiping a glass. I'm not a slacker, I made those cool tables for you. By the way, how do you like those tables? Do you find them appealing? Alex said, pointing to a round table with Celtic runes and a drawing of two wolves chasing the sun and moon. The tables are beautiful and sturdy, the customers really like them. You seem to have a talent for crafting, Mia replied, nodding towards a group of patrons admiring the table's artwork depicting a person with a bow aiming at 10 suns. Why did you come here? Don't you have other things to do? Mia asked, wiping a glass. I had a free evening. It was a tough week. My goddess went to Dinatus, and I had some free time, so I came here, began Alex. Aren't you afraid that Apollo will take revenge on your goddess for his children? Mia asked, handing Alex a drink. He. I'm not worried, I can't wait for this idiot to try something, Alex replied with a creepy laugh. You did something, didn't you, with such confidence? Mia asked. Of course, I armed my goddess and taught her one of my secret tricks that will help her deal with male gods, Alex replied with a cheerful smile. While Alex and Mia chatted, one of the waitresses approached them. I see you decided to visit us again, said Seer with a cheerful voice, approaching Alex. Hello, Seer. How are you? Alex asked. I'm fine. How are you? Are you already waiting for the gods to choose you a nickname? Seer asked, sitting next to Alex. If they choose a silly nickname, I have a way to make them regret that choice, Alex said, taking a sip of his drink. Yeah, what's that way? Seer asked, leaning closer to Alex. It's quite simple. I'll use an item I created, Alex said, pulling an iron club out of his coat. What's this iron rod that will help solve your problems? Seer asked doubtfully. This, as you called it, iron club is called the stick for idiots. It's just right for this situation, Alex said, showing his invention to Seer. And what are you going to do with it? Seer continued to ask. I'll just catch these gods' children and hit them with this stick, Alex replied, anticipating how he would punish these adventurers. Ha. You're joking, right? Seer asked, laughing nervously. No, Alex replied, taking a drink. Putting her hand on her forehead, Seer began to think about the chaos that would start after the meeting was over. But that's another story. For now, let's go straight to the end of Dinatus. Assembly of the Gods. After discussing all the urgent matters and assigning nicknames to all second-level adventurers, only one question remained. We've made decisions on nicknames for all second-level adventurers except one. This new adventurer ascended to the second level faster than anyone else, and his achievements on the first level have been talked about by everyone in recent days. Now, let's discuss what nickname we will give to this child, began Aran with authority. After his words, all the gods turned towards Hestia, who started to feel nervous under such scrutiny. Gathering her courage, Hestia decided to suggest a nickname for Alex. I think Alex's nickname should be Overlord, she said nervously. I vote for the nickname Runner, intervened one god who had come for amusement. I vote for the nickname Speedrunner, said another god, not understanding why that word came to mind. I think Noble Knight would suit him, firmly stated Hephaestus, avoiding Hestia's suspicious gaze. Let's call him Demon Fist, I think that nickname suits him. Right, Apollo, Loki said, looking at Apollo, whose face was ugly. A lively discussion began about what nickname to give Alex. Some shouted out silly nicknames, while others proposed humorous options. This continued until one god raised their hand and made their proposal. I think Mad Novice would suit him, as all our children call him that. I think that nickname would be just right, said one god, drawing the attention of everyone present. They nodded in agreement, recalling stories from their children. Well, since you've all come to a unanimous decision, we hereby award Alexander Voldigode the title Mad Novice. With that, our meeting is adjourned, and everyone can proceed to the banquet, announced Aran. Sorry, Alex, I let you down. I'm a useless goddess, Hestia thought, shedding tears, imagining how angry Alex would be because of his nickname. Hestia, don't worry. After he levels up, his nickname can be changed, so there's no need to fret, said Hephaestus, trying to comfort her. I'm just afraid he'll do something foolish after hearing his nickname, Hestia said with a wry smile. And what foolish thing could he do? Asked Hephaestus, raising an eyebrow. I'll tell you after the banquet, because it's better if other gods don't hear, whispered Hestia so only Hephaestus could hear. Alright, let's go eat and think about how to explain Alex his new nickname, said Hephaestus, taking Hestia's hand and leading her to the banquet hall. As Hestia and Hephaestus left the assembly hall, they were unaware that they were being watched by a grey-haired goddess who was increasingly interested in this child. She couldn't discern his soul, which piqued her curiosity even more. The goddess continued to contemplate how to meet this child to verify if he was indeed the person she had been waiting for so long. Banquet hall. Entering the banquet hall, Hestia and Hephaestus headed towards a food-laden table where no one else was seated, and began to serve themselves. Filling her plate with plenty of food, Hestia heard a voice and turned around. I see you're in a good mood, Shorty, managing to invite such a capable child into your poor family, Loki said with a mocking voice, approaching the duo. You're not welcome here, washboard. And there's no need to envy just because he rejected you the first time, replied Hestia, stuffing her cheeks with food like a hamster. What did you say, lowly granny? Are you asking for a fight? Said Loki angrily. I'm telling you, flat-chested, there's no need to envy, retorted Hestia. Seeing where this was heading, Hephaestus shook her head, remembering that even in the heavens they were like cat and dog, always arguing at every encounter. Lost in her thoughts, Hephaestus didn't notice how they had already started fighting and arguing. Their dispute was interrupted by an elegant male voice. "My dear Hestia, it seems things are going well for you," said the elegant voice, approaching their table. "You're not welcome here, Apollo. You'd better leave," said Loki, releasing Hestia's cheeks. "Indeed, Apollo, you'd better go," added Hestia, rubbing her swollen cheeks. "My dear Hestia, you break my heart," said Apollo gently. "You know that your child has hurt my family's children badly, and now they are in the hospital. How do you intend to resolve this issue?" "Enough of your hypocrisy, Apollo. Get to the point or leave," intervened Loki, with Hestia nodding in agreement. "It's simple, we'll arrange a war game," Apollo said, maintaining a smile. "You're playing your tricky games again, Apollo. First, you have your children cause trouble, and then you pretend they're not to blame," said Hephaestus disdainfully. Their argument caught the attention of all the gods in the banquet hall. Everyone was curious how this dispute would end. "So, you want to challenge to defend the honor of your children? What hypocrisy," said a now angry Hestia. "I don't understand what you're talking about. Whether you accept the challenge or not, it will all be decided at the Council of the Gods," Apollo continued, maintaining his smile. "I accept your challenge," said Hestia, calming down. "Hestia, there's no need to fall for his words," Hephaestus tried to intervene to stop her friend. "I know what I'm doing. Alex has already predicted this outcome and assured me that he can handle it," Hestia whispered to Hephaestus. "Then let all the present gods witness that Hestia has accepted my challenge," Apollo said with an enthusiastic smile. "What are the stakes for this battle?" Hestia asked calmly. "Stakes, you say? Ha ha ha. If my family wins, then you and your child will be mine," Apollo said with a twisted smile. "You pervert, take this," shouted Hestia, pulling out a taser from her purse and striking Apollo with it. Upon being struck by the taser, Apollo fell and began convulsing. The strike was so powerful that smoke started emanating from Apollo. "That's what you get for behaving like a pervert. We'll discuss the stakes at the assembly held in honor of our game," Hestia said, looking at Apollo who was convulsing and emitting white smoke. "Hestia, I don't think he can hear you after that. Looks like one of those gadgets Alex made for you." "Quite an interesting device," Hephaestus said, examining the taser in Hestia's hands. "If you want one like this so badly, you can ask Alex. He'll make you one too," Hestia said, twirling the taser in her hands, which caught the attention of the male gods who backed away, fearing they might be next. "Well, I'll ask him later. And now, what will you do?" Hephaestus asked her friend. "Can I have one like that too?" Loki interjected, keeping her distance from Hestia. "No way, but your children could use it to scare you off and stop bothering them," Hestia said, frightening Loki. "You wouldn't do that to me, we're friends, shorty," Loki said with fear in her voice. "Who knows? Now I need to go home to Alex and tell him about today's events," Hestia said, putting away the taser in her purse and leaving the hall. Chapter 14. Chapter 14 Discussion of the game, or How to Catch an Idiot. That same evening, after Hestia left the hall, she continued to ponder how to break the news to Alex and feared he might do something foolish to avoid adding to his troubles. As Hestia distanced herself further from the building where the gods gathered, Hephaestus caught up with her. "Hestia, wait up. I'll walk with you. I don't like being in such places anyway," Hephaestus said, catching up to Hestia. "Where are you going now?" Hephaestus asked. "I'll find Alex first to tell him how the assembly went. After that, we'll go home," Hestia replied. "By the way, why did you panic after Alex was given his epithet?" "You said you'd tell me later," Hephaestus asked, wondering why her friend had been so sad at that moment. "Sigh. I wasn't panicking, I was afraid of what would happen after Alex was given his epithet," Hestia said with a deep sigh. "And what consequences will there be after you tell him?" Hephaestus asked. "He's going to use one of his devices he created, called the Idiot Stick, and he's going to hunt down the children of the gods who gave him stupid epithets," Hestia continued with the same wry smile. "He's going to what?" A female scream was heard from behind. "What do you need, Loki? I'm not in the mood to argue right now, don't bother me and go away. I still need to find Alex to tell him everything," Hestia said, dismissing Loki. "Don't dismiss me, explain what Alex is going to do," Loki insisted, clearly not intending to go anywhere. "I'm saying he'll take his weapon he created and go hunt down the children of the gods who gave him stupid epithets. And most likely, he'll start with the children of the god who's responsible for his current epithet," Hestia said, still angry that she couldn't help her child get a good epithet. "He won't hunt down my children, right? Don't be silent, shorty, say something." Loki began to speak in panic, clearly forgetting that she considered the epithet she came up with to be cool. "I don't know, better ask him yourself," Hestia said, irritated. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go find him quickly. I don't want him hunting my children," Loki said in panic. "Where are you running if you don't know where he is? Besides your breasts, you don't have any brains," Hestia said contemptuously. "What did you say, big-breasted loli? Do you want to get it again?" Loki said aggressively. "Okay, you two, that's enough. We still need to find Alex," Hephaestus calmly said, preventing another fight. "Why look for him? He's either at home or staring at waitresses again," Hestia said, with a twitching eyelid. With their goal set, the trio of goddesses headed towards the mistress of fertility. Entering the restaurant, the trio of goddesses immediately spotted Alex sitting at the counter, chatting with a waitress and having a drink. Upon noticing their arrival, Alex decided to greet them. "Hey, I see the assembly is over. Any good news for me?" Alex greeted. From Hestia's expression alone, he understood he had received a silly epithet. "Don't hate me, while I'm trying to get you a good epithet there, you're here having fun," Hestia shouted, approaching the counter heavily. "I'm not having fun, just taking a break from a tough week," Alex replied, placing a glass in front of Hestia, suggesting she take a drink before starting to talk. "Now tell me what happened there," Alex said, waiting for Hestia to clear her throat. "Here's what you asked for, and please, don't do anything stupid," Hestia said, handing over a sheet of paper to Alex. "Thanks. Now let's see what epithets the other gods proposed for me. And before I start reading, Hestia, can you tell me what mine is?" Alex asked, taking the paper in his hands. "Your epithet is Mad Novice. I did everything possible to get you a normal epithet, but it was complete chaos," Hestia said, looking away, afraid Alex might be angry. "Well, it's not a bad epithet, but not a great one either. So, no need to worry. It could have been worse, like Pussy Destroyer 322, so it's all good," Alex said, recalling a famous online nickname. Noticing their puzzled faces, Alex waved his hand, indicating they shouldn't dwell too much on it. He then began to read the list. After reading for a while, he finished with a twitching eye and gritted teeth, ready at that moment to go hunt down the children of the gods to get back at them. Spotting one of his targets nearby, he decided to start with her. "Hey, Loki, care to explain what this is all about?" Alex asked, waving the sheet of paper in his hand. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Loki replied, starting to sweat and looking for a way to avoid the situation. "Come over here for a moment," Alex said, beckoning Loki with his hand. "All right, coming." "Ouch, what was that for?" Loki exclaimed, receiving a tap on the forehead with Alex's palm. "That's what you deserved. What's with this demon fist? Were you bored or something?" Alex said, pulling his hand away from Loki's forehead. "I think it's a cool epithet. My kids told me how you punched Goliath, so I chose that epithet," Loki said, rubbing her red forehead. "All right, never mind. Hephaestus, what about noble knight?" "I'm as much a knight as Loki is a noble lady," Alex said, turning to Hephaestus, who awkwardly looked away. "Hey, I can act like a lady when needed," Loki retorted, showing she was still a noble lady. "As you wish, my fair lady," Alex said, starting to behave like a noble knight, which made both of them laugh. "Listen, Hestia, did Apollo challenge you or did he back off?" Alex asked his goddess, who was already devouring a pastry. "Yeah, he challenged me, but under the conditions he set. I shocked him with a taser and said we'd discuss the rules of the game at the meeting," Hestia said, swallowing a big bite of pastry. "By the way, how did the taser work against a god?" Alex asked, curious about how powerful the shock was against the so-called god. "The taser worked really well, he immediately went out cold, and smoke came out of him," Hestia replied, continuing to eat her pastry. "By the way, can I have one of those?" "Come on, just give me one. Just one," Loki said, approaching Alex and starting to act flirtatiously, holding onto his arm. "No, not until you stop behaving like that. Maybe then I'll give you one. For now, I can only hand out tasers to all the girls in your family so they can defend themselves from your antics," Alex said, tapping Loki on the forehead again. "Stop hitting me, my forehead is already all red." "And what do you mean stop behaving like that?" "I'm behaving just fine," Loki said, rubbing her reddened forehead. "Stop being a pervert, and I'll give you one. And Hephaestus, if you need one too, just ask, I'll give you a whole set against perverts so you can protect yourself," Alex said calmly. "All right, we still need to go home, so I think we'll take off now. The meeting about the game will probably be tomorrow, so we need to prepare Hestia for that event," Alex said, bidding everyone farewell. The next day, when Alex and Hestia returned home last night, Alex immediately began explaining how to ensure Apollo chose a game that would benefit them. This lecture lasted well into the night. Hestia behaved like a diligent student, taking notes, making observations, and asking questions. Waking up the next day alongside the sleeping Hestia, Alex began to make plans for his hunt, eagerly anticipating how he would catch idiots. After lying there a bit longer, he decided to wake Hestia up to go over the plan again. "Hestia, wake up, we need to discuss the plan for today once more," Alex said, gently nudging the drooling goddess. Sometimes he felt like Hestia was not the goddess of the hearth, but the goddess of drool, given the amount she produced in her sleep that made his eye twitch. "5 more minutes, and then I'll get up," Hestia sleepily replied, not even opening her eyes. "All right, then I'll carry you to the bathroom myself," Alex said, picking Hestia up and carrying her to the bathroom. After bath and breakfast. "Listen closely, Hestia, our plan is this. First, you must propose a one-on-one battle, hinting that you have only one family member. After that, maneuver him into choosing a castle siege game, which will further simplify my task. If he imposes any ridiculous conditions, you can agree, but don't forget to use the secret technique I taught you. Once he places his bet, you must declare that if he loses, he will forfeit all his possessions and leave Orario forever with no chance of return. Do you understand how to proceed, Captain Hestia?" said Alex, dressed inexplicably like a general. "Yes, General. I'll make Apollo accept our terms," replied Hestia, saluting. "My clever girl. Now go get ready and wipe the floor with that idiot so he knows who he's dealing with, said Alex, now dressed in his usual attire, a black t-shirt, black pants, and matching black boots. Don't do anything that could cause trouble while I'm at the meeting. I don't need more gods challenging us at our doorstep, Hestia said as she left the room. No promises, Alex shrugged, prompting a sigh from Hestia as she headed to the meeting. Now, time to hunt some idiots, but first, I'll change my outfit, Alex muttered to himself and went to change. He put on a sleeveless white shirt, a black tie, and black shoes, making sure to wear a white mask covering his entire face. The mask had no eye holes, just a toothy grin. With all preparations done, Alex teleported to an empty room in the dungeon, eagerly anticipating the hunt. Inside the dungeon, strolling through the dungeon, Alex encountered the first group of adventurers and decided to inquire which among them belonged to the family of the god listed in his notes. Good day, young ones. May I ask you a couple of questions on this fine day? Alex said in a friendly tone, approaching the group of adventurers. Who are you? What do you want? One member of the group asked, pointing a weapon at Alex. It seemed strange to see a person wearing a mask. No need for aggression, my friends. I just want to ask a few questions and then continue on my way, Alex replied calmly, stepping closer to the group. Go ahead, but don't come any closer, he said, still keeping his weapon at the ready. Does anyone here know someone from the family of a god named Ike? Anything you can tell me? Alex asked, standing before the group. Why do you need to know that? Why are you looking for someone from that god's family? The adventurer asked aggressively, still aiming the weapon at Alex. I'm not planning to harm him. I just want to ask a few questions and move on, Alex replied, indicating he had no ill intentions. My comrade belongs to that god's family. If you try anything funny, you'll regret it, he pointed to his companion and threatened. I told you, I'm not going to harm him. I just have a few questions. Now, my dear friend, would you care to believe in our savior, the flying spaghetti monster? Alex said, shifting his gaze to the person he was looking for. What kind of strange name for a god is that? I'm not joining a god with such a silly name that nobody's heard of, replied the member of Ike's family. Sorry, my friend, but that's the wrong answer, Alex said, pulling out his idiot stick and swiftly striking the person in the stomach. You said you wouldn't harm me. Why did you hit me right after asking a question? The adventurer asked, doubled over in pain and groaning. I said I wouldn't harm you, but I didn't say I wouldn't make it hurt. My stick doesn't cause damage, just pain, so there's no need to pretend like you're dying, Alex said, looking at the person curled up in a fetal position. Now that I've found who I was looking for, I'll be on my way. Good luck with your hunt, Alex said, walking away, ignoring the group trying to help their companion up. Throughout the dungeon, this event continued. Alex didn't stop, seeking out new targets and continuing to ask his victims silly questions. Tell me, what has a top but no bottom? Alex asked one adventurer. A roof, the adventurer replied, eyeing the strange figure. Unfortunately, that's incorrect. It's a cup, Alex said, striking the adventurer. And again. Tell me, what word is spelled incorrectly? Alex stopped another adventurer. Incorrectly, the adventurer answered after a moment's thought. Correct answer. Here's your prize, Alex said, striking the next adventurer. And again. Tell me, what can we see both day and night? Alex asked another adventurer. I think it's the sky, the adventurer replied. Unfortunately, it's the moon. You missed that one, Alex said, striking him. You lied? We see the sky both day and night, the adventurer protested, clutching his stomach. I said can, not constantly see, Alex replied, moving on to his next victim. And again. Tell me, what is actually round but everyone thinks it's flat? Alex asked. I think it's a potato pancake, the adventurer guessed without much thought. Nope. It's the earth. Here's your consolation prize, Alex said, hitting the poor guy on the legs. Meanwhile, as Alex continued to hunt for his next victim, adventurers in large groups began fleeing the dungeon's upper floors, causing a commotion. Hey, why is everyone running out of the dungeon? Are monsters breaking through again? An adventurer asked, stopping a person who was fleeing the dungeon. What other breakthrough? There's some lunatic in a mask running around asking weird questions, then hitting you with a stick, whether you answer correctly or not, the person replied, wrenching free and continuing to run, escaping from the madman in the white mask. Assembly of the Gods. When Hestia arrived at the assembly, she had no idea of the chaos Alex had caused in the dungeon, but she would find out later, in the following chapters. For now, let's return to the assembly. Entering the room, Hestia noticed she was the last to arrive. Now that everyone is here, let's begin the discussion on the war game between the families of Hestia and Apollo, Uranus said with authority. Making sure everyone was settled and quieted down, he continued. The family of Apollo has challenged the family of Hestia due to damage caused by a member of Hestia's family to a member of Apollo's family. Is that correct? Uranus asked, to which Hestia and Apollo nodded. Good. Now that we have settled that, let's move straight to the game in which the families will participate. Please make your proposals, Uranus suggested, allowing each to speak up. I have only one family member, so I propose a one-on-one battle between our families, Hestia proposed. I disagree, Apollo countered, knowing how strong a member of Hestia's family was. Then my final proposal is a castle capture game. If he doesn't agree to this choice, then I refuse the challenge, Hestia said, crossing her arms. She was supported by Hephaestus and Loki, and surprisingly, even Freya. Hestia immediately looked suspiciously at Freya, suspecting she was up to something. I agree, Apollo immediately replied, knowing he could win by numerical advantage. Now that both families agree, place your bets, Uranus said. I want, in case of Apollo's family's defeat, for him to give up all his property and leave Orario forever, Hestia said, expressing her desire. Then, in case of Hestia's family's defeat, I want Hestia herself and her child to belong to me, Apollo said, sinking into his depraved fantasies. If both sides agree, then sign this contract, and we will prepare the arena for battle, Uranus said, handing over the document for signing. That concludes our assembly. You may now go about your business, Uranus said, rising from his chair and leaving the hall. The other gods followed him, and gradually, the hall emptied. Soon, Hestia, you and your child will belong to me, Apollo said with a lascivious smile. We'll see who gets the last laugh. But for now, take one of the secret moves Alex taught me, Hestia said, then delivered a powerful kick to Apollo's groin, causing him to immediately lose consciousness, foaming at the mouth. Goodness, Hestia, where did you learn that? Hephaestus asked, looking at the stunned Apollo. Alex taught me. He called this move Descendant Crushing Strike. He said to use it if male gods started getting too forward, Hestia proudly said, puffing out her chest. My word, Hestia, what have you become? Hephaestus said, placing a hand on his forehead, unable to believe what her friend had done. It's all small stuff. Now let's go eat, Hestia said, heading off for food. To be continued. Chapter 15, How I Met Bilbo in the Dungeon. While Alex continued his descent into the dungeon, oblivious to the chaos he had caused, and indifferent even if he had known, for he could always leave and no one could stop him, the guild hall gradually filled with victims of Alex and concerned adventurers. The first group wanted to file a complaint against the adventurer who had attacked them in the dungeon. The second group consisted of those who came to observe the spectacle, and the third group comprised serious adventurers who wanted to know who this person was disrupting their livelihoods, aiming to catch him and prevent further trouble. Someone needs to help us. I want to file a complaint against the adventurer. He disrupted my hunt and injured me. Various shouts echoed throughout the guild hall, causing headaches for the staff. There were so many voices that it was impossible to discern what they were saying. Remer, the department head of the Orario Guild, a serious and professional man, struggled to calm the crowd and understand what was happening. However, the group of adventurers continued to shout, making it impossible to make out their words. Remer decided to summon one of the guild's employees, specifically Rose, a half-wolf girl with long red hair dressed in the guild's classic attire. Rose, quickly go fetch Roeman. Maybe he can quell this disturbance. I'll try to calm them down a bit until you bring the guild master, Remer shouted, still attempting to pacify the chaos. Despite Remer's responsible and calm demeanor, this situation angered him toward those causing disorder, especially the person responsible for it. Suddenly, a rough, elderly voice grabbed everyone's attention in the hall. What is going on here? Can someone explain to me? Yelled Roeman Martel, the guild master of Orario, an elf and immediate subordinate of the god Uranus. Roeman was an elderly elf with grey hair, green eyes and a slightly overweight body that made him appear shorter than he actually was. He wore a black guild suit of much higher quality than that of other employees. His gaze showed that he looked down on everyone, especially the half-elves whom he considered despicable. The only beings he didn't look down upon were gods and goddesses. After Roeman's shout, silence fell upon the hall. All eyes turned immediately to the guild master who had entered the room, demanding to know what was happening. Now that everyone has settled down, who will answer my question, or do I have to wait here all day? Roeman said, looking down on the gathered adventurers. And why is everyone silent? Can no one give me an answer? He continued. Guildmaster, allow me to explain what happened. Most of the adventurers here are directly affected by this situation, said the first victim of Alex, whom he encountered at the start of his crusade. Seeing Roeman's agreement to hear more, he continued, here's what happened. My group and I descended to the first floor of the dungeon. As we started moving towards the second floor, we encountered a strange man wearing a mask. Go on, don't stop halfway. Or do you intend to narrate your tale all day while we listen? Roeman interjected, signaling not to waste time and to get to the point, earning nods of approval from other adventurers who had suffered at the hands of the same person and wished to file complaints. My apologies, I'll continue. As our group headed towards the second floor, a peculiar man in a white mask without eyes approached us. The mask bore only a smile. This strange man said he was looking for followers of my god. I informed him that I myself was a follower of this god. He mentioned that he was looking for me specifically and then asked a strange question. He inquired if I wished to become a follower of a god with a peculiar name he called the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I replied that I had no intention of following a god with such a strange name. He said my answer was wrong and immediately struck me in the abdomen with an iron rod before disappearing. We haven't seen him since, continued the victim of Alex's crusade. Are all the victims of a similar incident gathered in this hall? Roeman asked, scanning the room filled with people. Some nodded, some shook their heads in denial, and the last group stood with smiles, seemingly there just for amusement and observation. Then those who have encountered a similar situation, please speak up so the guild can address this matter, Roeman continued, giving other victims a chance to speak. I'll go first. This person asked me some silly question, and after I answered correctly, he immediately struck me, one adventurer said. Let me also share. When I encountered this person, he asked me which finger he was showing. I said it was the pinky, but he said it was wrong, calling it the left pinky on the right hand. After that, he struck me and left, saying I should listen better, another added. I also encountered this person. He asked me why the sky is blue. I replied that I didn't know, and he immediately struck me, saying you should know, it's basic, then left me lying on the dungeon floor. The more Roeman listened to the adventurers, the more he realized the absurdity of the situation. Placing a hand on his wrinkled forehead, he asked, so, in summary, you've all encountered a strange adventurer who attacked you and then left without further explanation. Seeing all the victims nodding in agreement, he continued, if he attacked you, why are you all in good health? I don't see any of you injured, Roeman observed the adventurers, hoping to spot any signs of physical harm, but all he saw were headaches. When he struck me with his stick, he said it only brings pain but doesn't cause any damage. After these words from the adventurer, Roeman became even more doubtful about the sanity of those gathered. He was ready to believe they had inhaled something in the dungeon rather than that a madman with silly questions had attacked them. But seeing that all of them unanimously claimed they had been attacked, and observing how the commotion started again, he posed the most rational question. So what do you want to do? File a complaint against a person whose face you haven't even seen? Roeman asked, presenting his argument. After his words, all adventurers fell silent and pondered how they could file a complaint against someone whose face they hadn't even seen. The silence continued until one of the adventurers made a proposal. I suggest we gather a squad to capture this guy and bring him to the guild so the guild can deal with him. Delving into the dungeon is our job, some of us have families to feed, and this person is causing us trouble. What if there's a breakthrough and no adventurers are nearby, resulting in many deaths? One of the adventurers began, pretending to be concerned about the safety of those around. Those who heard his words nodded in agreement. However, he had his own greedy motives. He wanted to take everything that belonged to Alex, believing that the rod with which he struck adventurers was worth a lot of money. With his words, he managed to deceive many, but not the guild workers who had seen many people in their line of work. Seeing that his plan had succeeded, he gathered a group and set off in search of Alex. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, as Alex descended deeper into the dungeon, unaware that a punitive squad was trailing him, he continued to seek out new victims. Even if he had known, he wouldn't have cared. Wandering through the corridors of the 5th floor and humming a famous pirate song, he stumbled upon a strange empty room. In this room, he found a child unconscious and decided to approach to check if everything was all right. Despite being selfish, Alex still helped when he could, understanding that goodness needed to be backed by strength and influence. In his previous world, Alex possessed neither. He was an ordinary person who had withdrawn from society, spending his time at home immersed in video games and books. However, upon entering this world, he gained power that gave him freedom of action and the ability to protect loved ones, who eventually became his family. Alex always resented powerless heroes who constantly got into trouble, endangering those around them. He didn't want to be like them and strived for strength that would help him defend himself and his loved ones. Lost in his memories, Alex decided to help the child and asked how they ended up in the dungeon. Hey, kid, how are you? Are you okay? I've treated you, can you stand? Alex said, noticing the child beginning to regain consciousness. He wanted to find out how the child ended up in such a place. Do you understand that the dungeon isn't for children? How did you get here? Who are you? Are you an angel? Did I die? The child asked, seeing Alex's unusual attire and thinking they had arrived in heaven. I'm sorry, of course, but I'm not an angel, I'm a demon, Alex replied, noticing that the child was behaving strangely after waking up. Hearing his words, the child began to cry, thinking she had ended up in hell, recalling her sins and the deceived adventurers, hoping for peace after death. Seeing that the child misunderstood him, Alex decided to explain the situation. Wait, don't cry. You're not dead, I was just joking. I've treated you, and now we're talking. There's no need to panic, I won't harm you. Just calm down for now, and then we'll talk, Alex said, trying to calm the child. Seeing the child starting to calm down, he tried to understand who was before him. Because of the dirt on her face, he couldn't make out her features, but he understood she was a girl. Why are you here alone? Alex asked, waiting for an answer and hoping to understand how to help the child. I see you've finally calmed down. Maybe now you can tell me why you ended up in such a dangerous situation in the dungeon, Alex said, handing her a handkerchief to wipe her face. I ended up in this situation because my group abandoned me and left me here to die, the child replied, taking the handkerchief that Alex offered and began wiping her face. And anyway, why should you care what happened to me? People like me are always treated like this. Who cares whether a helper like me is alive or dead? Everyone doesn't care about the helpers, she continued, starting to cry again. My name is Lilaruka, and I'm an assistant who helps adventurers collect dropped items from monsters. In this situation, I ended up because many monsters emerged from the walls, and my group left me here to die, said Lilaruka, pulling back her hood. Alex saw a cute face with brown hair and brown eyes, reflecting experience and suffering. So tell me, Lily, why is such a young child like you in the dungeon instead of enjoying a normal childhood? Alex asked, curious about her situation. I'm not a child, I'm already 15 years old, and I'm this small because I'm from the Hobbit race. I'm in the dungeon because I have no one else to rely on, replied Lily, annoyed at being called small. All right, you're grown up. So, since you're a hobbit, do you know a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins who lives under a hill? Alex asked, intending to lift Lily's spirits. Bilbo? Who's that? I've never heard of him. And what does lives under a hill mean? Asked a bewildered Lily, clearly forgetting the situation they were in. Chuckling, I'll tell you the story of that brave hobbit sometime. But now tell me, Lily, do you want to get revenge on those who wronged you? Alex asked, seeing that Lily had completely calmed down. What do you mean by revenge? Are you suggesting we kill them? Why would you even want to help me? I'm a stranger to you, Lily said, doubting what she heard. I said get revenge, not kill. Those are two different things. And as for why help? Why not? I'm doing this because I want to, nothing more, Alex replied, shrugging. So what revenge are you talking about then? Asked Lily, unaware of where this assistance might lead her. It's quite simple, my little helper. We'll catch up to them, and then we'll beat them until your anger subsides and you feel better, said Alex, standing up from where he was sitting. Now you need different clothes, Alex said, transforming Lily's attire into something resembling his own. Instead of pants, he created a long, loose skirt that reached her knees and a pair of comfortable shoes suitable for navigating dungeons. Upon noticing the changes, Lily called Alex a pervert for changing her outfit. After a moment of contemplation, she inspected the new clothes and was surprised by how soft and comfortable they were. So, my little helper, take this mask to avoid being recognized. It's always wise to conceal your face when doing something risky, Alex said, handing Lily a mask resembling his own but with red cheeks instead of a smile. Lily took the mask with puzzlement and sighed, realizing she was getting herself into an unpleasant situation. She put on the mask and used her abilities to transform her appearance from a hobbit into a cat girl. Noticing the change, Alex tried to touch her ears, for which he received a slap on the hands as Lily ordered him not to touch her ears. Shrugging, he suggested they go seek revenge. Hey, Lily, are those them? The group that abandoned you? Alex asked, pointing to a group sitting slightly apart. Lily nodded, confirming it was them. All right, take this, and do as I do. And most importantly, don't get nervous. I'll help you vent your anger, Alex said, handing Lily a pocket shocker and leaflets that said say cheese. Lily put the shocker in her pocket and took the leaflets, still unsure about her savior's words. Seeing him already walking towards the group of adventurers, she decided to follow him, ready for anything. Good day, young people, what a beautiful day, isn't it? Alex began, approaching the group of adventurers and catching their attention. I would like to invite you to join the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Our God is peaceful and forgiving, requiring no sacrifices or prayers in his honor. He just wants his followers to be happy, he continued, addressing the adventurers. Upon hearing those words, Lily began to doubt whether following him was worth it, but she remained nearby to support him. What nonsense are you spouting? What flying spaghetti monster? What god? Protested one of the adventurers. Exactly, we've never heard of a god with that name. Stop talking nonsense and get out of here before it's too late, added another. My friends, I mean you no harm, Alex said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. My assistant will hand you a leaflet, and you can see for yourselves, he continued, indicating for Lily to give the leaflet to the adventurers. Lily did so and returned to Alex, awaiting further instructions. But what she witnessed next shook her heart. It just says say cheese, she observed. That's right, you bastard. Now smile for the camera, said Alex, delivering an instantaneous blow to the person who received the leaflet, shocking the rest of the team. Oh my god, what's that over there? He continued, pointing in another direction. One of the adventurers, seeing nothing where Alex pointed, was about to say there was nothing there, but as he turned back, he received Alex's burying strike. The last adventurer standing attempted to flee but was halted by a shock from Alex. As he prepared to pursue, he saw Lily stunning the final one. See, I told you it would be easier than it seemed, Alex said, approaching the dazed Lily, who continued to stare blankly at the adventurer from whom white smoke billowed. Now, my little helper, we need to move on to enlighten these uneducated adventurers and set them on the right path, he added, snapping Lily out of her stupor. She still held the shocker in her hand, unable to believe such a small thing could knock out a level 2 adventurer. All right, let's go, my little helper, we've got plenty to do, said Alex. Lily snapped out of her daze and followed him until they heard approaching voices. Alex initially thought it was a new group of victims for his adventures, but it turned out to be the opposite. It was a punitive squad of adventurers who had suffered from his pranks. There he is, get him. Yeah, that's the one who attacked us. Grab him. But he's not alone, there's someone else with him. Who cares, get them both. Shouting, the approaching group of adventurers arrived to arrest Alex. In this situation, Alex did the right thing. Look, it's Superman, he shouted, pointing behind the enraged group of adventurers and distracting their attention. Seeing them turn, he grabbed Lily and bolted for the nearest corner to hide. Superman? Who's that? I don't know, do you know? Idiots, he's distracting us to escape, the head adventurer angrily said, noticing Alex disappearing. Start the chase. Alex was about to turn the corner when he heard behind him, surprise, motherfucker, and took a heavy blow to his face, knocking him unconscious. As soon as Alex noticed the enraged crowd, he shouted the first thing that came to mind. Run, Bilbo, they've found us, said Alex, grabbing Lily, who was stunned by the whole situation. They dashed around the nearest corner. Alex noticed the crowd was distracted and hid behind the corner, preparing for a strike and awaiting the first unfortunate adventurer who would chase after them. Spotting his first victim, he yelled a famous phrase from his previous world, "Surprise, motherfucker." Alex struck with such force that the poor soul was thrown back into the crowd, knocking down anyone trying to follow. Realizing he had caused enough chaos among them, he grabbed Lily and decided to flee, understanding he had sinned enough. Using teleportation, they found themselves in an empty room on the first floor of the dungeon. Alex sighed, realizing they wouldn't have more time for mischief. Too bad, I would have liked to have more fun, but it's not possible anymore, said Alex, changing back into his usual clothes and switching Lily back into hers. You. Lily started pointing at the one hiding under the mask. Stop pointing, it's impolite, said Alex, pushing Lily's hand away from him. You're that crazy rookie who leveled up the fastest. Why do you even need this? Exclaimed Lily, continuing to point at Alex. Yes, I'm that guy. And I do this simply for revenge against those who gave me stupid nicknames. There's no deeper reason, replied Alex, shrugging. Oh God, what have I gotten myself into, said Lily, putting her hand to her forehead. You haven't gotten into anything. No one saw your face. And if anything happens, I can protect you. Just say the word if you need help, Alex calmly replied. Lily looked at him suspiciously. All right, my little helper, after such a tough day, we need some food. Coming, said Alex, leaving the room and beckoning Lily to follow. She shook her head and went after her new strange friend. To be continued. Chapter 16, The Little Hobbit and the Request for Help. Exiting the empty room on the dungeon's first floor, Alex and his young assistant Lily headed towards the exit. Lily couldn't believe that the person who had saved her and the famous newcomer were one and the same. She remembered him being serious and focused when he entered the dungeon, and now she couldn't reconcile how this quirky guy in a mask could be the same newcomer everyone talked about. But the facts were undeniable. Alexander Voldigode, the newcomer everyone was buzzing about, turned out to be a very peculiar guy. Lily continued to gaze at Alex, wondering how the person who saved her and this renowned newcomer could be one and the same. I have something on my face, Alex asked, noticing Lily's intense stare. He checked his face to make sure the mask was off. Once assured it was, he decided to inquire, is there something on your mind, since you're staring at me like that? No, I'm just curious how that stern adventurer I once saw at the dungeon entrance turned out to be such a peculiar person, Lily replied. She was genuinely intrigued and mulled over many possibilities in her head, but none seemed to fit the situation. Laughs, so that's what's been on your mind. The answer is quite mundane and simple, I'm just that kind of person. You know, sometimes when you go to a new place, you start acting modestly so others don't think you're strange and keep their distance, Alex explained, making his viewpoint clear. But no one would suspect that behind the mask is someone who recently made quite a stir. Plus, I didn't want to cause trouble for my goddess, so I did everything to avoid being recognized, he continued. So you're actually a strange guy who just suppresses his nature so others don't see your true essence, and that's why you hid your face under a mask and went on to create trouble. Lily summed up. Alex just shrugged and replied, you forgot to add that I didn't want to cause more trouble for my goddess. Is that really so important compared to the chaos you caused in the dungeon, leading to a punitive squad being sent after you? Are you only afraid of causing trouble for your goddess? And aren't you afraid she'll find out what you've done? Lily spoke louder with each word. Firstly, don't shout. Secondly, no one will find out, except maybe. Damn, I forgot I told my goddess about the stick I created for idiots and a couple of others about my plan. Looks like I messed up. Alex began to realize what he had disclosed to Hestia and others. He understood he had violated the first and most important rule, if you're going to cause trouble, don't tell anyone about it. Realizing his mistake, he decided to find a way out or resort to the sixth rule, if you've caused trouble and been discovered, under no circumstances admit to it. Coming to a decision, Alex chose to adhere to the sixth rule and act like he knew nothing. Why did you go silent? Lily asked, noticing Alex's face first started to sweat, then returned to normal. Nothing much, I was just devising a plan to avoid trouble. And the solution is quite simple, I'll just deny all accusations because without evidence, they can't do anything to me, Alex replied. Lily could only roll her eyes at the absurdity of his plan and silently sighed, knowing she was his accomplice in this. All right, let's go eat and talk. Maybe we can share our stories, Alex suggested, seeing that Lily wasn't saying anything more. Lily nodded and followed him. At a random food stall. Arriving at a place where food was sold, Alex and Lily decided to take a vacant table. Alex didn't want to go where he might meet acquaintances. He pretended he had just gone out for a walk and coincidentally encountered a helper he decided to hire. He had no idea what awaited him when he returned home, a group of angry goddesses interrogating him about his activities all day. Sitting down at a free table and ordering their food, each of them was lost in thought. Lily was still pondering whether she was worthy of someone like him helping or saving her. Alex sat quietly, observing how Lily's expression changed every second. When the waiter brought their food, they began eating in silence, each immersed in their own thoughts. Alex still waited for Lily to gather the courage to ask him for help. He thought that if she didn't want to ask, he would offer his help himself. There were many ways to solve her problems, and the simplest one was to just barge into the family of the god of Soma and demand they release Lily. But Alex decided to leave that choice to Lily herself. Finishing their food and seeing that Lily still hesitated to speak up, Alex decided to take matters into his own hands. Lily, if you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to be afraid, Alex said, breaking the silence. After his words, Lily tensed up, unsure of where to start. I just think I'm not worthy of help for everything I've done, Lily said, lowering her gaze, afraid to look at Alex. Without hearing his response, she looked up and met his gaze. Alex nodded at her to continue. I deceived many adventurers and stole money from them, Lily continued, still avoiding Alex's gaze. You need to blame yourself for stealing from adventurers. Yes, I'm against theft, but you did it to survive, Alex said, implying to Lily that she shouldn't blame herself too much. Lily, many people do worse things to survive. What you did wasn't a good deed, but it wasn't the worst either, Alex continued. Tell me your story, and I'll try to help you. My strength is greater than you can imagine, Alex said, letting her know she could rely on him. It all started when I was born into the family of the god Soma, which made me a member of that family from birth. And from that moment, my difficult life began, Lily began, gathering her strength to tell her story. I was born into the family of god Soma. My parents were part of this family, and when I was old enough to take care of myself, they made me earn money for them instead. Eventually, both of my parents died in the dungeon, leaving me completely alone. After their death, the members of Soma's family neglected me and constantly bullied me. I couldn't fight back because I was weak. I even tried to become an adventurer, but apparently, I had no talent, so I decided to switch to a support role. Over time, I learned how adventurers treat people like me, and I began to hate them even more. Tired of this difficult work, I decided to escape from Soma's family and was taken in by an elderly couple who ran a flower shop. But my happiness didn't last long. Members of Soma's family found me, destroyed the shop, and harmed the elderly couple who had taken care of me. After that, I had no choice but to return to Soma's family to prevent anyone else from getting hurt. Upon returning, I started hating adventurers, especially members of Soma's family, even more. Then I learned how I could leave Soma's family, but I needed money to do so. To earn it, I started stealing from adventurers who hired me. But recently, members of Soma's family took my money, and I didn't know what to do anymore. And then you saved me in the dungeon, and here we are, sitting and eating, Lily concluded her story, tears streaming down her face. She pondered why she deserved such a life and why, while watching other families appear so happy, she had to endure so much suffering. Don't cry, Lily, everything will be all right. If you need help, just ask, and I'll do everything I can to assist you, said Alex, approaching Lily, embracing her, and gently stroking her back to calm her down. It's all my fault, all because I'm weak. All my suffering is because of my weakness. If only I were strong, I wouldn't have suffered like this, Lily replied, continuing to cry and holding Alex closer. Lily, listen to me. As a wise man once said, it's not a sin to be weak, but it's a sin to stay weak. So don't worry, I'll help you become stronger, Alex said, showing his readiness to support her. But how can you help me? I tried to become an adventurer, and it didn't work out for me, Lily said, still crying. Lily, there are many ways to become stronger. Being an adventurer isn't the only path, Alex replied, still holding the distressed Lily. One way is to learn martial arts, he suggested as an example. This is just nonsense made up by the author, so don't worry about it. But first, tell me, do you want to seek revenge against the members of Soma's family? Alex asked, wanting to know her answer. Yes, I want revenge, but I want to do it with my own hands, Lily said, clenching her fists in hatred. Don't be angry, my little hobbit. Your revenge can start right now. Do all the members of Soma's family know your face? Alex asked. Lily nodded in response. Good, then follow me. Your revenge begins now. I'll teach you a technique that will help you unleash your anger on them, Alex said, standing up and beckoning Lily to follow him. Shortly after, leaving the diner, Alex and Lily headed to a deserted place. Once there, Alex explained to Lily what she needed to do and how to execute the secret technique. The plan was for Lily to stroll through the streets, waiting until a member of the Soma family noticed her, then lure him into an empty alleyway. Understanding the plan and mastering the secret technique, Alex and Lily set out to find their first target. They wandered through the city until they encountered one who still had no idea what awaited him. Hey, Alex, that's one of the guys who took my hard-earned money, Lily said, gritting her teeth in anger. Well then, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, my little assistant, your revenge begins right now, Alex said, donning his chaotic attire once more. Seeing Alex change back into his disguise, Lily approached her target to lure him into the alleyway. Lily emerged from the empty alleyway, positioning herself so that a member of the Soma family would notice her. Spotting her, he assumed Lily was scared and attempted to flee. The victim thought Lily was scared of him and chased after her, unaware of the high price he would pay for his foolishness. Darting into the empty alley, Lily stopped and waited for her victim. You've got nowhere else to run now, said the Soma family member. I don't need to run anymore, but you should start, Lily replied in a tone that enraged the Soma family member, who was ready to use force. What? You think just because we let you go last time, you can say whatever you want, the Soma family member began, until he felt someone place a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw a smiling mask and the person wearing it. Young man, would you care to believe in the bread god? Alex said, gripping the Soma family member's shoulder while Lily prepared to strike. What nonsense are you talking about? Get out of here before you get it, the Soma family member aggressively responded. For your rudeness, my dear friend, you will have to pay. Now, my little assistant, it's time to punish our uncouth friend, Alex calmly said, still holding on to the Soma family member's shoulder. Then he turned to Lily, whose attire had changed to a white short-sleeved shirt, black knee-length skirt, black shoes, and a mask with red cheeks on her face. Upon hearing Alex's words, Lily immediately rushed forward and delivered the descendant-crushing blow to the poor Soma family member, who promptly lost consciousness from the strike. Seeing the victim unconscious, Alex suggested continuing the search for several more Soma family members. Lily agreed with a smile. They found a few more unlucky targets, and Alex helped Lily vent her anger. This continued until evening approached. When Alex noticed it was getting dark and time to return, he decided to talk to Lily. Lily, it's evening already, time to head back. You can continue your revenge another time, Alex suggested. Hearing his words, Lily tensed up, realizing she had nowhere else to go. If you have nowhere else to go, you can come with me. My goddess is very kind, she will allow you to stay, Alex continued, noticing her tension. Nodding, Lily agreed to go with Alex to his home. Approaching the abandoned church, Lily couldn't believe he lived in such a rundown place. Alex reassured her that this place would be fixed soon and wouldn't be so dreadful. Entering the church, he began descending downwards. Alex opened the doors without looking inside. Come on in, Lily. My goddess is very kind, she will understand your situation and try to help you, Alex said, looking at Lily as she followed behind him. I see you decided to return after causing all that trouble, a voice echoed from inside. Alex turned around and realized he was in a tricky situation because besides Hestia, there were also Hephaestus and, surprisingly, Loki. He understood there was no point in running and decided to step inside, accepting his fate. To be continued. Chapter 17, Evil Hestia and possibly a new family member. Let's go back a bit, to the moment when the meeting regarding the war games ended and Hestia employed her secret technique against Apollo. The gods who hadn't yet left the hall were stunned by Hestia's actions. No one expected such a display from this gentle little goddess. The male gods remaining in the hall broke into a cold sweat upon seeing Apollo's condition. They swore to themselves never to attempt to pursue Hestia again, fearing they might suffer the same fate. Hastily, they departed the hall, wary of the consequences. The once crowded hall now emptied, with only a few gods remaining, aside from Apollo whom his fellow gods escorted out. Hestia, you didn't have to do that, Hephaestus said, rubbing his forehead. She still couldn't believe her kind-hearted friend had acted in such a manner. Hephaestus began to doubt whether it was right to let Hestia go off to start her own family. Sighing, she turned her attention to Hestia. If he hadn't behaved like a pervert, I wouldn't have even paid him any attention. He brought this upon himself, Hestia replied, grimacing. She didn't think she had done anything wrong. All she had done was punish a pervert who had tried to harass her. All right, let's go eat. It's been a long meeting, and I'm hungry, Hestia said, feeling her stomach growl. I see you're quite relaxed, Hestia. I take it you already consider this a victory. A suave voice came from behind Hestia and Hephaestus. What do you need, Freya? Hestia said, turning her attention to the speaker. The voice belonged to Freya, the most beautiful woman among the goddesses. Her beauty had no equal among gods or mortals alike. She had long silver hair, violet eyes that sparkled like precious gems, and snow-white skin so delicate it seemed a touch would leave a mark. She was dressed in an elegant black and red dress that accentuated her beauty. Freya was rightfully considered the most beautiful woman in both the realm of gods and mortals. Nothing special, Hestia. I just want to wish you and your child good luck in the upcoming game, Freya said in a gentle voice, approaching Hestia and Hephaestus. My child doesn't need your wishes. He'll manage just fine without your blessings, Hestia replied aggressively, as she never favored Freya even among the realm of gods. After Hestia's words, Freya's eyes briefly gleamed. It's just a wish of good luck, Hestia. I won't distract you any longer, Freya said, leaving the hall without looking back. Only Freya knew what she was thinking at that moment. All right, Hephaestus, now we can go eat before the annoying flies start bothering us, Hestia said, heading towards the door. But another goddess's voice stopped her. Hey, shorty, I'll come with you guys. After all, I helped you at the meeting, so you can treat me to food as a thank you, Loki said, approaching and pretending she had indeed helped. What did you say, washboard? You didn't help me at all, just nodded your head. That doesn't count as help, Hestia said, grinding her teeth at Loki's audacity. All right, you two, enough arguing, Hephaestus intervened. Hestia, you said yourself you're hungry. If you keep arguing, you won't be able to eat, and I'm not carrying you to the restaurant, she continued, preventing another fight from starting. Hearing Hephaestus's words, Hestia decided to set aside the argument for now and head to the restaurant to eat. Loki smiled to herself, satisfied that her plan had worked. And so, the trio of goddesses set off for food. At Loki's insistence, they arrived at the tavern Hostess of Fertility, found a free table, and placed their order. While they waited, Hephaestus examined the table. Hestia, is this one of Alex's tables? He did a fantastic job. His work looks simply stunning, Hephaestus remarked, admiring the ornament on the table. The table depicted a huge serpent coiled around the world. Proudly puffing her chest, as if she had crafted it herself without realizing it had been made instantly, Hestia heard her friend's words. What are you proud of, Busta One? Are you glad someone in your family can do something, unlike you? Loki said disdainfully, observing Hestia's pride. Unlike you, members of my family don't keep their distance from me, fearing I'll come onto them, Hestia retorted with equal disdain. Noticing that the two had started arguing again, Hephaestus sighed and rubbed her forehead, regretting she had decided to come with them. I should have just gone back to my workshop rather than watch these two argue again, she thought, wishing to leave. But then the savior arrived with the food, and the two perpetually quarreling goddesses fell silent for a moment. Hestia, aren't you afraid to leave Alex alone? Aren't you worried he might decide to carry out his plan? Hephaestus asked, drawing Hestia's attention. Hestia choked on her food and fell silent, looking at Hephaestus. Loki, who was drinking ale, also paused with her mug near her mouth and glanced at Hestia. Hephaestus, keep your voice down, Hestia said, looking around to see if anyone might overhear their conversation. I don't think he would dare to do that. He promised me he wouldn't cause any trouble while I'm away, Hestia said, reassuring herself that her family member wouldn't deceive her. Little did Hestia know that while she was here enjoying her meal, Alex had already caused quite a commotion in the dungeon. Some time later, while the trio of goddesses enjoyed their meal, a group of familiar adventurers entered the restaurant and immediately noticed their goddess. They were members of Loki's family who couldn't enter the guild hall because it was filled with victims of Alex's crusade. Upon seeing their goddess, they decided to approach and inform her of what had happened. Loki-sama, we didn't expect to see you here so early in the day, said Finn, the captain of Loki's family. I didn't expect to see you here either. Weren't you supposed to head out on a raid for a mission? Loki replied with surprise, setting her mug down on the table. Something happened in the dungeon, and the entire hall was filled with adventurers, so we couldn't get inside to take the mission, Finn explained, clarifying the reason for their delay. From what we heard from the adventurers, some guy started attacking adventurer groups, Finn continued, sitting at the neighboring table with his group. Laughter, this strange guy attacks adventurers by asking them silly questions and then hitting them with a stick, Tiona chimed in, laughing heartily, unable to believe such craziness existed. And what kind of stick was he using to hit them? Hestia nervously asked, starting to break out in a sweat. The adventurers we talked to said they were hit with a stick that only brings pain, Tiona replied after a moment's thought. She didn't notice Hestia starting to sweat even more from her answer. Alex, thought the trio of goddesses, looking at each other. Hestia began sweating profusely, Hephaestus sighed heavily, realizing the chaos Alex had caused, and Loki started laughing, clutching her stomach. Laughter, and what questions did he ask them? Loki asked, trying to stop laughing. Well, he asked different questions to each of them. For example, one was, why is the sky blue? When the adventurer couldn't answer, he immediately hit them and said something like you should know this, it's classic, Tiona replied after thinking for a while. Hearing her answer, Loki laughed even harder, almost falling to the floor. And what did he look like? Hestia nervously asked, silently praying to the other gods that the adventurers didn't recognize Alex. Everyone said he was dressed strangely with a mask and a smiling face, Finn replied, eliciting a sigh of relief from Hestia, followed by a surge of anger. Alex, I asked you not to do anything like this. Hestia thought, grabbing her head and anticipating future troubles. Seeing her state, Hephaestus didn't know how to comfort her friend. Loki, having just stopped laughing, noticed Hestia's distressed state and started laughing again. I need to go home immediately, right now, Hestia said, jumping up and trying to run home, hoping that Alex was at home and not the one causing the commotion. But even Hestia doubted her own words. There was still hope that Alex had just been lazing around at home all day, and they could breathe a sigh of relief, but even she didn't really believe it. As long as she didn't see him, there was still hope. Hestia, don't rush, you might fall, Hephaestus said, seeing Hestia about to run home. I don't have time, Hephaestus, I need to run home, Hestia said, pushing herself up from her seat and darting towards her house. Hephaestus shook her head and decided to follow her friend. Hey, don't forget about me, Loki shouted, running after Hestia and Hephaestus. Darn it, I didn't get a chance to ask Goddess Loki about the training sessions, where Alex will teach us new techniques, Tiona said, disappointed. Don't worry, you'll have another chance to ask. Loki will come back home, and you can ask her then, Rivaria said, trying to cheer up Tiona. Hearing her words, Tiona's mood lifted again. The abandoned church. Upon arriving home, Hestia rushed straight to the basement where their room was located. Alex, are you home? Don't stay silent, answer, she shouted, rushing into the basement. She started running through different rooms, trying to find Alex, but he wasn't there. Unable to find Alex, Hestia sadly sat down on the couch, tears welling up in her eyes, realizing that the troublemaker causing problems was indeed Alex. Understanding the extent of the problems he caused, Hestia began to feel angry. Hestia, I finally caught up with you. Could you not run so fast, said Hephaestus, entering the room and surveying it, understanding the kind of life her friend lived. So you live in such a shabby place, shorty, remarked Loki, who entered last. Leave, Loki, I'm not in the mood for you right now, Hestia said angrily. Don't get upset, no one saw Alex's face, so maybe you can avoid some trouble, Loki said with a smile, looking around the room. Hestia, calm down, let's talk and wait for Alex to come so he can explain everything, Hephaestus said, sitting down next to Hestia on the couch. Her words helped Hestia start to calm down. And is this your hospitality, Hestia? I expected more from the goddess of the hearth. You haven't even offered tea to your guests, said Loki, already seated at the table, provoking new anger from Hestia with her audacity. Leave, Loki. I didn't invite you into my home, Hestia replied through gritted teeth. Nah, I'm not leaving. I'm curious too about what Alex has done, Loki said, still relaxed in her chair. Seeing that Loki wasn't going to leave, Hestia became even angrier and was about to explode, when Hephaestus intervened to distract her. Hestia, if I remember correctly, they're starting renovations on your house this week. How about living with me again for a while? Hephaestus suggested, catching Hestia's attention. True, shorty. You can stay with Hephaestus for now, and Alex can stay with me, Loki interjected, provoking Hestia's anger again. Seeing that she had managed to annoy Hestia once more, Loki chuckled. Back off, Loki. Alex won't be living with a pervert like you, or he might catch your perversions. I won't allow my child to turn out like you, Hestia snapped. First of all, I'm not a pervert, and secondly, he won't catch anything from me. By nature, all men are perverts, some more, some less, Loki said, shrugging. I said no, so it's no. He won't be living with a pervert like you, Hestia retorted to Loki, who smiled, enjoying her anger. Alright, enough from both of you. Let's just wait for Alex and ask him what he's done, Hephaestus said, trying to calm the two goddesses down. She sighed again, wondering why she came here in the first place. Evening time. As the trio of goddesses waited for Alex, evening fell. They heard someone enter the church and descend downstairs. When the doors opened, Hestia noticed Alex, who was opening them with a smile on his face, which triggered another wave of anger from her. I see you've decided to come back after everything you've done. Do you have anything to say to me? Hestia said, looking at Alex, who froze in the doorway. Alex's face displayed a mix of accepting his fate and calmness. He stepped inside, and the trio of goddesses hadn't noticed yet that a little assistant was hiding behind him. I don't understand what you're talking about, Hestia, Alex said, feigning innocence. Then I'll ask again. Do you have anything to tell me? Hestia repeated, this time with a louder tone. Want a hug? Alex asked, avoiding the question and spreading his arms for a hug. Don't you dare dodge my question, Alex Kun, Hestia said, and her braids started to float as if one more wrong answer would turn her into a Super Saiyan. I don't understand what you're talking about, Hestia, Alex replied, continuing to follow the sixth rule. If you've caused trouble and been caught, under no circumstances admit it. He continued to pretend he was innocent. Then what have you been doing all day? Hestia persisted. I lounged on the couch for half the day, then went out for a walk and met an assistant, whom I decided to hire, Alex replied, pointing to Lily, who was hiding behind him. Lily didn't understand the situation she was in, as from Alex's words, his goddess seemed kind. So why was she so angry? Seeing the three goddesses in one room, Lily started to get even more nervous. Who is this child you've brought? Hestia asked, shifting her gaze to Lily, who started to get even more nervous. This is Lily Ruka Arde, and she's not a child, she's just a hobbit. Lily is my assistant whom I hired to help with raids, Alex replied, slipping up at the end. Hearing his answer, Lily just facepalmed for how easily he slipped up. The trio of goddesses heard his answer and rolled their eyes at Alex. So she's your assistant in those matters you've handled today all day? Hestia asked, hearing his slip up. I said assistant, not accomplice. I just slipped up a bit, Alex continued, following his rule. So you still don't want to admit what you've done? Hestia said, starting to get angry, approaching Alex and shaking him like a tree. Hestia, I'll explain everything to you later when we're alone. The situation with Lily is a bit sensitive, Alex said quietly so only Hestia could hear. And what situation with your assistant is it that others shouldn't hear? Hestia said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Everyone immediately turned their attention to Lily. Seeing this, Alex facepalmed for his goddess's carelessness. She's just a member of the Soma family. And maybe, or maybe not, I may have kidnapped her, Alex said, shrugging. Upon hearing this, Hestia started shaking him again and shouting about why he did this. Hestia, calm down, I'll explain everything to you later. But for now, let's calm down, Alex said, holding Hestia's hands to stop her from shaking him. Seeing that Hestia had calmed down, Alex suggested that everyone sit down at the table to talk. Once they were settled, he decided to tell Lily's story. Quietly asking for Lily's permission, she nodded, indicating he could continue. Alex began recounting her origins, how her parents had treated her, and her life with the Soma family. He didn't forget to mention how she escaped and was taken in by an elderly couple. Finally, he added how they had met, leaving out details of their subsequent activities. Poor child, let me hug you. You've been through so much, Hestia said, reaching to embrace Lily. She couldn't bear the thought of a child suffering so much. Hephaestus silently furrowed her brows, pondering how a god could allow such things in their family. Even Loki, always smiling, couldn't hide her displeasure. She knew there were gods who neglected their families, but to what extent? Don't be afraid, come here, I just want to hug you. And what are you going to do now, Alex? She's a member of the Soma family. You can't just take a family member of another god when they still belong to her, Hestia said, embracing Lily who was already crying. Hestia gently stroked her head, trying to comfort her. For now, let's set aside this question. First, we need to find a place to live because repairs are starting soon, and we won't be able to stay here, Alex replied, indicating to Hestia that now wasn't the time to discuss this. I've already found a place where we can stay during the repairs. Hephaestus offered us to stay with her during the renovations, Hestia said, still holding Lily in her embrace, to which Hephaestus nodded in agreement. This little one can stay with Hephaestus, and you can stay with me, Loki intervened, running up to Alex and shaking his hand. No, I don't mind staying with Hephaestus. I also need to help Lily become stronger, Alex replied, patting Loki on the forehead with his free hand. Stop hitting me, I'm a goddess, Loki said, covering her reddened forehead. And Loki, before I forget, if you don't mind, I can also help your children become stronger, Alex said, looking at Loki. If you want to teach them that move you used to defeat Goliath, I'm all for it, Loki said, rubbing her red forehead. Alright, it's getting late, time to prepare for bed. Lily must be tired after such a stressful day, she needs rest, Alex said, signaling to the guests that it was time to part ways. Why are you sending us away? Do you have something to hide? Loki began to protest. Okay, Loki, enough. We need to attend to our own matters, Hephaestus intervened, who had been silent until then. Seeing Alex nod gratefully at her, she smiled warmly at him. All right, as you wish. I'll send my children to you once you've moved in with Hephaestus, Loki said, getting up and heading towards the exit. Hephaestus also bid farewell and followed Loki. Then safe travels and good night, Alex called after them. Hearing their response, he sat back and sighed, remembering he had another problem to solve. To be continued. Chapter 18, Lily 2.0 and moving to Hephaestus. That same evening, after the two goddesses left his house, Alex sat down on the couch and sighed heavily, realizing that he had managed to avoid explaining his actions of the day. He decided to tell Lily a story to avoid questions about his crusade against the adventurers. As Alex sat on the couch, he didn't notice that someone was watching him like a hawk, not forgetting for a second about his actions today. No matter how much Alex tried to use his sixth rule, it wouldn't help him, because he would still have to answer his goddess's questions. Looking up, Alex met Hestia's eyes, which were staring at him so intently that it seemed like she was ready to bore a hole through him. Since we're alone, tell me what you did today, and don't even think about dodging the question. I already heard what you did on the way home, Hestia said in a quiet voice. I didn't do anything special, just had a little fun and played some pranks on the adventurers, Alex replied, spreading his hands. Speak more quietly, Lily's asleep, Hestia said quietly again, making it clear that there was no need to make noise. Alex noticed that Lily was already asleep in Hestia's arms and sighed, realizing that it had been an exhausting day for her. All right, just wait a moment. I'll lay her down on the bed, and then we can talk, Alex said, getting up and approaching Hestia to gently take Lily from her embrace and carry her to the couch. Okay, what do you want to know, Hestia? Alex asked, returning after laying Lily down on the bed. I want to know everything you did today, without any lies, Hestia said, sitting down next to Alex. She was curious to hear firsthand what he had been up to. Rumors were one thing, but hearing it directly from him was another. Basically, everything you've heard is true, except for the moment when I met Lily in the dungeon. She was abandoned by her group and on the verge of death, and I saved her. Then I helped her vent her anger on that group, Alex calmly began to explain, recounting how he had assisted Lily. Hearing this, Hestia looked again at the sleeping Lily and couldn't help but think about how much this child had suffered. So, what do you plan to do with her now? She's still a member of Soma's family, and you can't just take her and not return her. Until Soma himself releases her, she's still part of his family. We can't break the rules set by the gods, Hestia said with a serious tone, indicating the complexity of the situation. Hestia, rules are made by the strong to control the weak. Until you become strong, you have to abide by the rules. If you're already strong, then you create the rules that others must follow, Alex explained. So how do you plan to solve Lily's problem? She's still a member of Soma's family, and we can't afford to start another war, Hestia asked again. It's simple. We don't need to start a war to free Lily. And we don't need to go to Soma for him to release her. I can remove Falna from her body myself, Alex replied, indicating that he had a way to solve Lily's problem. And how do you intend to do that? Hestia asked skeptically, apparently forgetting that Alex had managed to heal her best friend before. Hestia, have you forgotten how I healed Hephaestus's eye when other gods couldn't? Removing the Falna is much easier than you think. Essentially, this blessing is a contract between a god and a member of their family. All we need to do is dissolve the contract, and Lily will be free, and we'll gain a new family member, Alex reminded, tapping his finger against Hestia's forehead, explaining how he would solve Lily's problem. All right, you're all-powerful and everything, Hestia said, not letting Alex continue tapping her forehead. Okay, Hestia, it's time for us to sleep. Tomorrow, we'll need to help Lily and move in with Hephaestus. So, go wash up and get to bed, Alex said, getting up from the couch and heading to the bathroom. Hestia sighed wearily and followed him. Meanwhile, the two goddesses, having left the abandoned church, walked home in silence until one of them remembered why she had come to Hestia's house in the first place. Oh damn, I completely forgot to grill Alex about what he did in the dungeon. He managed to distract me with his words. I'm the goddess of lies and deceit, how could this guy deceive me? Loki began shouting, wanting to turn back. Alright, calm down, Loki. You'll have time to talk to him later, no need to start a tantrum, Hephaestus sighed, understanding she still had this restless goddess on her hands. No, I want to know it now, I want to hear it right now, I need this. There hasn't been anything this fun in Orario for a long time. And better yet, next time he should take me with him. Loki continued shouting, stomping in place and grabbing her head like a spoiled child. Loki, when your kids go to train with Alex, you can go with them to talk, Hephaestus said, clearly forgetting that Alex and Hestia would soon move in with her. She might regret this decision, or maybe not, as her empty house was occupied only by herself and her child. Their presence could make her home more lively. Exactly, Hephaestus, you're right. Why didn't I think of that right away? Thanks, Hephaestus, Loki said, running towards her estate. Hephaestus took a deep breath and calmly walked home, enjoying the night walk through Orario. Kids, I'm home? I have good news for you, Loki shouted as she ran into her house, attracting the attention of its residents. What good news, Lady Loki? Yes, Lady Loki, tell us. Quiet down, let me speak. I've arranged with Alex for him to help you increase your strength. See what a great job I'm doing? Now praise me, Loki said proudly, clearly forgetting that it was Alex who proposed it. Everyone looked at Loki with suspicion, clearly not believing her, but still happy about the news. The next morning, waking up early as usual, Alex noticed Hestia drooling over him again. A sigh escaped his lungs, no matter how hard he tried, Hestia always managed to crawl into his bed and continue drooling on him. Alex didn't want to wake Hestia just yet, knowing today would be a long day. Turning his head towards the bed where Lily slept, he saw her with a peaceful smile, evidently feeling safe in this house. After lying there for a while longer, Alex decided to awaken the sleepy kingdom because there was much to do today. Hestia, wake up, Alex said, trying to rouse the drooling Hestia. Lily heard Alex's voice waking Hestia and immediately sat up, looking around. Spotting Alex looking at her at that moment, she breathed a sigh of relief, realizing she hadn't woken up in Soma family's house. Good morning, Lily. Did you sleep well? Alex asked, still trying to wake Hestia. Yes, I slept very well, even better compared to the past few years of my life, Lily said, getting out of bed. I'm glad you got some good sleep. Now go to the bathroom, there's an unused bath set there. You can use it, and we'll talk afterwards, Alex said, getting up and carrying Hestia into the bathroom. This lazy goddess never woke up unless she was taken to the bathroom. What are we going to talk about? Lily nervously asked, having overheard snippets of Alex and Hestia's conversation yesterday, clearly afraid they might send her back. Don't worry. We'll talk about how to help you get rid of the Soma family's mark and become free again, as well as how to make you stronger, Alex said, seeing Lily starting to get nervous. Upon hearing his words, Lily nodded and headed to the bathroom to wash up. Shortly after, sitting down at the dining table, Alex decided to share his plan with Lily on how to help her. Lily, what I'm about to say stays in this room. If anyone asks, just say you've never been a member of the Soma family. Soma himself probably won't even remember you, Alex said. Seeing Lily nod, he glanced at Hestia, signaling the importance of keeping this quiet. Catching his gaze, Hestia also nodded, understanding the need for secrecy. Lily, I will help you remove the Soma family's mark and cleanse your body so you can grow stronger, Alex continued. Seeing Lily nod again, he proceeded to explain further. Firstly, I'll cleanse your body of all the impurities that have accumulated throughout your life. Growing up in unfavorable conditions meant your body didn't receive enough nutrients needed for growth. So, I'll flush out all the toxins from your body to strengthen it. This way, you'll be able to become a proper adventurer or whatever else you wish, Alex concluded. Upon hearing his words, Lily's eyes widened in surprise. Subconsciously, she believed that Alex could do this. Alright, now that we've discussed it, follow me to the bathroom and remove your outer clothing so it doesn't get dirty when the impurities leave your body, Alex said, getting up and heading towards the bathroom. Lily followed him. Hestia, intrigued by what was happening, also followed them to avoid sitting alone at the table. Author's note, this is all nonsense I made up. In reality, I don't know why Lily can't absorb Falna properly and level up. I've seen many fanfics trying different ways to help Lily become stronger, and I came to the simplest conclusion. Her body wasn't strong enough due to poor conditions to properly conduct Falna. So, I thought a body cleansing method would fit well in this situation. You may have your own theories about it, but this is what I decided to go with. After cleansing Lily's body of toxins, Alex noticed a change in her appearance. She had grown slightly taller, her height increasing from 110 to 125 centimeters. It was amazing how simply cleansing her body and providing it with essential nutrients had such an effect. Now, she was a bit taller than the average hobbit. Although Lily was only 15 years old, she could still grow to 130 centimeters or even taller. How do you feel after the body cleanse? Alex asked, examining Lily from all sides. I feel lighter and moving is easier, Lily replied, testing her movements by waving her arms and legs. Besides feeling better, have you noticed you've grown taller? Alex said with a smile. Hearing his words, Lily looked at herself and noticed the change, which brought a joyful smile to her face. Now, lie down on the bed. I'll erase your mark, Alex said, showing Lily the way to the bed. Hearing his words, Lily approached the bed and lay down. Alright, now I'll erase your mark, and if you want, you can immediately join Hestia's family, Alex said, using magic to remove the mark. Lily pondered and agreed to become part of Hestia's family. Hestia, hearing this, was delighted to have another family member. But then she frowned because she wanted Alex and Lily to spend some time alone and enjoy each other's company. However, upon reflection, she realized there would still be opportunities to spend time together. After Hestia applied her mark on Lily's back, another question arose: if they were moving, where would they put her new soft sofa? While she pondered, Lily got up from the couch and finally felt free, having found a new family where no one would harm her anymore. Alright, we need to get ready. The construction crew will be here soon, so we need to clean everything up to greet them, and then head to Hephaestus's place, Alex said. But Alex, what about my new super soft bed? Hestia asked, her eyes welling with tears. Just use the bag I gave you and put the bed inside, Alex replied. Hestia didn't understand how she could fit a big bed into a small bag. I'll show you how to do it. And then don't forget to pack all your things in there, Alex said, taking Hestia's bag and guiding it towards the bed. Hestia watched as her bed disappeared when Alex directed the bag towards it, nearly jumping in shock. That's how it's done. Now hurry up and pack your things, the workers could arrive any minute, Alex said, handing the bag to Hestia, whose eyes sparkled. She quickly ran to gather her things and stuff them into the bag. With everything packed, the group waited for the workers to arrive. To be continued. Chapter 19, Living on the freebies at Hephaestus's and the start of training. Same day. After the group had gathered all their belongings, they sat down on the remaining 3 chairs in the empty room. Alex noticed how empty the room had become, but he understood that this marked the beginning of a new life. Once their new home was renovated, he could start recruiting new adventurers into their family. This house would become a lively place, filled with laughter and people with various goals and aspirations. Alex eagerly awaited the moment when new members would join their family, so he could train and guide them towards success. I think we've gathered everything, Alex said, scanning the room once more to ensure nothing was forgotten. Yes, I've packed everything into my bag, replied Hestia, showing her small purse. Lily looked at the purse enviously, which didn't escape Alex's notice. Lily, since you're our new family member, let me give you a gift, Alex said, pulling out a small brown backpack and handing it to Lily. Are you really giving me something so valuable? Lily asked, holding the backpack cautiously, afraid to damage it. Valuable? I can create such things with a snap of my fingers, so you don't need to worry. And here, take this anti-pervert kit, Alex replied, handing Lily the same kit he had given to Hestia. If you want to know how to use it, it's better to ask Hestia. She successfully completed the anti-pervert course, Alex added, pointing to Hestia, who proudly puffed up her chest, pleased with her achievement. Oh okay. Then, Hestia-sama, I'll be under your care, Lily said hesitantly, holding the kit Alex had given her. And don't forget, Lily, once we arrive at Hephaestus's place, your training will begin. You need to learn how to better control your body and fight, Alex said, thinking about how to train Lily. I already know how to fight monsters and have seen adventurers do it many times, Lily replied, sensing that the training would be challenging. That's not up for discussion. I'll teach you how to use one of my techniques, Alex said, deciding to make Lily into one-strike woman. He recalled reading a fanfic where they turned Asia Argento into one-strike woman and couldn't wait to see Lily, with her small frame, sending men 3 times her size flying through the air. I don't like the way you're smiling, Lily said, seeing Alex's grin grow wider. This is all small stuff, Lily. Now, start getting ready. It's going to be an exciting training session, Alex said, changing the subject. While our group was chatting cheerfully, the repair crew arrived. They had already set up their tools and were waiting outside for us to exit. Hey, anyone still inside? Shouted the foreman into the church. Yes, we're here. We've just finished packing up and we're waiting for you, Alex said, coming out with his group from the church. I see you've packed up your things so we don't accidentally break anything. There was a case once where we were fixing a house and people hadn't cleared out their stuff. We accidentally broke a couple of things, of course, we compensated for the damage, but since then, we've been advising people to clear out their belongings during repairs, the foreman said, chatting with Alex. Yeah, I understand, these things happen. Now, this place is entirely at your disposal. You can work your magic, Alex said, giving way to the foreman. Laughter, you're a cheerful guy. Have you found a place to stay during the repairs? Asked the foreman, showing interest in the group's situation. We'll be staying with a friend of my goddess for the time being. How long do you think the repairs will take? Alex asked, curious to know. Well, by my calculations, about a week, the foreman replied, checking against the plan. A week? That fast? Exclaimed Hestia, hardly believing her ears. Yes, Lady Hestia, if everything goes smoothly, the repairs will only take a week, the foreman answered her. It's so fast, I didn't expect everything to be done so quickly, Hestia said, thinking the repairs would take longer. You just want to freeload at Hephaestus's place, don't you? Alex teased, squinting at Hestia, who looked away and avoided his gaze. Alright then, let's get going. We have somewhere else to stop by before we reach our temporary home, Alex said, extending his hand for a handshake with the foreman. Well, safe travels to you all, and see you soon, the foreman said, shaking hands with Alex. Before heading to Hephaestus's estate, the group went to the shopping street to buy a couple of sets of clothes for Lily so she wouldn't have to wear the same outfit every day. While Alex helped pick out clothes for Lily, Hestia also took the opportunity to choose a few outfits for herself, thinking that since she was there, why not treat herself? Alex, seeing Hestia darting around the store and picking out clothes, shook his head and decided not to pay attention to it. Alex helped Lily pick out everyday clothes and workout attire. After selecting the clothes, he suggested they stop by a pastry shop to pick up something for Hephaestus, as it would be improper to visit someone's home empty-handed, especially if they were going to stay there for some time. Everyone agreed, and they headed to the pastry shop. After buying some sweets, the group headed straight to Hephaestus's estate. Arriving at Hephaestus's home, Alex was surprised to see a traditional Japanese house. Taking note of its beauty, he decided to admire it for a while. At that moment, Hestia wasted no time and dashed inside the house, paying no mind to anything else. The Hephaestus family estate. Hephaestus, we've arrived. Hestia shouted from the doorway as she entered the house together with Lily. Hestia, how many times have I told you not to shout? Hephaestus's voice echoed from deep within the house. She emerged, noticing Lily standing next to Hestia. After a moment's thought, Hephaestus decided to inquire about it later, in private with her friend. Sorry, Hephaestus, Hestia said, lowering her head. Never mind. Where's Alex? Hephaestus replied, immediately noticing his absence from the group. Alex decided to stay and inspect the house from outside, Hestia answered, gesturing back to where Alex stood on the street, admiring the view of the house. Well, don't just stand there in the doorway, come in. I've prepared rooms for you already. Hestia, we need to talk, Hephaestus said, indicating the way to the rooms before turning to Hestia. Oh okay, Hestia replied, following Hephaestus into the room. Hestia, is there something you need to tell me? Isn't this child a member of the Soma family? Why is she with you? Aren't you afraid of starting another war? Hephaestus began questioning, worried for her friend. Everything's fine, Hephaestus. Lily was never a member of the Soma family, she just lived there. Hestia began lying to her friend. Are you sure everything will be okay? Hephaestus asked, not believing a word Hestia said. Hestia nodded vigorously like a scared chicken, afraid Hephaestus would continue asking questions. All right, it's your family, and it's up to you how to handle it. But if anything happens, I'll be here to help, Hephaestus sighed, offering her support. Hearing her words, Hestia jumped up, hugged Hephaestus tightly, and thanked her for the help. Hephaestus simply shook her head in response. Meanwhile, on the street. Who are you, and what brings you here? A voice behind Alex asked. My name is Alexander Voldigode. I'm here with my goddess because she's friends with Hephaestus. Hephaestus has allowed us to stay with her for a while our home is undergoing repairs, Alex replied, turning to face the voice. He saw a girl standing there. The girl had dusky skin, long black hair tied in a ponytail, and one red eye, the other was covered with a bandage similar to the one Hephaestus wore. She was dressed in red hakama and sandals, with ample bosom concealed beneath a sarashi. My name is Tsubaki Kalbranda, but you can call me Tsubaki, since our goddesses are friends, she introduced herself. You said your name is Voldigode. Yes, that's my name. Is something the matter? Alex asked. So, you're the crazy new guy, right? Sigh. Seems like it. Haha, nice to meet the new celebrity. And I heard from my goddess that you called my sword crap. Shrugs. Can't help it, the sword really is crap. You're quite straightforward. I like you already. Alright, let's go inside. Enough standing around and admiring the facade, Tsubaki said, heading towards the house. Alex shook his head and followed her inside. Inside the house. Following Tsubaki inside, Alex looked around the house, impressed by its quality and style. Hephaestus-sama, I've done as you asked and brought another guest, Tsubaki said, dragging Alex into the common room. My apologies for intruding, Hephaestus, Alex said, approaching a place to sit. No worries, I allowed you both to stay here, Hephaestus replied kindly. Tsubaki, clearly not understanding why Hephaestus was so calm talking to Alex, looked at her in surprise. Why do you wear an eye patch even at home? Alex asked, noticing the patch. It's habit. Is this better? Hephaestus replied, removing the patch, which shocked Tsubaki. What? How? Why? Tsubaki exclaimed, asking questions and clearly not believing her eyes. Hephaestus simply gestured towards Alex, indicating he should answer. How did you do this? How did you heal my goddess? Quickly answer. Tsubaki rushed towards Alex and started shaking him. Well, a little of this, a little of that, and then boom, magic, Alex replied, used to this kind of shaking. What do you mean a little of this and that and what boom, magic? Can you explain properly? Tsubaki shook Alex even harder. Well, you know, magic, Alex replied, gesturing with hands that seemed to radiate rainbows. Can't you be more serious? Tsubaki asked, stopping shaking Alex. Alex just shook his head and touched Tsubaki's forehead with 2 fingers, healing all her old wounds. What did you do? Tsubaki asked, not understanding what happened but feeling better. I healed all your old wounds. You know, magic and all that, Alex said, gesturing with his hands. Tsubaki's mouth hung open so wide a bird could fly in. Alright, I still need to unpack. Can someone show me where my room is? Alex asked. Hephaestus stood up and offered to lead him. Thank you, Hephaestus. You can always count on you, Alex said, following her, leaving Sabeki with her mouth wide open, not understanding what had happened. Don't mention it. This is your room, make yourself at home. If you need anything, just come and ask, Hephaestus said, pointing to the room. Alex nodded, indicating he understood. Seeing his nod, Hephaestus bid farewell and went about her business, as she was a busy goddess unlike a lazy goddess who spends all her time at home and snacks. A little later, after unpacking everything, Alex double-checked to make sure he hadn't forgotten anything and, satisfied that everything was in place, headed to the main hall. Upon entering, he noticed that everyone had already gathered. Alex asked Hephaestus if there was a place here where he could train Lily. Hephaestus thought for a moment and mentioned that there was a suitable place in the backyard, where Sabeki sometimes tested the weapons she created. Hephaestus suggested they follow her. Arriving in the backyard, Alex noticed a bunch of wooden dummies and posts for testing sword sharpness. He asked if they could clear away unnecessary things to make space for training. Hephaestus nodded and said it was fine for him to move things around. Alex thanked her and used magic to clear the unnecessary items to the edge of the yard so they wouldn't get in the way. Alex called Lily over and told her that training would begin now, to which Lily sighed, realizing she wouldn't be able to rest a little longer. Hephaestus, Hestia, and Sabeki decided to stay and watch the training. They were curious to see how Alex planned to make Lily stronger. Lily, I'm going to start training you now to become stronger. First, you'll need to put these on, Alex said, handing her body weights. What is this? Ugh, why is it so heavy? Lily asked, struggling with the weights as she held them. These are body weights, they'll help strengthen your body, Alex replied, ignoring Lily's discomfort. Seeing no other choice, Lily resigned herself and put on the weights, feeling her body become heavier. What's this thing? Sabeki interjected, noticing Lily struggling to stand after putting on the strange gear. These are body weights designed to enhance strength. They adapt to the user and become as heavy as the user can handle. Here, try one, Alex replied, handing one to Sabeki. When she took it in her hands, she almost dropped it due to its weight, realizing how heavy it was. Are you saying this little thing adapts to the user's strength? Where did you even get such magical equipment? Sabeki began asking questions, examining the invention. Not where, I didn't get it, I created it myself, Alex replied, shrugging. But how? Sabeki asked. Magic, Alex answered, causing Sabeki to grind her teeth in frustration. Can you use normal words to explain and answer instead of your nonsense? Sabeki said through clenched teeth. Okay, don't get mad. I used runes, a combination of gravity runes, adaptation, and a few other minor runes that allow the user not to be crushed under their own weight, Alex explained, giving an example. But how did you manage to combine all of that? Sabeki asked, very intrigued. Before Alex could give his answer, an unexpected guest appeared, or rather another troublesome goddess who could cause chaos at any moment. Loki. Hey, Alex, I brought my kids for training, Loki shouted, rushing into the backyard. Loki, why do you and Hestia always barge into my territory without asking? Hephaestus asked, wondering what was wrong with these goddesses. I knocked on the door, and no one answered. I got tired of waiting, so I invited myself in, Loki replied with a smirk. Sigh, why are my friends like this? Hephaestus sighed to herself. Hestia and Loki could only smile wryly. Fine, I see you brought those who wanted to come. I'm just starting anyway. Let them take seats next to Lily, and Loki, don't interfere, Alex said, hearing his words. Loki pouted and stumped over to the other goddesses who were sitting and eager to watch the training. After everyone dispersed, Alex decided to begin his explanation of the training process. He pulled out a special board, which made Hestia flinch. She remembered how Alex used this board to explain plans so she wouldn't embarrass herself at meetings. Pushing aside her thoughts, Hestia was glad it wasn't her standing in front of that board now, knowing Alex was a strict teacher. Let's start with the basics of mana usage, specifically how to circulate mana throughout the body to strengthen it, Alex began, but he was interrupted. Teacher, but we already know how to do that, Tiona interjected, raising her hand. Tiona, could you come here for a moment? Alex said, waving for Tiona to approach. Seeing Alex call her, she came with a smile. Oh, what for? Tiona said, receiving a light slap. It's so you don't interrupt. I'm explaining this to Lily, but some of you could use a refresher, Alex said, looking at the annoyed Tiona. After Lily learns to strengthen her body with mana, the next step is to direct mana to specific parts of the body, like the arm. Watch, Alex said, approaching a training dummy and delivering a light strike that demolished the upper part of the dummy. If you can control this strike well, you can achieve this effect, Alex continued, moving to another dummy and lightly striking its chest with the back of his fist, leaving a fist-sized hole. I have a question. Can this technique be used with weapons? Shin, the elder sister of Tiona, asked. Of course, it can, but the effect will be different. Let me show you. Can someone lend me a regular knife? Alex asked, after which Shin handed one of the knives in their arsenal. Thank you. Now watch what effect it will have, Alex said, approaching another dummy and lightly running the knife across it. After making the strike, the dummy was cut like butter. Now you see what effect it will have, Alex asked, to which all nodded. Any more questions before we start? Alex asked, scanning his new students. I have a question. Do we need to do this too? Or will you teach us some magical tricks? Riveria asked, pointing to herself and the elf Lefia. Lefia was an elf with light orange hair and blue eyes. She wore a pink cloak over a white shirt and a pink corset dress. There was a purple bow on her collar. She had golden, white, and turquoise staffs called Tear of the Forest. Yes, you too will need to train physically. And before you ask, enemies won't wait for you to finish casting a spell. There may always be a situation where no one can protect you. That's why I'll teach you to run and use spells simultaneously, Alex answered, not allowing Riveria to ask another question. Now, put these on and let's go for a few laps to get used to the weight, Alex said, handing out body weights to the group, including Loki. Seeing them strain under the weight, Alex noticed Eyes, whose face always remained stoic. He noticed she only tensed slightly, then relaxed. Shaking his head, Alex decided to start the training. To be continued. Chapter 20, Chapter 20 New Power of Lily or Another Speedrun. Author's note, this chapter was hastily written because I've been busy most of the time and constantly distracted from writing, so I decided to write a chapter about simple interactions between characters, just because I can. Training ground. After Alex sent his charges to run and get accustomed to the weights, he decided to chat a bit with the gang, namely Hestia, Hephaestus, Loki, and Subaki. But as soon as he approached, one restless goddess, tired of waiting and eager to know the truth, started speaking. She was very curious about what Alex had been up to in the dungeon. Alex, last time you managed to distract me, but not this time. I want to know what you did in the dungeon. Rumors aren't enough for me, I need details about what you were doing, Loki began as soon as Alex approached. Hearing her question, Alex's eyes immediately began to dart around nervously. Loki, I don't know what you're talking about. I was with Lily the whole day and didn't do anything like that. It's all some crazy person upset with adventurers, Alex replied, sticking to the sixth rule. You won't fool me. I've heard that when the punitive squad found you, you had a little assistant with you who looks a lot like Lily, Loki said, pointing at Lily, who was sweating after running a lap around the training ground. First of all, Lily is a hobbit, and there was a wolf girl there, Alex replied without thinking, forgetting that Loki had said a girl who looks like Lily but hadn't mentioned what she looked like. There, you just admitted you were there. Now spill the details, or I won't leave you alone, Loki said, rushing forward and grabbing Alex's hand, behaving like a child. Stop grabbing his hand, you laundry board, or he might catch your perversions. Hestia said, rushing over and delivering a karate chop to separate their hands. Why are you shouting, lowly lady? He probably already told you all the details, and now you're preventing me from enjoying this story. Loki snapped back at Hestia, allowing Alex to step away and take a place beside Hephaestus. How have you been these past few days, Hephaestus? Alex asked, sitting down next to her. I've been good lately. Actually, very good. I feel more free than before, Hephaestus replied with a smile that reflected her relief. Really? Everything's that good? Alex asked, noticing her beautiful smile. Yes, everything is really good for me. And how about you? Aren't you afraid of losing to Apollo's family? The stakes in this battle are quite high, Hephaestus asked, concerned for her friends and Alex's fate, knowing how much he had helped her. I'm not worried. I'm more concerned about how to deal with these mongrels, or rather, how to defeat them, Alex replied, evoking a crooked smile from Hephaestus. What do you mean by how to defeat them? Hephaestus asked, seeking clarification from Alex. I mean, crush them using overwhelming force, or maybe toy with them a bit first and then win. In the worst case, let Lily fight them to hone her skills. After all, it's not always about fighting monsters, Alex calmly said, but anticipation for the upcoming battle was already visible in his eyes. He could already envision crushing these mongrels and making them lose all motivation. Why do you want Lily to fight? She hasn't even been in the dungeon yet. How can she defeat members of Apollo's family who are several levels above her and more experienced? Hephaestus asked, doubting Alex's choice to allow Lily to fight alone. Don't worry about Lily. I'll help her gain enough strength before the war game begins. If Lily doesn't want to fight, I have a mission for her during the war game, Alex said, pondering Hephaestus's words. What mission is that, then? Hephaestus asked, but Alex just raised a finger to his lips and indicated that it was a secret. You've escaped again without giving me an answer? Stop hiding and tell us what you were doing in the dungeon, Loki interjected, not allowing Hephaestus to continue speaking. Hephaestus simply shook her head and decided to listen quietly. All right, Loki, I'll tell you, but only if you answer a question, Alex said. Loki nodded, ready for the question. Alex's question intrigued everyone present at that moment. They were all curious about what the question would be. Then my question is simple, what chicken will hatch from the egg, but the egg does not bear? If you answer my question before they stop running, I'll tell you everything. Alex posed his question, confusing not only Loki but also Hephaestus, Hestia, and even Subaki, who sat silently. While Loki pondered her response, Alex noticed that the group he had sent to run with weights was still going. He thought these fools seemed determined to run themselves into exhaustion. Seeing them all drenched in sweat, Alex decided to stop them and find out what was going on. Stop? Stop running? Are you all planning to run until you collapse from exhaustion? Alex shouted, getting the group's attention, and they immediately halted. Now, answer my question, did you plan to keep running until you dropped from fatigue? Alex repeated. But you told us to run with these weights, didn't you? Finn asked, not understanding what the issue was. Everyone nodded, unsure why they were being stopped. God, I asked you to run to get used to the weights, not to run until you're exhausted, Alex said, shaking his head. The group exchanged looks, clearly having forgotten his instructions. Alright, then tell me, did you feel tiredness and discomfort while running? Alex asked. Everyone nodded, admitting that running with weights had been challenging and exhausting. It was hard because you were breathing incorrectly. During running, your body needs more oxygen, so you have to take deep breaths to oxygenate your blood. Understand? Alex explained. So basically, because of the weights, our bodies weren't used to it and started using more oxygen. Finn summarized. Exactly, Finn. You weren't accustomed to the weight, so it was tough. Now, you need to learn to take deep breaths to oxygenate your blood consistently throughout your training, Alex continued. Here's a useless fact for you, friends. When a person breathes, it happens as a reflex that develops over time. And now that you've heard about it, you're consciously breathing, Alex said, drawing curious looks from the listeners. However, he forgot that one silly goddess was listening attentively. Alex Kun, help? What do I do now? Do I have to breathe all the time by myself? Panicked Hestia, rushing over. Hestia, don't worry. Breathing is a reflex that develops over time. If you stop paying attention, your body will continue to breathe on its own, Alex reassured her. While Alex was explaining to the group how to breathe correctly during running and exercises to avoid fatigue, an unexpected guest approached him. It was Ace Wallenstein, also known as the Sword Princess. Alex hadn't expected her to approach him so soon with a request. What can I help you with, Ace? Alex asked, looking at the silent girl. Can you help me become stronger? Ace asked calmly. I'm already training you. Or do you want me to help you in another way? Alex clarified, unsure of where she was going with this. Yes, I want you to help me master that technique you used to slice the mannequin with the small knife, Ace replied quietly. Alright, I'll show you a couple of techniques that suit your weapon. Follow me, I'll show you, and then you can try to master them. If you have any questions, just ask, Alex said, leading Ace to an empty space where there was a free mannequin. This caught the attention of everyone else who was training. Watch, Ace. First, you take your stance, then take a deep breath, and then infuse your rapier with mana. But be careful not to overdo it, as it might break the blade if you use too much force or mana, Alex explained, assuming his stance with the rapier. His left arm was extended forward, indicating the path of the blade, while his other hand holding the rapier was slightly withdrawn for added power. Alex began infusing the rapier with mana, creating a second layer that sharpened the rapier. Then he delivered a precise strike to the mannequin. Do you remember how to strike and how much mana to use? Alex asked. Yes, but I feel something was off with your strike, Ace expressed doubt. Then you noticed. Look at the mannequin, and you'll see why my strike was peculiar, Alex said, pointing at the mannequin, which had 8 holes instead of 1. You delivered not just 1 strike, but 8. Ace asked, unable to believe her eyes. The rapier is effective for thrusting attacks at vulnerable points. It's difficult to slash with a rapier, so it's best to cover only the tip with mana, giving an extra boost during the strike, Alex explained. Will you teach me, then? Ace asked hopefully. Of course, I'll teach you. I'll explain the principles, and you'll practice yourself. If you have any questions, just ask and don't hesitate, Alex said, handing Ace the training rapier. She took the rapier in her hands and listened attentively, trying to memorize every detail. While Alex was explaining to Ace how to use the technique he had applied, 2 mages from the Loki familia approached him, Reveria and Hephaestus. Alex noticed them and decided to ask why they had come. He told Ace to continue training and try using the new technique, cautioning her to be careful and avoid injuring herself. What can I help you with, Reveria and Hephaestus? Alex asked the approaching mages. You mentioned that we need to be in good physical shape to run and use spells if needed. But I have the skill parallel chant that allows me to do that. So why do I need physical training? Also, I am an experienced mage. I can control the power of spells and the number of words needed for their activation, Reveria asked, not understanding the point of the training. Can you use parallel chant without any problems? Alex asked directly. Reveria fell silent, recalling that she doesn't always manage to use this skill perfectly. I understand that you are an experienced mage and know a lot, but can you use a spell with the same power just by saying its name, or even silently casting it? Alex inquired. Look, this is a simple fireball. I summoned it without an incantation and without chance. I simply transformed mana inside me into a fireball, Alex continued, summoning a fireball. But how did you do it without chance or even saying the spell's name? Reveria asked, examining the fireball. Hephaestus was intrigued. It's quite simple. Mana is essentially without an element and floats in the air. All you need to do is shape mana into the form you need. This requires good control over your mana. I know you're an elf, and your race has an innate predisposition to using mana, so it should be easier for both of you to learn, Alex replied, changing the fireball into other elements to demonstrate mana usage. The initial method for mana control involves giving it different forms, and then transitioning to changing elements. You've become too accustomed to using the skills you've acquired and haven't tried using mana itself, which could simplify many things. Look, this is a simple mana sphere, and then you just take it and change its shape, for example, into a sword or any other object, Alex said, showing how to practice mana manipulation. If you master what I've shown you, you'll be able to use your spells even without incantations or other details. You'll already know what to do and how to invoke a spell immediately. Chanting makes mana move and change in response to words, like activation keys that initiate the process, taking time. If you learn this technique, you won't need parallel chant anymore. You'll be able to run and use spells right away without worrying about losing concentration during running and injuring your allies, Alex concluded. A few words from the author. I know that in the world of Danmachi, magic can be innate or acquired through Falna, and all spells in this world require chants, as Belle did in the anime. But still, mana is mana, and why you can't simply transform it, which essentially has no element, into a fireball or a ball of light, I don't understand. Oh well. In different stories about mages, calculations are needed somewhere, understanding the element itself, etc. I just chose the simplest way to explain. After explaining the basics of magic to the two elves, Alex decided to approach the two Amazons to inquire about how they were doing and how he could help them. He had already promised to teach Tiona a few of his techniques. Tiona, Shun, how are you doing? Any issues with your breathing? Alex asked, catching the attention of the Amazons. No issues at all, it's quite simple once you know how, Tiona cheerfully replied. Shun simply nodded, indicating she was also doing fine. Alright then, do you need any advice or something similar? Alex asked. Shun shook her head, indicating she didn't need anything. Now that I've learned to breathe properly, can you teach me those techniques? Tiona asked, drawing the attention of everyone on the training ground. Alright, follow me. I'll show and explain how to perform these techniques, Alex said, motioning for Tiona to follow him. The others who became curious also joined in. I've already explained the first technique, now I'll demonstrate how to use the burying strike. It needs to be executed with enough force to incapacitate an opponent without causing lethal damage. You need to apply force in such a way that instead of knocking the opponent's head off, you drive it into the ground, Alex began explaining, demonstrating the strike on a dummy, burying its head into the ground without causing damage. If you can master this skill, essentially you can incapacitate opponents without killing them. Now, give it a try yourself, Alex said, allowing Tiona to attempt the strike. You did it like this, and then like this, Tiona exclaimed, striking the dummy and completely knocking its head off. Well, you got the idea. Just don't try this on live targets until you're fully proficient. Practice on monsters, after all, a live target is better than a wooden one, Alex said, to which Tiona smiled sweetly and hugged him. Alright, enough hugs. I still need to help Lily settle in and train her, we have the war game coming up soon, Alex said, trying to pry Tiona off him as she clung to him like a koala. Ah, you're no fun, Tiona said, hanging on to Alex. Tiona, stop hugging him. Get off already, her sister called out, rushing over and managing to pry Tiona off Alex on her second attempt, to which Tiona pouted. After helping everyone who approached him with questions, Alex decided to approach Lily, who was still getting used to the weights and learning to breathe properly to conserve energy. Alex noticed Lily was putting in a lot of effort. Seeing her determination to become stronger, he resolved to assist her with all his might so she could always defend herself. He also had in mind to make her into a one-strike girl, and he didn't forget that plan. Well, Lily, are you getting used to the weights? Alex asked, approaching Lily who found it difficult just to stand under such weight. I'm gradually getting used to it. I think, Lily answered uncertainly. That's good. Let's start your training program then. Our goal is to make you a one-strike girl, so you can defeat your enemies with a single powerful strike, Alex said, outlining his plan. Maybe just making me a normal adventurer would be fine? No need to do anything extreme. I'm okay as it is, Lily replied, unsure about Alex's plan. No need to doubt, my little assistant. We must look at the bigger picture and strive for greater heights, not stay in one place. As a great man once said, non est terminus, which means there is no limit to perfection. You must push yourself and become better than your former self, Alex said passionately, his eyes full of determination to put his plan into action. Alright, but if you push the training too far, I'll complain to Hestia, Lily agreed, but ended with a threat to tell everything to Hestia. Fair enough. Now, let's start with learning how to reinforce your body with mana. Once you've mastered that, we'll try reinforcing just one part of your body with mana, Alex said, demonstrating and explaining how to strengthen the body with mana. After several attempts, Lily learned how to strengthen her body with mana, but she couldn't sustain it for long due to her limited mana reserves. Alex came up with a solution and gave her a bracelet filled with mana so Lily could train comfortably. Over the next few days, Lily improved her ability to use reinforcement and direct mana to specific body parts. Seeing her progress, Alex concluded that she needed real-world experience. The best solution was to venture into the dungeon so Lily could face monsters and gain practical experience in using her skills. Inside the dungeon, on the first floor of the dungeon stood Alex, Lily, Tiona, and Ace. Tiona and Ace had joined to witness the little assistant's progress. Lily, it's time to gain real experience using the skills you've learned. The simplest way is to battle monsters, Alex said, implying what lay ahead for Lily. Are you saying I have to fight monsters in the dungeon using just these skills? Lily asked, ready to reject the plan and go home. Don't worry, my little assistant. If anything happens, I'll help you. Now, what will you do once you enter the first floor? You will need to rush to the 5th floor at speed, defeating all the monsters in your way, Alex said, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder and subtly casting a spell to attract monsters. So you want me to push through 5 floors and defeat every monster in my path all on my own? Are you out of your mind? Lily asked, doubting Alex's plan. You can do it, no need to fret. Plus, you have the protective bracelet I gave you. Did you think it only worked as a mana battery? Alex pointed out, indicating the bracelet on Lily's wrist. Well, if you say so, I'll give it a try. But I'm not promising anything, Lily said, preparing herself to begin. Where are you going? First, you need to warm up. Now repeat after me, hey budgie bam bam, let's go body boom boom, Alex said, starting to sing and move his arms and hips to the beat. Tiona immediately joined in, finding it fun, while Ace became slightly intrigued and began to repeat the chant as well. Lily, however, hesitated, unsure if she should participate while adventurers watched them. Hey, look, it's the crazy rookie and someone else with him, one of the adventurers remarked, noticing the dancing group. That's the Sword Princess and the Amazon from the Loki familia, but what are they doing with him? I'm more interested in what they're doing rather than why they're together. Maybe performing some strange ritual? Wait, this lunatic did some weird warm-up on his first day before busting through 10 floors. And since these two are with him, maybe they'll go beyond 10 floors. Who knows, but I want to see this. Inside the dungeon. After finishing their warm-up, Lily began her first speedrun in the dungeon. She ran with such speed that even first-level adventurers were amazed at how a little girl could develop such velocity. As Lily rushed onto the first floor, she heard Alex's voice shouting to her, saying he had cast a monster-attracting spell on her and that with each pause, the spell would strengthen. Upon hearing this, Lily promised herself that once she finished, she would strangle Alex for his jokes. As Lily pushed through the dungeon, Alex, Tiona, and Ace followed behind her to rescue her in case of danger. Spending a lot of time clearing the 5th floor, Lily collapsed on the ground covered in sweat and monster blood, but she was proud of herself. She had accomplished what she couldn't before, and Lily understood that this was the beginning of her path to becoming stronger. I'll strangle you once I've regained my strength, I promise, Lily said in a heavy tone, lying on the floor of the 5th floor. Sure, you can try anything you want, but I want to congratulate you on what you've achieved these days of training, Alex said, lying on the floor next to Lily. You did great, little Lily, Tiona added cheerfully. Congratulations, Ace simply said. For your achievement, there should be a reward. Now let's go replenish our strength, Alex said, recovering alongside Lily. We also need to start preparing for the war game. If you want, Lily, you can compete with them, and I'll stand aside, Alex suggested, helping Lily to her feet. No, I won't fight them. You better go yourself, and I'll just stand aside, Lily said, already on her feet. As you wish. Now let's go eat to regain our strength, Alex said, heading towards the exit from the 5th floor. You didn't do anything. What strength do you need to regain? Lily squinted at Alex. These are all minor details. Now, let's move forward, Alex said, not giving Lily a chance to reply. Exiting the dungeon, Alex already anticipated how the war game would unfold. To be continued.